The story begun with Lai Nianfen, who had been transported to another world 5 years ago, reached out to a disintegrating system, cursing and pleading for it not to disarm yet. The system window bid its farewell and notified him that his test results showed he was now perfect. Consequently, the system had no further teachings to offer and was disarmed. He clenched his hand to grab hold of what remained of the system in front of him, but it disintegrated into nothingness. He kept his clenched fist in front of him, frowning and crying, contemplating the saint system that had been disarmed during his 5th year in the new world. He expressed gratitude for all it had given and taught him over the past 5 years. By mistake, he got accepted to the #1 university, becoming a genius high school student who solved countless puzzles and surpassed adults in wisdom. Additionally, he became the champion of the national art competition and acquired knowledge in physics, chemistry, English, history, music, sports, politics, and geography. He won numerous awards and became the top student. However, desperation filled his face as he questioned the purpose of learning all those things. He even wondered if he would have to negotiate with monsters using his knowledge. He felt troubled because the world he had transmigrated to was one where people could fly, monsters could laugh, and swallow him whole. It was an immortal cultivation world. Clapping his hands, he prayed in front of a shabby makeshift shrine, reminiscing about how he endured the humiliation of learning the high school curriculum for 5 years, hoping the system would guide him to cultivate immortality and soar freely into the sky as an immortal. While continuing to pray, he reflected on how he had sought out immortals to learn from them directly. However, he was deemed to have no spiritual roots, which meant he had to remain immortal for the rest of his life. Driven by the fear of death, he chose to live a self-sufficient lifestyle in a relatively hidden mountain near the city. Yet, he constantly feared being drawn into the immortals' battles and dying in vain. What he possessed was the yard that was rewarded by the system when he mastered architecture, the robot that works similarly to an AI, which was rewarded when he mastered physics, and a purebred dog he rescued from the roadside. He stood in his yard, and as tears ran down his face, he raised his hands up to his face, looked up at the sky with a forced smile, patted the head of his dog, and said that things no longer mattered. Still having the same pitiful expression on his face, he convinced himself that his fate wasn't too bad. To stay mortal and have a lifetime of peace for the rest of his life, and to have fresh air and a good view, was much better compared to the mortal realm he used to live in. The flowers bloomed, and birds flew into the sky. All the while, a princess was traveling through the forest with her servant, who was asking her to wait, but she did not notice as she was busy complaining about how bad of a father the emperor was for daring to even consider marrying her off to a disgusting douchebag, and she even declared that she wouldn't forgive him. Her servant tried her best to catch up with the princess and requested again that she slow down and wait for her, and she mentioned that she thought she heard a wild beast barking. The princess held her head high and continued to walk as she questioned her servant what she was afraid of when her ki was almost condensed and she would be able to break through to the next stage anytime. So the beast was no match for her, but her servant narrowed her eyes at her and reminded her that she had been trying to build her foundation for 3 years. She turned her head in response and told her servant that her father was just so difficult to deal with that she couldn't just hide at any desolate, uninhabited place where birds don't shit, and then she said that she wouldn't be found for a while if she went to a place like that. Suddenly, something caught the princess's attention. It was the gate of Lai Nianfen's yard, and she was surprised that there was someone living in the forest. The servant looked up at the gate and informed the princess that it seemed like the place she had found was not deserted enough. The princess, who was also looking up, replied that it shouldn't be the case and questioned what kind of person would live in the deep old forest. Pointing at the door, the princess told her servant that she might be mistaken, but the architecture of it was not inferior to the palace. This made her suspect that a hidden expert must be living there. Consequently, she decided to enter and check it out. However, before they went inside, she reminded her servant not to address her as a princess. The servant readily agreed and complied. She knocked on the door, and quickly, Lai Nianfen opened it and took a peek. He asked the princess who she was, and she introduced herself as Luo Shiyu, a passerby who had noticed his house in the forest. She inquired if she could come in. Lai Nianfen had a funny expression on his face, and his heart raced as he thought that Luo Shiyu seemed to be a cultivator, as she emanated an ethereal sense of ki. He wondered if the spirit of the system in the heavens had sent him a girlfriend. Luo Shiyu mentioned that she was a little tired after walking for a long time and asked if she could go in and sit down. Cherry blossoms bloomed around her and her servant, sparkling in Lai Nianfen's eyes, a vision of a beautiful woman and a young girl. He then moved his left foot in the opposite direction, towards the entrance. Extending his arms, he assured her that she definitely could enter and asked how many days she was planning to stay. Luo Shiyu clarified that she was not planning to stay there. She would just take a short break and then leave. This surprised Lai Nianfen, but he managed to regain his composure. He offered them something to eat or drink, explaining that he hadn't had any guests for 5 years, so he wasn't sure what he could use to serve them well. Lai Nianfen called for Xiao Bai and asked it to cut a watermelon to serve their guests. Luo Shiyu said that she couldn't eat the watermelon because it was just a fruit for ordinary people and there was no use for her to eat it. Meanwhile, as she inspected the yard, she felt that it was special, as if it had some kind of mysterious power to calm the soul. The AI robot, Xiao Bai, came in carrying the sliced watermelon as it welcomed the guests to their house. Luo Shiyu and her servant stared blankly at Xiao Bai for a moment, trying to process the situation. Suddenly, they jumped out of their skins in horror when they realized that Xiao Bai was a living thing. Lai Nianfen quickly crouched and flicked Xiao Bai's forehead, reprimanding it for scaring the guests and telling it to hurry up and apologize. All the while, Luo Shiyu and her servant trembled in fear. When her servant asked her what Xiao Bai was, she told her that it was a spiritual robot. However, upon seeing its extraordinarily high spiritual intelligence, she took back her words and said that it could be an immortal robot. Looking proud, Lai Nianfen reassured the ladies and told them not to be alarmed, as Xiao Bai was his housekeeper, and it was a robot. Xiao Bai bowed down and apologized to Luo Shiyu and her servant for startling them. But Luo Shiyu and her servant were still completely confused and terrified by the situation. Although it was complicated to explain, Lai Nianfen tried to tell them that Xiao Bai was just an AI that was actually made using certain principles and advanced technology. He emphasized that it was not a big deal and just some small tricks, nothing special. Luo Shiyu still looked confused and terrified, and even though tears were already streaming down her cheeks, she still pumped her fist and confirmed that she understood that for Lai Nianfen, the spiritual robot with spiritual intelligence was just some small tricks. Looking happy and clueless, Lai Nianfen scratched the top of his head as he admired Luo Shiyu for understanding such an abstract concept in an instant. He said that it was expected of a person who cultivates immortality. Placing the sliced watermelon on the table, Lai Nianfen told Luo Shiyu, who was now sitting, to try it. He mentioned that he grew it himself, and it was freshly picked by Xiao Bai from the courtyard. As Lai Nianfen took a slice for himself, he extended his arms, offering the fruit to his guests and told them that in his hometown, he couldn't even eat such a non-polluting, zero-added natural watermelon. Looking curiously at the watermelon, Luo Shiyu respectfully accepted it, all the while thinking about how it was just an ordinary watermelon. But she couldn't say no to the expert. As she took a slice from the plate, she was impressed by the beauty of the watermelon and thought that it was like a red crystal, shining with dazzling brilliance. As she took a bite, a ripple effect of water appeared underneath her feet, and blobs of water started coming out of it. As she twirled and looked at her surroundings, she didn't know what was happening, as she was surrounded by a beautiful pool of water with lilies floating in it. Something behind her caught her attention, and when she turned to look at it, she was surprised to see that her reflection had become that of a deity. A huge body of water splashed and pierced through her chest from behind as she floated midair. She closed her eyes and blushed in pleasure as she felt the surge of spiritual ki. She embraced herself as she was enveloped by the water aura and a fiery dragon. Her reaction made her servant worry, and she asked her what was wrong, which pulled her back into reality. With wide eyes and astonishment, she immediately blurted out that she had succeeded in building a foundation. She clenched her hand and raised it closer to her chest as she explained that she had waited for 3 years of suffering because she could not build her foundation due to the lack of insights. But at that moment, after eating the watermelon, which not only contained spiritual ki but also came with insights, she had successfully established the foundation. Luo Shiyu's servant was surprised, while Lai Nianfen discreetly whispered and asked Xiao Bai if it had done something with the watermelon. Luo Shiyu quickly approached Lai Nianfen, grabbed his hand, called him senior, and thanked him for helping her break through and establish her foundation. As Luo Shiyu looked up at him with bedazzled starry eyes, he waved both his hands in front of him in denial, reminding Luo Shiyu that he was just an ordinary man and that it was just an ordinary watermelon. Thus, her breakthrough had nothing to do with it. Then he asked her if she thought he looked that old to be called senior. Luo Shiyu backed off, and she put her hand on her chin while tears started to form at the corners of her eyes as she thought to herself that he was a senior, and wondered if she had angered the expert. She crossed her arms and looked as though she was deep in thought, and she figured out that Lai Nianfen must be an expert who disguised himself as an ordinary man in order to experience living an ordinary life. Because she had almost revealed his identity earlier, he was now pissed at her, which made her berate herself for being careless. Luo Shiyu's eyes lit up, and she was about to call Lai Nianfen senior again but managed to change it and call him sir as she apologized for offending him when she got a little excited. Lai Nianfen blushed as he laughed and scratched the top of his head awkwardly. He told Luo Shiyu not to take it to heart, and he was glad that she was enjoying eating those watermelons. Luo Shiyu was startled when Lai Nianfen suddenly remembered something and looked behind him. Lai Nianfen called Blackie, and quickly, his dog came running towards him with its tongue hanging out of its mouth. Luo Shiyu and her servant were surprised when Lai Nianfen took a slice of watermelon and tossed it to Blackie, saying he could have it. Lai Nianfen turned to look at them, and with his thumbs up, he told them that he didn't have anything else in his residence, but he grew a lot of fruits and vegetables, which Blackie likes to eat. Luo Shiyu looked appalled as she looked down at the dog and thought about how Lai Nianfen just gave the watermelon to the dog when it was a fruit that contained insights, and was probably worth more than a spiritual fruit. But then she looked up at Lai Nianfen with curiosity in her eyes as she wondered if he was trying to tell her that it was the heavenly way of heaven and earth that all living things were equal, so the dog had the right to eat the watermelon. Then she realized that he not only helped her build her foundation but he also did not hesitate to use the treasure watermelon to teach her the heavenly law. Luo Shiyu pumped both her fists with excitement, twinkling as she blurted out and asked Lai Nianfen if he knew her identity and wanted to befriend her. However, Lai Nianfen just smiled and told her that he had no idea what she was talking about. Luo Shiyu suddenly took a circular jade from her pocket and told Lai Nianfen to accept it. She explained to him that it was her appreciation for the watermelon earlier. As he extended his hand to receive her gift, he was surprised by what it was. Luo Shiyu's servant furrowed her brow and expressed extreme concern, telling Luo Shiyu that she couldn't give that item away. Flowers bloomed around her, and she twinkled as Luo Shiyu reassured her servant that it was just an ornament, expressing her gratitude for Lai Nianfen's kindness. She then asked him if she could come there often to eat watermelon in the future. Lai Nianfen stared intently at the jade in his hands and told Luo Shiyu that if she just wanted to eat watermelon, she was welcome anytime. He mentioned that there was no need to be too polite and that she didn't have to give him the jade. Upon hearing this, Luo Shiyu interpreted it as her being rude again, while her servant remained focused on the preciousness of the jade. A few moments passed, and the sun rose over Lai Nianfen's roof. Luo Shiyu and her servant now stood at the gate, thanking Lai Nianfen for his time and bidding farewell. Lai Nianfen waved and told her that he would see them later. While Luo Shiyu walked away happily, her servant asked her why she gave her precious jade to Lai Nianfen. She smiled and confidently told her servant that she didn't know that many former senior cultivators of transcendent saints like to pretend to be mortals and live ordinary lives. She then raised her hand to her chin, appearing deep in thought as she explained to her servant that Lai Nianfen was a peerless expert, and it was the duty of a princess to make friends with experts. She further added that even if Lai Nianfen had a great heart and extraordinary strength, upon seeing the unknown jade pendant, he must have sensed her identity and sincerity as a princess. Her servant stared blankly at Luo Shiyu while sparkles surrounded her, and her hair and clothes were gently blown by the breeze as she laughed at how lucky she was that day because Lai Nianfen accepted her jade, which must mean that a good relationship had been formed. Her servant was amazed at what Luo Shiyu had done, and she asked her if they were going back to marry Duanmu Lai, which made Luo Shiyu flinch and ask herself how she could forget about that matter. Meanwhile, back at Lai Nianfen's yard, the table where they had eaten watermelon a moment ago was now empty. Lai Nianfen was standing near the gate, showing off the jade that Luo Shiyu had given him to Blackie and Xiao Bai, saying that although the stone was of average quality and the carving was barely adequate, it was the first time he had received a gift from a girl, so he considered that day a great day for him. But to Lai Nianfen's surprise, Blackie suddenly took the jade from his hands. Blackie quickly ran away from him, and Lai Nianfen called out to Blackie as he chased him and called him a silly dog, warning him not to eat the jade as it was going to cause him diarrhea. Lai Nianfen called Blackie so loudly that it was heard around the mountain area. In that area, someone suddenly arrived. There were 3 of them, and the one who seemed to be their leader pointed out that there were monsters ahead of them. And as he stood mightily in front of the group, he confirmed with them if he was right that the monsters were close. Lai Nianfen was fishing at the clear pond in his yard with Blackie lying on the grass by his side, and he found the activity quite relaxing. A few moments later, the sun had already set, and Lai Nianfen was still fishing in his pond, speechless. Confusion was evident on his face as he wondered why he wasn't able to catch even a single fish. Blackie, who was still lying on the ground beside Lai Nianfen, was startled when Lai Nianfen looked at him, saying that he found it strange that he couldn't get any fish when he always put in lots of krill every month and proceeded to ask him if he had eaten them all. Blackie started to sweat, and his face was filled with terror as he started to crazily shake his head when Lai Nianfen loomed over him and told him that he remembered putting in a golden carp, but no longer saw it anywhere. Lai Nianfen stared at Blackie intensely and doubtfully, while Blackie sweated profusely as he wagged his tail and was attentive to Lai Nianfen. Blackie had a deadpan expression when Lai Nianfen suddenly smiled, scratched his head, and said that he guessed he would have to go downtown to buy some krill. When morning came, Lai Nianfen went out, and as he told Xiao Bai to stay back and guard the house, it waved him goodbye and confidently affirmed that it understood his command. Somewhere in a walled community, someone exclaimed and announced when they saw Lai Nianfen arrive. A lot of people seemed to recognize Lai Nianfen, and they all greeted him. Some even invited him to come and sit with them. As Lai Nianfen smiled and waved to everyone, a vendor aggressively waved at him and told him to come check out his freshly baked steam buns that were free of charge, and Lai Nianfen quickly turned to look at him and gave him confirmation that he would check them out later. As Lai Nianfen continued to walk around the community, he smiled brightly when someone reminded him that he had helped cure their daughter's illness but they hadn't had time to thank him. All the while, in Lai Nianfen's mind, he was thinking that although he was not able to cultivate immortality, the system had taught him some useful things so he could help others. He continued to smile as he thought that the people in the community thought he was great, but it was just basic science, and then he quickly turned gloomy when he was reminded that he couldn't even keep a fish alive. As he approached the stall, the vendor immediately recognized him and questioned if he was there for some krill again when he had just bought some not too long ago. Lai Nianfen told the vendor not to remind him as he remembered putting all the krill into the pond, but he couldn't catch any fish. The vendor scratched his temple and asked Lai Nianfen if he had checked the water quality, environment, and feed, to which Lai Nianfen confirmed that he had checked and there was no problem. Ominous energy surrounded them when the vendor quickly leaned in to whisper to Lai Nianfen that there might be a monster lurking in his pond, which incredibly terrified Lai Nianfen. The vendor grabbed a tortoise and offered it to Lai Nianfen, while Blackie just sat beside Lai Nianfen and watched the transaction. The vendor held out the tortoise and told Lai Nianfen that that kind of tortoise would remain in its place in the pond and would only surface for some sunlight every afternoon, so he could put it inside the pond. If the tortoise was safe, it meant that his pond was safe. While the vendor told him that the tortoise was like keeping guard for him, Blackie and Lai Nianfen looked at it intently, saying that if it did not come out of the pond, then it would most likely have been eaten by the monster, and the vendor called him out to get him back to his senses. Lai Nianfen cheerfully responded and said that he would buy the tortoise while he handed out his bag of money, but the vendor did not accept it and waved it off, saying that if it were not for him, his stall would have shut down a long time ago, so he would give the tortoise to him free of charge as it was young and not a precious breed. Lai Nianfen thanked the vendor and went on his way. Lai Nianfen noticed a crying middle-aged woman as he was walking his way through the crowd. She was surrounded by other women who were comforting her, and she asked them what she should do as Nanan had been captured by a monster in the mountains. Lai Nianfen seemed to know who they were, as he was surprised to hear that Nanan had been captured by a monster. Lai Nianfen then got a mental image of a cute little girl, which was Nanan, Auntie Zhang's daughter, who would always call him Big Brother whenever she saw him, and she was so lovely, like an angel. One of the women tapped crying Auntie Zhang on her shoulders and comforted her, saying that she shouldn't worry too much as there were already 3 cultivators making their way up the hill, so they would save Nanan for sure. But, while still crying, Auntie Zhang turned her head to look at the woman and told her that the cultivators were good but from somewhere else, so they were unfamiliar with the place. And since the mountain was so big, she was afraid that by the time they found Nanan, it might already be too late. The woman comforted her more and told her not to worry, as the 3 of them were not ordinary people. As the woman continued to comfort Auntie Zhang and tell her that Nanan would be fine, Lai Nianfen was listening in on the conversation. He then smiled brightly while scratching the back of his head as he joined the conversation and told them that he knew the mountains well, so he volunteered to go there and show those cultivators the way. The people were surprised. The people turned to look at Lai Nianfen with worry written all over their faces, and Auntie Zhang was startled when he said that he would follow the trail of the cultivators when they entered the mountain, so he should be able to catch up to them. One of the men voiced everyone's concern and told Lai Nianfen that it was dangerous to go since the monsters have evil spirits. But even though he was terrified and trembling, Lai Nianfen gave them a thumbs up as he reassured them that he would try to be careful and, in case of danger, he would just run away. Lai Nianfen started to walk through the forest, and although he knew very well where the monsters resided as he had walked through the forest countless times, he was still hunched over in fear as he cheered and comforted himself while Blackie walked beside him. Blackie had an annoyed look on his face as Lai Nianfen walked behind him, completely terrified. He was holding out the jade that Luo Shiyu gave him, hoping that it would help him out when needed, since she was also a cultivator. He wondered if it would work against the monsters too. Something suddenly caught Blackie's attention, and he barked, prompting Lai Nianfen to ask him what was up. Blackie kept barking at a glowing mark on one of the tree trunks, and Lai Nianfen looked at it in amazement, wondering if the immortal cultivators had gone in the direction of the monsters. Lai Nianfen's face immediately lit up when he realized that the immortal cultivators had their own way to find the monsters. It seemed that he had been worried for nothing. With a smile on his face, he told Blackie that those cultivators would surely save Nanan, so they should go back. However, before he could finish his sentence, Blackie quickly ran away from him and headed in the direction of the monsters. His face twisted in fear as he called Blackie a stupid dog for rushing in that direction to be killed. Meanwhile, the cultivators were facing a leopard monster and mocking it for daring to be so rampant. One of the cultivators, Luo Hao, held his glowing middle and index fingers towards his chest and said that it was the first time he had left that sect. He believed that if he managed to slay the evil monster that day, their master would definitely praise him. But the other cultivator, Bai Liusuang, who was wielding a broadsword in her right hand and a talisman in her left, told Luo Hao that a little monster like that would not be worthy of any praise. On the other hand, the third cultivator, Qin Ju, stood there and introduced themselves to the leopard monster as the disciples of the Wanjian Immortal sect. They declared that they had come there to save the people. With his pointed ears and sharp claws, the leopard monster called the cultivators fools as he crouched on the ground and laughed, mocking their bravery. He called them 3 tiny stinky kids who were trying to slay monsters and declared that he, the Lord Leopard, would eat all of them. Luo Hao quickly released his golden aura, which encircled him, and called the Lord Leopard arrogant as he commanded Bai Liusuang and himself to line up. He raised his index and middle fingers, summoning his sword to rise, but the Lord Leopard was running toward them at a very fast speed, commenting that they were too slow. As the Lord Leopard continued to charge toward the cultivator, multiple swords started to twirl behind Luo Hao, and he commanded them to form up. While Luo Hao maintained the position of his left hand right in front of his chest, he extended his right hand toward the Lord Leopard and commanded his swords to go. Multiple golden swords came flying toward the direction he was pointing at. However, those swords were quickly destroyed as the Lord Leopard passed through them, repeatedly stating that they were too slow. He then mocked them for thinking that they could be heroes after only cultivating for a few years, emphasizing that he could easily kill the 3 of them with one finger, having cultivated for 200 years. Luo Hao and Qin Ju lay on the ground, and upon seeing her senior brother lying there, Bai Liusuang called out to them with worry written all over her face. Luo Hao responded and told her to hurry up and defend herself. Bai Liusuang immediately complied, shrouding herself with glowing talismans. Her brows furrowed as she could not believe that the Lord Leopard had knocked down her senior brother in one move. Bai Liusuang's eyes widened with terror when she noticed something above her. It was the Lord Leopard, looming above her while humming, easily breaking her barrier. He commented that female humans had yummy flesh and was sure that she would taste delicious. Bai Liusuang closed her eyes and turned her head away from the Lord Leopard as she called out to her senior brother for help. Luo Hao and Qin Ju were now standing. Luo Hao yelled at the Lord Leopard, threatening to kill him if he dared to lay a finger on his junior, Bai Luoswang, and declaring that they were disciples of the Wanjian Immortal sect. He asserted that their sect would fight him to the death. The Lord Leopard just laughed at them and told them to look at their desolate surroundings, where there was nothing he could be afraid of. The Lord Leopard then drooled and blushed in anticipation as he reached out his huge paw at Bai Luoswang, and then he laughed and declared that he would eat their beautiful junior right in front of them, one bite at a time. Meanwhile, Bai Luoswang was trembling in fear and pleaded with the Lord Leopard to let them go. Suddenly, a strange sound came from the forest, catching the Lord Leopard's attention. He wondered who it was and couldn't believe that someone had approached silently. Bai Luoswang furrowed her brows and couldn't say anything, while Qin Ju was still apprehensive, wondering if someone had come to save them. Luo Hao's face had already lit up. He smiled, expecting that their master must have sensed their danger. The creature passed through the woods in a zigzag motion so quickly that it couldn't be seen. The Lord Leopard gritted his teeth as he saw the silhouette behind him, which they assumed was the master of the tree cultivators, the sect master of the Wanjian Immortal sect. But to their surprise, it was just a passing dog, Blackie, strutting towards them with his tongue out. With his head turned towards Blackie, he was a bit annoyed that he got scared for nothing. He wondered what an ordinary dog was doing there. He then told Blackie that he was in a good mood that day, so he wasn't going to eat him and asked him to get out of the way. Meanwhile, Bai Luoswang was still frozen in front of the Lord Leopard. Blackie confidently glared at the Lord Leopard and suddenly talked, threatening him to surrender before it was too late. Luo Hao and Qin Ju were both surprised that Blackie could talk so confidently. Bai Luoswang warned Blackie that the Lord Leopard was very powerful, so he should run. Meanwhile, the Lord Leopard looked at Blackie with a deadpan face and was speechless. The Lord Leopard then grinned when he realized that Blackie was a little monster dog. He asked him if he had turned crazy from cultivating. Blackie's teeth twinkled as he smirked and raised his paws to his head, saying that he didn't usually go out much, so he really didn't know. With a confident grin on his face, Lord Leopard raised his index finger and said that he would give Blackie a blow that would wake up his brain, so afterward, Blackie would know. The Lord Leopard released a huge wave of purple aura and told Blackie to taste his power. Still emitting that wave of purple aura, the Lord Leopard laughed maniacally as he told Blackie that he should not be a stupid dog in his next life. The aura was so powerful that even though Luo Hao had protected himself with his aura, it still grazed his cheeks while he was just a bystander. As the wave of aura reached Blackie, he started absorbing it through his mouth effortlessly. After finishing devouring that huge amount of aura, he sat on the ground with his protruding belly and expressed his pain, saying that he was full. The Lord Leopard froze in place and was left speechless. Confusion filled his eyes as he couldn't believe that his attack had actually been eaten. Blackie then stood up to get back to business and shook off his body. His eyes lit up with aura, and he looked ferocious as he said that his master was coming soon, so he didn't want to waste his time with the Lord Leopard. As Blackie continued to release his aura, the sky suddenly turned black as clouds gathered and lightning struck, which terrified the Lord Leopard, who couldn't understand what was happening. Shrouding himself in aura, Blackie raised his right paw and told the Lord Leopard that he had done something he didn't like, so he must be punished. The Lord Leopard was greatly astonished as a gigantic paw made of aura towered over him like a huge building. His body shivered, and terror was evident on his face as he saw the gigantic dog paw above him. Still emitting and shrouding himself in aura, Blackie extended his paw forward. He jumped into the air as he swung his right paw, followed by the gigantic dog paw, as he told the Lord Leopard to die. The Lord Leopard was on all fours, his hair raised in terror, and tears were dripping down his eyes as he begged Blackie to forgive him and let him go, as he was just a small monster leopard. Blackie just glared at him and told him that it was too late. The gigantic dog paw slammed into the ground where the Lord Leopard was. As the gigantic dog paw dissipated, a huge dent on the ground remained with a silhouette in its center. It was the squished and bloody body of the Lord Leopard. As the clouds started to clear, the three disciples quickly bowed to the ground behind Blackie, thanking him for saving their lives. Blackie glanced at them and said nothing, then quickly turned around to face them. He commanded the bowing cultivators to get up and told them that his master likes to experience the life of a mortal with an ordinary identity, so they should remember that the three of them killed the monster leopard, and he had nothing to do with it. As Blackie continued to instruct them, when his master arrives, they should not mention anything about what he did. Bai Luoswang tilted her head in confusion when she heard that Blackie has a master. Blackie instructed them to treat his master like an ordinary man and to treat him like an ordinary dog. The three cultivators were flustered as Blackie raised his left leg and peed on the ground, confirming with them if the instructions were clear. The three of them were speechless for a moment as they processed the information, while Qin Ju was wondering who could possibly be the master of such a powerful monster dog. But then they recovered and bowed down to Blackie, assuring him that they would remember his instructions, which satisfied Blackie. After a moment, Lai Nianfen could be heard as he traversed through the tall grass and called for Blackie. Bai Luoswang and Luo Hao quickly looked in the direction where the voice was coming from, full of anticipation as they were about to meet an extraordinary person. Lai Nianfen looked pale. He was sweating and out of breath as he approached the group, reprimanding Blackie for not listening to him when he called out and for running so fast, which made him exhausted after chasing. Qin Ju, Luo Hao, and Bai Luoswang were all expectant and excited to see the extraordinary expert who was living the life of a mortal. On the other hand, Lai Nianfen did not notice them. He was so mad that he yelled at Blackie, asking if he did not hear him when he told him to stop, and slapped him at the same time. Blackie did not dodge or fight back, he just took the slap. and his head jerked back in response to the impact, with his drool flying in the air. Blackie bent over and started licking Lai Nianfin's feet. But Lai Nianfin was still so fuming mad that he just crossed his arms and sarcastically acknowledged that Blackie just knew how to lick at that moment. Luo Hao was frozen in fear, and sweat ran down his face as he asked himself what kind of high-level expert Lai Nianfin was, to be able to treat an immortal dog just like an ordinary beast. Bai Luoswang was startled as well. Her face turned pale as she told Luo Hao that even their master may not be able to catch the Lord Dog's paw, which covered the sky. However, Kinju disagreed with her and told her that she was underestimating their master. With a serious look on his face, Kinju said that their master was the sect master of Wanjian Immortal Sect, so he would surely be able to take the dog paw. However, he would need to rest for a couple of months to recover from the injury. Luo Hao did not pay them any mind as he was intently looking at Lai Nianfin, and he placed his hand under his chin as he thought that something was not right because there was no spiritual power fluctuation in Lai Nianfin. As Lai Nianfin squished Blackie's face and played with it, Luo Hao thought that no matter how he looked at Lai Nianfin, he definitely was immortal. Lai Nianfin turned to look at them when he finally noticed the three cultivators, and Blackie turned to look at them too. Blushing and full of excitement, Lai Nianfin shook Luo Hao's hand and apologized, asking if his stupid dog troubled him. He also proceeded to thank them, the three heroes, for slaying the monster and saving Nanan that day, as they all brought peace to the fallen town. Luo Hao's brows furrowed, and his face twisted in confusion as he tried to analyze Lai Nianfin's name. As Lai Nianfin continued to shake Luo Hao's hand and scratch the back of his head awkwardly, Luo Hao came to the realization that Nianfin stood for the nostalgic feeling of one's mortal life. He was amazed at how meaningful his name was, acknowledging his worth of being an expert. He felt enlightened and was no longer surprised that Lai Nianfin concealed himself as an ordinary man. Then suddenly, Luo Hao grabbed Kinju's head and forced him to bow, which surprised him. Luo Hao bowed at Lai Nianfin and said that it was a pleasure meeting him. Bai Luoswang, on the other hand, closed her eyes and bowed gracefully at Lai Nianfin as he introduced her seniors. She then looked up at Lai Nianfin and introduced herself as Bai Luoswang, the daughter of the sect master of the Wanjian Immortal Sect, and said that it was fate that she met him that day. But to Bai Luoswang's dismay, Lai Nianfin ignored her charm as he walked past her and started to inspect the flattened Lord Leopard on the ground. He asked for permission to take a closer look. The three of them were confused when Lai Nianfin pointed at the Lord Leopard and told them that in his previous life, it was a protected animal. Suddenly, something caught Lai Nianfin's attention. It was a golden bead, and he asked the cultivators what it was. The three cultivators approached him, and with a smile on his face, Luo Hao, who had a full score in the Wanjian Immortal Sect theory test, explained that it was the monster leopard's demon dan. For a powerful monster like that, its demon dan was very valuable. If used to enhance cultivation, it could raise at least 3 levels of the realm. As the demon dan floated in front of Lai Nianfin, his eyes twinkled with awe. He had only seen it in a TV series in his previous life. Then he said that the original one looked so precious. Lai Nianfin then turned towards Bai Luoswang. She was startled when he grabbed her hand and placed the demon dan in her hand, saying that she should keep it well and not let it float around like that. Bai Luoswang's face lit up when she realized that Lai Nianfin had given the demon dan to her. But Luo Hao chimed in and told Lai Nianfin that the monster leopard's defeat was pure luck, so they did not dare ask for it. This left Lai Nianfin confused. With a firm look on his face, Lai Nianfin told them that the demon dan was naturally theirs since they had all defeated the monster leopard. Bai Luoswang was startled upon hearing what he said. Lai Nianfin smiled cluelessly in front of her as Bai Luoswang contemplated and came to the conclusion that Lai Nianfin was testing her honesty. If she took the demon dan, she might as well be dead. Her brows furrowed, her mouth upturned, and tears filled her eyes as she thought about how she couldn't bear to part with the demon dan, but she must. Bai Luoswang's expression quickly changed to a humble one as she faced Lai Nianfin and offered to let him keep the demon dan. However, she could not finish her sentence as Blackie interrupted her by barking. Lai Nianfin was confused and turned to look at Blackie, who continued to bark. Blackie wagged his tail and blushed with his tongue out when Lai Nianfin finally understood what he was trying to say. Blackie proudly sat and faced the 3 cultivators as Lai Nianfin gladly explained his idea. His idea was for the 3 cultivators to take the demon dan while they would keep the body of the monster leopard, as they wanted to try what it tasted like. When Luo Hao said that they would respectfully oblige Lai Nianfin's words, he and Kinju grimaced at the thought of the monster leopard's meat being cooked, while Bai Luoswang celebrated that the demon dan would be hers. Lai Nianfin looked really satisfied and told Blackie that he was in charge of carrying the body. Blackie froze in place, surprised by the sudden task. He then turned to look at the 3 cultivators and smiled coyly. Even though Blackie said nothing, the 3 of them understood what Blackie meant, and they were all surprised. The sun was starting to set as the group began to travel through the woods. Kinju was carrying the monster leopard's body, and although his face was pale and fatigue was evident, he still told Lai Nianfin not to worry, as he had a good physique and insisted on carrying the body for him. While Luo Hao effortlessly carried Nanan in his arms, Kinju followed behind him, looking like he was dying of exhaustion, but still pleaded for Lai Nianfin not to wear out his pet. Lai Nianfen was awkwardly scratching the back of his head as he accepted Qin Zhu's insistence and thanked him. When Bai Luoshuang approached him with a gleeful smile and asked if he had been to the Wanjian Immortal sect, offering to take him there next time as the Lord was his father. This made Lai Nianfen wonder if all immortal cultivators were so friendly these days. He smiled contentedly and thought that he may have crossed over to a harmonious world of immortal cultivation. Back in town, the people greeted them with smiles. They were all glad to see the three Master Immortals back together with Lai Nianfen, and that they had brought Nanan back safely. Nanan immediately ran toward her mother as she called out to her, and her mother responded by calling her back. Lai Nianfen was glad that everything was alright, and while Auntie Zhang cried with happiness as she hugged Nanan tightly, one of the women thanked Lai Nianfen. However, he corrected them and said that he had not done anything as it was the three cultivators who had slain the monster. The townspeople started giving small gifts to Bai Luoshuang and Qin Zhu, who politely refused them, while Luo Hao looked at Lai Nianfen with awe for being unwilling to take credit, even when he had given the demon Dan to them. Lai Nianfen suddenly pointed out that the three cultivators must be tired, so he invited them to come over to his place to taste the leopard's meat. The three of them were startled when they heard him mention the leopard's meat but gladly accepted his invitation. After passing through the woods, they arrived at Lai Nianfen's residence, where Xiao Bai was waiting at the entrance and immediately welcomed its master. The three cultivators freaked out when they saw Xiao Bai and thought that it was a spiritual robot. Lai Nianfen quickly explained to them that Xiao Bai was not a spiritual robot, but just a small trick. Upon finding the situation familiar, Lai Nianfen scratched his head in annoyance at the thought that he always had to explain the small trick whenever guests came. While Lai Nianfen gestured for them to come in, telling them that they were welcome, the three cultivators stood frozen in place, dumbstruck. Bai Luoshuang tried to share her thoughts with Luo Hao, but he cut her off and told her that he knew what he was going to say. That Lai Nianfen called the spiritual robot with spiritual intelligence a small trick, which implies that spiritual intelligence was merely a small trick in the eyes of a big shot like him. As they entered Lai Nianfen's house, the three of them sat stiffly in his living room, observing that everything in the house displayed extreme perfection in terms of squares and circles. They also noticed that the floor was much smoother than a bronze mirror, and their expressions took on a rigid posture as they felt the chairs were so soft that it felt as if they were gripping their own asses. The three of them furrowed their brows, their expressions filled with astonishment as they realized they were in the world of big shots. It was already evening, and Lai Nianfen served his guests some tea and mentioned that he lived in a remote area, so he didn't have many guests. Lai Nianfen told them that the three of them didn't have to feel constrained and should think of the place as their own house. However, the three of them sat there nervously, sweat running down their faces. Luo Hao nervously thanked him and commented on how wonderfully furnished his home was. Unaware of his guests' discomfort, Lai Nianfen stood there with his hands on his hips, smiling proudly at his decor style, which was from his past life. He knew that even though his guests were eternal cultivators, they had never seen anything so fashionable. Lai Nianfen was surprised when Qin Zhu suddenly spoke up and nervously pointed at something while asking what it was. He was pointing at the device beside the sofa that had an LED screen on it, displaying the temperature and other numbers. Luo Hao and Bai Luoshuang looked at Qin Zhu expectantly as he had asked the question they wanted to ask. Lai Nianfen proudly told them that it was an air purification humidifier, and its function was to make the air quality fresher. Qin Zhu was so surprised by Lai Nianfen's response that he blurted out that the device made the air more than fresh. But he couldn't finish what he was about to say because Luo Hao dramatically fell onto his lap and claimed that he accidentally fell, which angered Qin Zhu, who questioned him about how he could fall when he was sitting. Luo Hao looked ominous as he slowly sat up, which made Qin Zhu nervously call out to him. Luo Hao's face twisted in fear, and he was sweating profusely as he asked Qin Zhu if he had gone mad. He proceeded to remind him of what Blackie had told them, that Lai Nianfen wanted to live the life of a mortal, so they must treat him as a mortal. The moment Luo Hao told him that if Lai Nianfen said it made the air fresher, then it could only freshen up the air, Qin Zhu was struck with realization. His face twisted in fear as he realized that he had been too careless. As Lai Nianfen asked Qin Zhu what he had just said, Luo Hao sat up straight with his arms crossed, while Qin Zhu scratched the back of his head, trying to wriggle out of the situation, and said that it was indeed a breath of fresh air for them. Lai Nianfen laughed and agreed with what Qin Zhu had just said. Afterward, he proudly informed them that a water purifier was also used to purify the water in the house. He demonstrated by pressing a button, causing water to pour into the teapot he held. As Lai Nianfen poured hot water from the teapot into the teacup, the three cultivators leaned forward simultaneously, savoring the aroma emitted by the hot water. They were extremely delighted, feeling the essence of the spiritual water, the spiritual air, and the holy item. Seeing their reaction, Lai Nianfen smiled brightly, glad that they liked what he served. As he walked out the door, he informed them that he would be cooking in the backyard. If they wanted more tea, they could simply pour it themselves. Luo Hao cupped his fist to Lai Nianfen and apologized for the trouble. Beside him, Qin Zhu and Bai Luoshuang smiled brightly at Lai Nianfen. They maintained the same facial expressions until they heard the door close. Their faces immediately turned grim. Qin reflected on his earlier carelessness, and Luo Hao told him that he appeared to have a terrific character. Bai Luoswang reminded him to be careful, stating that she wouldn't defend him if he provoked Lai Nianfen. Luo Hao closed his eyes and lectured Qin, emphasizing that making friends with Lai Nianfen would be their greatest blessing in life. He warned Qin not to offend him under any circumstances. Bai Luoswang closed her eyes and crossed her arms beside Luo Hao, silently agreeing. They were unaware that Qin had already stood up from his seat. As Qin stood near the water purifier, he raised the scroll, leaving Luo Hao astonished. Luo Hao asked Qin if he had been listening and told him not to touch Lai Nianfen's things without permission. Qin appeared unfazed and told Luo Hao not to be angry. He reassured him that since he had given him an order, he would not act recklessly. Referring to the trash bin in front of him, Qin stated that the scroll had been discarded there, making it seem like trash. Despite Qin's reassurance, Luo Hao still looked nervous as he reached out to him and told him that he must still be careful. But Qin paid his warnings no mind and asked if they should open the scroll up and have a look. Luo Hao was alarmed at Qin's suggestion. He asked him how he could think like that and reprimanded him, asking if it was something a cultivator would do. Someone's hands were trembling as they opened up the scroll while someone was telling them to be careful. It was Luo Hao who was nervously opening the scroll with his sleeves rolled up and tied around his armpits. And while Bai Luoswang was trembling in anticipation beside him, Qin was on his other side, and he seemed to be unfazed and was focused on the scroll. Luo Hao's eyes widened in surprise as he felt something strange. Suddenly, the scenery changed, and there was a person traversing through the river between huge mountains with a boat. The person noticed something, and they quickly drew their sword out. They jumped off their boat and lunged to attack the person standing by the riverbank. The person stepped on water to give themselves another driving force. The person standing on the riverbank was Luo Hao, and his eyes widened in surprise when the person pierced his torso and landed beside him so quickly that he did not have any time to react. As the leaves floated around him, his eyes still widened in surprise as he realized that it was the realm of the swordsman that was contained in the painting that they opened. As he suddenly blacked out and turned speechless, his companions called out to him multiple times. Finally, he has woken back up to reality as his companions continue to call out to him. Bai Luoswang quickly approached him with concern written in her eyes, asking what happened to him and if he was lost in thought, to which Luo Hao told her that he was fine. All the while, Qin trembled behind them, reminding them to be careful not to break the painting. With the aura of the scenery still wafting out of the painting, Luo Hao told them that in just one glance, he was brought into the painting that was filled with loneliness, coldness, and fear. Bai Luoswang glanced at the painting, and the aura of the scenery shrouded her as well while she explained that she felt the realm of the swordsman in the painting, the swordsman who was in a suit and was on his way to a duel. He realized that she was on the shore, and with a single strike, he pierced her. Meanwhile, Qin scratched his head in confusion and asked the two of them what they were talking about. Bai Luoswang was extremely surprised that he could not feel such a powerful realm of a swordsman, which made her question if he was still a disciple of the 10,000 Swords Wizard. Luo Hao came over to Qin and tapped him on the shoulder, saying that the practiced swordsmanship of the 10,000 Swords Wizard was very sensitive to the realm of a swordsman. But Qin's learning abilities were poor, so it was natural for him to be slower. Upon hearing Luo Hao's words, Qin squinted his eyes and pointed at himself, questioning him for saying that his learning abilities were poor when his theoretical grades were excellent. While Bai Luoswang told them that she was not sure why Lai Nianfen threw away those valuable treasures, as if right on cue, Lai Nianfen opened the door behind her. Lai Nianfen casually asked them if they were talking about them, which made them acknowledge that he was already in the room. While still holding the scroll in his hand, Luo Hao quickly bowed down and cupped his fist to Lai Nianfen. He confessed that they had touched his belongings without his permission, saying that it was their fault for being rude, so they were asking for forgiveness. Lai Nianfen recognized the scroll in his hand and was surprised. Lai Nianfen crossed his arms and bashfully said that it was a draft of his painting, which he sketched randomly and did not reflect his true level, so he threw it away. Luo Hao and Bai Luoswang stared blankly at Lai Nianfen, and they were dumbstruck as they heard that the painting was a draft. On the other hand, Qin was clueless and was wondering if Lai Nianfen was angry. Luo Hao and Bai Luoswang's mouths were wide open in surprise as they realized that there was a great realm of a swordsman in a draft. On the other hand, Qin came to a different conclusion. That Lai Nianfen was angry and he doesn't know what he should do. While shaking and tears forming at the corners of his eyes, Luo Hao cupped his fist to Lai Nianfen and asked politely if he could have the valuable draft since the painting was a draft. Upon hearing Luo Hao's request, an arrow struck Lai Nianfen's heart, and he smiled brightly as he asked if they all liked the painting. Lai Nianfen was so flustered that he awkwardly scratched his temple as he looked the other way. He told them that if they liked it, they could take it, as he was flattered. Then he started to ramble about how no one had liked his paintings since the system taught him, so he was glad that some people enjoyed his work. He was not able to continue with his rambling as he was startled when the three cultivators bowed down to him and paid him such huge respect, thanking him for the painting. Luo Hao quickly straightened up and turned to call for Bai Luoswang, telling her that without any delay, they should bring the valuable painting to their teacher's door right away in case of an emergency. Confused about what emergency Luo Hao was talking about, He asked him if he was afraid that he would go back on his word. Luo Hao laughed and told Lai Nianfen that what he said was ridiculous, which made Lai Nianfen laugh as well. But Luo Hao quickly turned to look at Bai Luoswang and anxiously ordered her to hurry and keep the painting properly, which startled her. Luo Hao bowed and cupped his fist to Lai Nianfen as he bid him farewell. He told him that the wonderful grace of that day would not be forgotten and that they hoped Bai Luoswang's cultivation base would benefit and improve more from that day's experience. He also told him that the next time, they would be the hosts and would invite Lai Nianfen to an apology ceremony. As the three cultivators flew into the skies riding their swords, Lai Nianfen stood in his yard, speechless as he looked up at them. Lai Nianfen wondered if that was what a cultivator was because they had rescued Nanan without expecting retaliation, and merely wanted a drafted painting. Lai Nianfen smiled as he patted both Xiao Bai and Blackie with both hands and said that he was clearly inferior compared to their attitude, so he was no longer surprised that the system said he didn't have the talent to cultivate as an immortal. Then he asked Blackie for validation of his statement. Blackie looked up at him with confusion in his eyes but did not say anything. As the night continued to unfold, the moon cast a gentle glow over the landscape, and the birds traversed through the mountain with the waft of Lai Nianfen's cooking traveling with them. Lai Nianfen mentioned that he really wanted to be a hero to help the world, and in response, Blackie barked. On the other hand, someone was ascending a set of stairs and asked Luo Shiyu if she was sure that she wasn't dreaming. Luo Shiyu looked annoyed and stated that she was sure it wasn't a dream. She questioned the person as to why they didn't trust her. Luo Shiyu clenched her fist and rhetorically asked how she could break through the foundation building stage if it wasn't with the help of an expert. She then turned to look at the woman standing behind her and asked for her opinion on whether the expert could be fake. The woman was her mother, standing there gracefully with flowers blooming around her. Luo Shiyu was annoyed as she scratched her head and said that since her father asked her to marry Duan Millie, she hadn't had a good night's sleep. She was upset as she walked in front of her mother, and her mother told her that she and her father couldn't seem to get away from internal and external troubles. She looked at Luo Shiyu earnestly and told her that if the expert she named had a way to crack the game, then it was good. As she was about to state the condition if the expert didn't have a way, she trailed off and paused for a moment. Furrowing her brows, she looked concerned at the crestfallen Luo Shiyu as she told her that marrying Duan Millie was her duty as a princess. Meanwhile, juicy, vibrant, and delicious meat was being grilled. It was Xiao Bai who was grilling the meat, and as it finished preparing, it politely asked Lai Nianfen, who was leisurely lying on a lounger beside them, to choose his flavor. Lai Nianfen placed his hands under his chin, deep in thought as he looked at Xiao Bai's system screen, trying to decide what flavor to choose. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door, catching Lai Nianfen's attention, saying they had a visitor. As he opened the door, he saw that it was Luo Shiyu, so he quickly welcomed her. Luo Shiyu smiled at him and apologized for coming by without hesitation. She then gestured with her hand to her mother and introduced her to Lai Nianfen. Lai Nianfen quickly turned his head to look at and acknowledge her mother, but he trailed off and did not finish his sentence. As he looked at the beauty who was staring back at him, he wondered if she was also a hidden expert. Luo Shiyu's mother, Zhongzhu, introduced herself while glowering at Lai Nianfen. Lai Nianfen was surprised at her expression and thought that she didn't appear to be friendly. But then his eyes twinkled, and he smiled as he thought that she was a beauty, so it was okay to be a little ferocious. Lai Nianfen then extended both his arms, gestured, and told them to come in, saying that he had just finished making lunch. As the three of them made their way towards Xiao Bai, who was grilling, it turned its head in Lai Nianfen's direction to inform him that it was done grilling. Lai Nianfen quickly ran ahead of the guests to inform Xiao Bai that they had visitors coming in. Xiao Bai sounded excited and quickly asked Lai Nianfen if they were going to have lunch together. When Lai Nianfen confirmed, Xiao Bai responded that it seemed they would need to prepare 2 extra pieces of cutlery. While Xiao Bai and Lai Nianfen were talking, Zhongzhu looked at Luo Shiyu with a horrified expression as she pointed at Xiao Bai. Luo Shiyu nonchalantly waved her hands and, while looking sideways, told Zhongzhu that those were simply gadgets found in the houses of experts. She explained that Zhongzhu was making a big deal out of nothing because she had never seen them before. Zhongzhu was speechless when she saw Xiao Bai approach Luo Shiyu, bow to her, and tell her that it was a pleasure to meet her again. Luo Shiyu snickered and told Xiao Bai that it was very interesting. Zhongzhu was so surprised that it seemed like life was drained from her face. She wondered what kind of tool Xiao Bai was, as it couldn't only cook but also tease girls. In comparison, the treasure of the dynasty's Zhenchao seemed like total trash. Zhongzhu then managed to calm down as she smiled and tucked her hair behind her ears. She sat down near the grilled meat with Luo Shiyu, thinking that there still seemed to be a need to take Lai Nianfen seriously. Luo Shiyu leaned over and grabbed the grilled meat by its stick, asking Lai Nianfen if it was really delicious. Zhongzhu quickly turned towards Luo Shiyu, her face looking scary, and told her not to be rude to Lai Nianfen. Luo Shiyu was startled and pointed out how quickly Zhongzhu's expression changed. Both of them stopped what they were doing when Xiao Bai caught their attention and told them that they were pretty, but they shouldn't use that as a reason to judge his cooking. Hearing Xiao Bai, Lai Nianfen crossed his arms, proudly nodded, and with a smirk on his face, he thought he would let them know later what prejudgment cooks up their words meant. Lai Nianfen sparkled as he confidently smiled and told Xiao Bai to quickly serve some meals for the two ladies. With an intense look on its face, Xiao Bai asked him what flavor to serve. As Lai Nianfen told it to prepare the most delicious one, it confirmed it would do it right away and quickly sliced the grilled meat. The sparkling, vibrantly colored meat landed on the plate with seasonings floating around it. Xiao Bai used its knife skills, swiftly swiping its arms in front of it and slicing the seasonings. The meat was then beautifully plated along with the seasoning, and after it added a little more sauce and caviar to the Michelin-like standard charcoal grilled leopard, it was done. Luo Shiyu and Zhang Zhu closed their eyes as they savored the fragrance wafting around their noses. Luo Shiyu grabbed a slice with a chopstick and put it in her mouth. Her eyes quickly widened in surprise as soon as the meat entered her mouth. She was sweating as she chewed on the meat, and she complimented it, saying that after being grilled over a charcoal fire, the meat was already fragrant. On the other hand, Zhang Zhu grabbed one slice of meat using her chopsticks, aggressively biting at it, and one with her hand, and tears ran down her face as she said that the meat also became tastier as a result of being seasoned with various seasonings. On top of that, it was tender, crispy, fresh, and spicy. The perfect blend of flavors erupted in her mouth in an instant. The two ladies were overwhelmed by the deliciousness of the meat, and they were stuffing their mouths with it, throwing their etiquette out the window. Lai Nianfen looked at them with amusement as he told them that he didn't expect them to like the leopard meat so much that a whole platter of it was consumed. Holding a beautifully plated slice of meat in his hand, Lai Nianfen told them that it was the last piece of meat that he was supposed to keep for dinner, and then he offered them the plate and asked if either of them wanted it. Zhang Zhu and Luo Shiyu quickly glared at each other as if they were in a duel, as they fought over who would be the first to grab the grilled meat. The scenery changed, and both of them were naked with just a few fabrics on their bodies, surrounded by blooming flowers as they extended their arms and reached out to grab the flying grilled meat. The scenery returned to normal, and Zhang Zhu put the meat in her mouth using her hands, chewing it loudly, while Luo Shiyu trembled with anger in front of her, protesting that it was obvious that she was the one who noticed it first. Lai Nianfen suddenly interrupted them and asked about the purpose of their sudden appearance at his house that day. While Luo Shiyu was still grieving over the last meat, Zhang Zhu had already regained her composure. As she realized that she was so preoccupied with the meal that she had almost forgotten about their real business, she requested that Luo Shiyu tell Lai Nianfen their true identity. Upon hearing Zhang Zhu's words, Luo Shiyu came back to her senses, remembering what they had come for. She quickly bowed to her mother, confirming that she understood. With a serious face, Luo Shiyu sat properly and faced Lai Nianfen. With complete honesty, she told him that she was the eldest princess of the Qianlong Xian dynasty and she would like to make a special request, which was the purpose of their unexpected visit. Luo Shiyu closed her eyes and brought her clenched fist to her chest as she confessed to Lai Nianfen that she didn't mean to hide her identity. Zhang Zhu calmly sat down beside her while Luo Shiyu told Lai Nianfen not to be startled when she revealed her true identity, which ironically startled Lai Nianfen. He was nervous as he told Luo Shiyu that if it was too frightening, she didn't have to say it. Luo Shiyu looked earnestly at Lai Nianfen and told him that she was the princess of the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty, to which Lai Nianfen flinched and made a remark that she wasn't listening to him at all. Luo Shiyu continued to say that her father had recently ascended to the throne, but his kingship was unstable. They were in unspeakable misery because two powerful ministers were in charge, depicting the image that her father was in the palm of their hands. As she continued telling the story, Luo Shiyu recalled the time when her father reluctantly agreed, under force, to marry her off to the son of one of those traitors. She saw the face of her extremely troubled father while the minister walked away with an evil grin on his face. Her eyes filled with sorrow as she told Lai Nianfen that they wanted a moment of peace. Lai Nianfen stared at her with a blank expression, and Luo Shiyu was taken aback that he wasn't surprised in the least. She balled her hands into fists while gripping her skirt, thinking that Lai Nianfen was an expert in the wild, so he must have seen through everything. Still unfazed by her story, Lai Nianfen scratched his cheek as he thought that he understood but didn't quite understand as well. His face then turned serious, and he told them that although he was unfamiliar with their political system, there was one thing that was clear to him. He smirked and told them that what he heard was a plot from a drama. Luo Shiyu and Zhang Zhu were both stupefied as they didn't know which plot and drama Lai Nianfen was talking about. Meanwhile, Lai Nianfen snickered, and with an excited look on his face, he told them that he had seen many versions of that routine. Luo Shiyu and Zhang Zhu were extremely surprised to hear that Lai Nianfen had already seen various versions of dynasty changes. Luo Shiyu looked so overwhelmed by the great news that she bashfully bowed her head and said that it seemed that asking Lai Nianfen for help was the right choice, exclaiming that she was saved. Lai Nianfen watched as Luo Shiyu trembled, as if she was about to cry, while her mother tapped her on the shoulder to comfort her. Lai Nianfen looked at Luo Shiyu expectantly, and as he thought about how such a young girl like her must have felt wronged when her biological father arranged a marriage for her, he comforted Luo Shiyu, telling her not to panic and instructing her to tell him everything in detail. He pumped his fist in the air, and a glint of excitement appeared in his eyes as he told Luo Shiyu that he had prepared a variety of resources to help in her decision-making. Upon seeing his expression, Luo Shiyu wondered why Lai Nianfen looked excited. Luo Shiyu started to explain that the main forces in the immortal world were divided into the Celestial Dynasty and the Sect. The Celestial Dynasty was a dynasty ruled by cultivators. It was composed of immortal cultivation resources, and its soldiers were immortal cultivators who ruled over the human beings and also kept them safe from the wrath of monsters. While recalling her struggles with meditating to build her foundation while her parents cheered her on from behind, she said that the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty was one of the numerous immortal dynasties in the world and that it prioritized immortality above all else. Recalling how her parents studied earnestly, she told Lai Nianfen that most cultivators were simple-minded and not good at power skills, which resulted in the alliance of two powerful ministers and her father, the Holy King, who existed only in name. While her father, the king, sat on his throne, the two powerful ministers stood in front of him as if they were guarding him. But Luo Shiyu knew that the prime minister, Keozhang, was a haughty person, and although the national teacher's influence was slightly less than that of the prime minister, they had ulterior motives as well. Remembering their evil grins, Luo Shiyu told Lai Nianfen that the two of them colluded to do wicked things, and her father has tried to persuade them countless times but failed, so there was no other way in their current situation. Luo Shiyu stood up, raising her hands to her chest and clenching them into fists, as she asked Lai Nianfen to enlighten her. She inquired about what they should do about the situation. After finishing her story, Luo Shiyu sat back down beside Zhang Zhu, who asked Lai Nianfen if he had any ideas. Both of them looked at him expectantly while he placed his hands under his chin. As he thought out loud, he mentioned that their situation sounded like an outdated setting. Still keeping his hands under his chin, Lai Nianfen looked at both of them seriously and asked if they had heard of the 36 Stratagems, an ancient book on the art of war based on ancient Chinese military thoughts and war experience, and coordinating one stratagem with another. Luo Shiyu and Zhang Zhu were both surprised as they hadn't heard of it, so they asked to be enlightened. Upon learning that they hadn't heard of it, Lai Nianfen squinted his eyes at them and then smiled mischievously. He said that he would explain it to them for fun. Depicting an image of their dynasty, Lai Nianfen taught them the first stratagem, creating something out of nothing. He gave them an example, letting out some rumors saying that the selection of the national teacher's son as the concubine was entirely up to the national teacher. He further explained that their enemy's goal would be to make good friends with her father in order to gain access to the king's authority. He then instructed them to use another stratagem, alienation, and created two scenarios. One where Luo Shiyu and the prime minister's son blissfully conversed and fell in love with each other, and the other where Luo Shiyu turned away from the son of the national teacher, stating that it was the prime minister's son who disturbed her every day because his father was planning to ruin their marriage. Upon hearing her words, the national teacher's son would be surprised and call out their family for being so unethical. The national teacher's son would comfort Luo Shiyu, and he would be enraged, saying that he would tell his father right away as he was not going to let their love go to waste. Lai Nianfen sat there with an evil smile as he told Zhang Zhu and Luo Shiyu that by that time, the game had been set. While depicting a snapped rope, he told them that all that remained was for them to employ the final stratagem, stand by and watch. Lai Nianfen continued and told them that all they had to do was watch them quarrel, and they would benefit from the tussle while portraying an image of Luo Shiyu, turning her back and smirking at the two ministers. Zhang Zhu gritted her teeth and furrowed her brows as she thought about how good Lai Nianfen was, while Luo Shiyu looked astonished as she thought that although she didn't really grasp the scenarios, they seemed feasible. With a sleazy smile, Lai Nianfen thought that a few pages of The Three Kingdoms, a classical Chinese romance novel, were more than enough to solve their type of problem. While Lai Nianfen continued to smile sleazily and contemplate how it was the kind of plot the Transcendence should have, and how he loved it, Zhang Zhu nervously glowered at him as she wondered if it was the elegance of an expert. But Lai Nianfen's expression suddenly turned grim as he placed his hand under his chin, pondering a different routine that would have been more fun to use. All the while, Zhang Zhu was sweating profusely, and her face contorted in fear as she thought about how a casual tactic could cause a foul wind, a deluge of blood, and a reactive rain. She found it not just a brilliant trick, but its strength was unfathomable, which scared her and made her realize that she couldn't afford to have Lai Nianfen as a foe. As they continued to sit and talk near his pond, Lai Nianfen told them that it was their own business, so whether they could provoke their relationship would all depend on their tactics. Luo Shiyu was flabbergasted to hear that the plan would depend on her, but she quickly stood up and bowed to Lai Nianfen, saying that she understood and expressing her deep gratitude to him, stating that she would go all out, which startled him. Lai Nianfen awkwardly scratched his cheek as he modestly told them that they were too polite, and that he was glad he could be of help. The sun had started to set, and while walking, Luo Shiyu told her mother that there was one more thing she would like to tell her, and she hoped that she would not get angry after listening to it. They were now going back and traveling through the forest, and Zhang Zhu asked her what the matter was, to which Luo Shiyu confessed that she had given Lai Nianfen the coming-of-age gift that her father had given her. Luo Shiyu looked up to her mother earnestly as Zhang Zhu told her that she was being silly, and that she should not mention the heirloom jade pendant. It was not an exaggeration to give Lai Nianfen a much more precious gift. Zhang Zhu looked straight ahead seriously and told Luo Shiyu that, as a royal family, in order to obtain worthy help, that amount of energy and awareness was necessary. Luo Shiyu was extremely surprised when Zhang Zhu told her that since Lai Nianfen had helped them that time, they needed to go to the treasury and prepare a bigger gift after they returned. It would be a wonderful opportunity if he proved to be good. On the other hand, Lai Nianfen was lazily lying down on his lounger under an umbrella with Blackie beside him. As he raised the jade pendant in front of him, he remembered that it was the pendant that Luo Shiyu had given him last time. As he continued to raise and examine it, he said that he thought it was loot from a stall, and he did not expect that it was owned by the princess of a celestial dynasty. As he clenched the pendant in his hands and brought it close to his chest, he said that although it was a so-so thing, it was a token of gratitude from Luo Shiyu, which would still be considered a good fate benefit with the Qianlong dynasty, so he hopes that they will support him in the future. He suddenly stood up when he got the idea to reshape the pendant since he was also practicing carving. This made Blackie look at him and observe him. Blackie continued to look up at him. A few moments later, Blackie yawned and stretched as Lai Nianfen announced that he was done. He hung the jade pendant beside the entrance to his residence and stated that that is how it should look. Looking closer at the jade pendant, an intricate detail had been carved into it. The petals were gently carried away by the wind, fluttering through the air, showcasing the serenity at Lai Nianfen's residence. The tortoise he had purchased back in town peacefully rested on a rock in the middle of the pond. While it relaxed, 3 silhouettes observed it from a distance, and the piercing eyes of one even glinted. It was Lai Nianfen, his face twisted in anxiousness and anticipation as he observed the tortoise, unaware that he was grabbing the bush in front of him. Lai Nianfen trembled as he continued to observe the tortoise from afar, while Xiao Bai and Blackie observed behind him, both speechless. Suddenly, tears welled up in Lai Nianfen's eyes. He snarled at them and stated that it was normal for him to be scared of monsters, as he was not a cultivator. Therefore, there was nothing wrong with what he was doing. Both Xiao Bai and Blackie had a deadpan expression, realizing they hadn't said anything. Still observing the tortoise, Lai Nianfen mentioned that it had remained in the pond for several days, causing him to rejoice as it was safe to assume that there were no monsters in the pool. Feeling relieved, Lai Nianfen exclaimed that it was great. Blackie and Xiao Bai glanced at each other skeptically as he walked away, scratching his head and expressing uncertainty about where to move. As Xiao Bai and Blackie continued to stare at Lai Nianfen, who was walking away, the turtle in the pool started to become surrounded by strings of golden aura. Meanwhile, at the double sword peak of the 10,000 Sword sect, someone explained that there were 2 groups of cultivators in their world. The first was the Celestial Dynasty, and the second was the sect to which the 10,000 Sword sect belonged. Portraying a cultivator with white hair standing on top of the mountain, they stated that in the old days, when the ancestor of the Wizard of 10,000 Swords was practicing swords, he split Mount Kyong in half with just one slash, which changed the mountain's name to Double Sword Peak. The 10,000 Sword sect was established afterward, and as time passed and the seasons changed, the disciples' strength deteriorated from generation to generation. The person explaining stated that something had finally arrived. He squished his face between the palms of his hands, and horror filled his eyes as he exclaimed that the end had finally arrived. Packing up his belongings, he walked away from the sect building and said that he was still in his internship period, and was not yet a permanent employee, so he bid the sect master farewell and said that he was not going to be a part of such large things. Leaves fluttered in front of the sect master, and as he caught one with his fingers, he calmly permitted the person to leave as everyone else was leaving. Although he was smiling, sadness filled his eyes as he let go of the leaf and said that it was great. And then his expression suddenly changed when he glared at something that caught his attention. He was looking at the red sword impaled on the roof of the sect's building and said that he knew that it was the 10,000 Sword sect's ending. The sky darkened, lightning struck, and the sword emitted an ominous aura. Suddenly, a woman approached the sect master from behind and called him senior brother. Worry filled her eyes as she told the sect master that some disciples were reluctant to leave, claiming that they wanted to fight till the end, so she couldn't bring herself to drive them away. The sect master calmly closed his eyes and told her not to make unnecessary sacrifices. While the sect master told her that the sword demon provoked them by putting a sword on their dome, the ominous aura emitted by the sword became so intense that parts of the roof started to break. Despair filled his eyes as he said that he couldn't pull the sword out because he couldn't even get near it. He recalled the chaotic scene from 3 years ago when a purple light fell from the sky, emitting such a tremendous ominous aura. It was a sword demon who appeared out of the blue. Surrounded by crows and holding a broken sword, he challenged the World Sword sect alone, which was undefeated at the time. The slashed bodies of women and children lay on the ground. The World Sword sect was defeated, and their entire family was killed by the sword demon, who mercilessly slashed anyone in his path. Looking at his hands, the sect master said that no one in the world could draw the sword demon's sword, so he couldn't compare with him. Still having his back to the woman, the sect master told her that she should leave too and let him bear the sword demon alone. As she stood under the tree with a clear blue sky above her, the sect master told her that he would be grateful enough if she would be willing to stay as a widow for 10 years, and she responded and told him that he wouldn't do such a thing. Suddenly, Bai Liuswang called her father and announced her arrival with Luo Hao and Qin Zhu. Recalling the scene that she saw, she told her father that she noticed their fellow disciple escaping on their way back, so she knew that something must have happened. Bai Liuswang was about to say something, but she was surprised and unable to finish her sentence. Her father attacked them with huge golden slashes of aura, which they managed to dodge by sidestepping. Confusion filled her eyes as she asked her father what he was doing. Anger filled his eyes as he told them that they shouldn't have come back. He closed his eyes and yelled with all his might, telling them to leave. He was trembling as he raised his finger, which was emitting an aura on its tips, and with a gloomy expression, he told them that if they didn't leave, he would make them leave. Bai Liuswang called out to her father with her eyes filled with concern, and on the other hand, Luo Hao was trying to convince the sect master to listen to him. While Bai Liuswang was carrying the scroll beside him, Luo Hao told the sect master that God must have blessed them as they got a treasure on their trip, which might help them get through their current situation. The sect master was surprised when he heard about the treasure, and Luo Hao quickly gestured at the scroll that Bai Liuswang had, saying that the painting was the treasure. Luo Hao placed his hand under his chin as he recalled Lai Nianfen feeding Blackie and told his master that they met an expert on their trip who raised a dog that could kill a big demon in one move. Recalling the devices in Lin Nianfen's house, Luo Hao said that there was a square box that continuously emitted spiritual energy and that his daily drinking water and tea used spiritual energy. With Luo Hao and Qin Ju behind her, Bai Liuswang extended her arms and offered the scroll she was holding to her father. Terror filled his eyes as the sect master pointed at the scroll and asked them if they had been cheated by the door-to-door salesman. His veins popped out as he reprimanded them for being still too young and believing bullshit from unknown people. But Bai Liuswang tried to convince him that what she was holding was a treasure, and she even told him to have a look. But her father did not listen to her and grabbed the scroll out of her hands. The three of them were startled as the sect master threw the scroll in the air, lecturing them for thinking that a broken painting could turn the tide when a disaster was just around the corner. The sect master drew out his sword and emitted an aura from his fingertips, telling them that as their master, he would give them the final lesson to keep them awake. As the scroll fell down, it started to unravel itself, and the sect master lunged at it with his sword to destroy it. Luo Hao and Bai Liuswang tried to stop him, but his aura was so strong that all they could do was scream their protest. The sect master continued to attack when suddenly, a finger stopped his sword effortlessly by touching the tip of it. The man was wearing a hat, and he seemed to be the swordsman from the painting who had come out of it. The swordsman just stood there and said nothing. The sect master was so surprised at his appearance that he asked him who he was, which made the swordsman open his mouth, but no sound came out. Suddenly, a huge amount of aura surged from the double sword peak mountain and pierced the sky. The ground shook, and the disciples who were running away almost stumbled on the ground, not knowing what was going on. One of the disciples' faces was filled with horror as he thought that the sword demon could have arrived a day earlier, but his fear turned to confusion when the other disciple told him that he was wrong. Looking back at the double sword peak mountain, the other disciple told him that it was not the sword demon, it was their master who had a breakthrough. Someone mentioned that the cultivation realm from low to high is divided into Kai practicing, building base, savor, yin yang, ob, out-of-body experience, distraction, merging, God's test, and Mahayana, and once they reached the realm of yin yang, they could hardly call themselves a strong person. It was Luo Hao, and while he remarked that their master only gave the painting a quick glance and he was able to advance from yin yang to ob, Bai Liuswang worried about her father. Meanwhile, their master looked at peace as he cultivated and released a small amount of his aura at the tip of his fingers. He released his powerful aura that surged through the area and created a strong gust of wind. Qin Ju noted that thank goodness their master's strength increased drastically and that even if they had to confront the sword demon the next day, they should be able to prevail, while Luo Hao remained speechless. Their master seemed to be deep in thought, and suddenly he noticed something. A roof was destroyed when a red sword plunged into it, and as something quickly moved away from that roof, Bai Liuswang saw it and asked if it was the sword demon. Bai Liuswang was right that it was the sword demon, and as he showed himself, he inquired if it was a sudden breakthrough and added that it was his first time seeing it. As the sword demon looked down on them with a menacing smile on his face and commented that it was interesting, Bai Liuswang grew worried, and she couldn't believe that it was the sword demon. The sword demon suddenly released his powerful aura and called the master of the 10,000 sword sect, Bai Wuchen. He asked to confirm if he was Bai Wuchen and remarked that he would keep that in mind. Luo Hao was astonished when he realized that it was the sword demon, while Bai Liuswang asked the sword demon why he was there when they agreed to fight the next day. When he heard Bai Liuswang's question, the sword demon nonchalantly explained that it was because he saw someone break through, so he was curious and couldn't help but come earlier. He observed that the curiosity of a kid is strong, as his real age is 3 years old, and since he had come, he and Bai Wuchen should begin the fight earlier. Bai Wuchen was alarmed when he heard what the sword demon stated, but his expression didn't show it. The sword demon smiled sinisterly, and he noted that he could see Bai Wuchen was well prepared. Bai Wuchen grew worried, and he remained speechless as he looked up at the sword demon. As the sword demon demanded that Bai Wuchen should prepare to die, Bai Wuchen's wife asked him if there was a chance of winning, while Qin Ju and the other disciples worried about him. Bai Wuchen did not answer the question and simply wielded his sword, which made Bai Liuswang worry, so she called him, and in response, Bai Wuchen responded that he would drag the sword demon, so all of them should leave immediately. Bai Liuswang and her mother were surprised, and she tried to stop Bai Wuchen as she called out to him, but he had already charged towards the sword demon, and the sword demon did the same, and with a crazy look in his eyes, he exclaimed that he and Bai Wuchen should have a real fight. The sword demon suddenly appeared in front of Bai Wuchen and asked him if it was his speed limit. He swung his sword, and Bai Wuchen managed to dodge it. But Bai Wuchen was surprised when the sword demon started to disappear, and he inquired if it was an illusion. Suddenly, the real sword demon appeared behind Bai Wuchen, and Bai Wuchen was astonished. Bai Wuchen blocked the sword demon's attack using his sword. The sword demon mocked Bai Wuchen and commented that he had great arm strength, and that he was curious how long he could withstand it. The two of them exchanged multiple blows until one of them crashed into the ground. The sword demon hovered over the ground where the crash happened, and his sword was filled with blood. It was Bai Wuchen who crashed, and he was lying on the ground in his own pool of blood. The sword demon was disappointed, and as he questioned if that was it for the breakthrough, he mentioned that he was excited for nothing. Bai Luoswang was worried for her father, and while Luo Hao pointed out that the power gap was too big and that even if Bai Wuchen broke through to Ob, he was powerless against the sword demon's 10 tricks. The sword demon boasted that it was awesome that his sword domain was truly invincible because the 10,000 sword sect was a powerful name, but it merely turned out to be so-so. While the sword demon was celebrating in the air and proclaimed that he was too awesome, Bai Wuchen's wife grieved for him, and Bai Wuchen lamented that it was a pity because if the sword demon had given him 2 more days to comprehend the picture scroll, he would have been able to protect the 10,000 swords immortal sect. Bai Wuchen added that all he could do at the moment was ask his wife to die along with him, and it was such a pity because he just needed a little more, and the sword demon grew curious when he heard what Bai Wuchen mentioned. The sword demon pushed Bai Wuchen's wife away while he grabbed Bai Wuchen by the collar, and as he mocked that the old man shouldn't just die yet, he asked him how he claimed that it was just a little more when he code him in seconds and if he didn't count it. Bai Wuchen coughed, and he pointed out that although the sword demon's sword awareness was strong, compared with the painter of the painting, it was just like a speck of dust. The sword demon grew curious about the painting, and as he grabbed it, he quickly turned around to look at it, and he remained speechless. He slammed the painting on the ground in a fit of rage, and he yelled that it was fake. The sword demon destroyed the painting by plunging his sword into it multiple times. He was in tears, and he claimed that it must be fake because there was no way anyone in the world could draw such sword awareness. The sword demon was crestfallen, and it seemed like there was a huge weight on his head. His expression suddenly turned dark, and as he released his menacing aura, he demanded that they bring him to see that person. The sword demon grew sinister as he declared that he wanted to kill that person. Qinju stepped forward and offered to bring the sword demon, but Luo Hao stopped him and refused, stating it was the doom of the 10,000 swords immortal sect, so he couldn't get Lai Nianfen involved. But suddenly, someone offered to bring the sword demon to Lai Nianfen, and the sword demon was amused. It was Bai Luoswang, and she proposed that the sword demon had to promise her to spare all of the sect's disciples and her father and mother in return. The sword demon snickered and refused, but he offered to at most promise to kill the painter of the painting first, and he would return and kill the rest of them. Bai Luoswang trembled, but she still agreed. Luo Hao called Bai Luoswang and warned her that if they angered Lai Nianfen, he was afraid that a bigger problem would emerge, but Bai Luoswang asked Luo Hao if he had any better ideas. Luo Hao remained speechless, and Bai Luoswang insisted that it was the one and only chance they had, so they should stay there as she would take the sword demon by herself. Luo Hao and Qinju were both dejected, while Bai Luoswang declared that even if Lai Nianfen blames them, it is entirely her responsibility, so she will dedicate herself to him and she will not involve the 10,000 swords immortal sect. On the other hand, Bai Wuchen was still bleeding on the ground, but he told his wife not to mind his little wounds and that they would go because he wanted to meet the expert too, and the sword demon was speechless when he witnessed that. Meanwhile, Bai Luoswang promised that she would be right back, and she used her skill, Subdue Ghost. As Bai Luoswang moved forward, the sword demon chased her, and as he demanded that she wait for him, she responded that he should wait till he saw the painter of the painting. He would know what the meaning of "there is always someone better" was. The sword demon smirked that he was looking forward to it, but he appeared worried, and he mused that, having said that, he had to think what his chances of winning were if he confronted the painter. He commented that although the sword's awareness of that painting was strong, he suspected the painter used up all his energy on that work, so he was sure he could kill him if he used that to his advantage. A few moments later, they landed on the ground, and as they stood in front of Lai Nianfen's home, Bai Luoswang announced that they had arrived. Suddenly, Bai Wuchen and his wife arrived, which surprised Bai Luoswang, and she inquired why they were there. The three of them hugged each other, and as Bai Luoswang's mother remarked that the three of them would bear the consequences whatever the outcome was, the sword demon exclaimed that it was disgusting, and that he would send them all to hell soon. The sword demon directed his attention to Lai Nianfen's home, and as he noted that seeing the broken house made him feel relieved because he couldn't detect even the slightest shift in spiritual energy, he boasted that the painter must be a human being by chance, and he confidently declared that the sword demon had arrived. A strong gust of wind blew the tree branches and made the birds fly away as the sword demon yelled and demanded that Lai Nianfen come out and greet him with a kneeling position. The sword demon was baffled when there was no answer. Bai Luoswang's mother asked her why no one was responding, and everyone was stunned when Bai Luoswang suggested that it could be that Lai Nianfen was not at home. Bai Wuchen's wound squirted out blood as he asked if they were screwed, which startled his wife, and she requested that he calm down. On the other hand, the sword demon clicked his tongue, and as he inquired what he meant by saying that Lai Nianfen was not at home, he bragged that Lai Nianfen must have become terrified and fled when he sensed the presence of his sword's awareness. The sword demon released his powerful, sinister aura and declared that just in case, he must leave no chance for revival, so he would destroy Lai Nianfen's land and kill his Naominan. Bai Luoswang tried to stop the sword demon and shouted no, but he had already charged forward. The sword demon jumped into the air and proclaimed that what he wanted had always been at his fingertips, and there was nothing like can or cannot. He swung his sword powerfully while having a menacing smile on his face. But Lai Nianfen's home was protected by a huge barrier, and it blocked the sword demon's attack, creating a huge explosion. As the smoke from the explosion dissipated, the sword demon saw that Lai Nianfen's home was unharmed, and he was puzzled. The sword demon asked if it was enchantment, and he stated that it should not be like that. Suddenly, he noticed a red, fiery feather fly past him. The sword demon looked behind him, and he was alarmed when he saw that there was a phoenix. The sword demon was startled, and he asked why a phoenix was there. The phoenix ferociously charged towards the sword demon, and he complained that the 3 rookie immortal cultivators made a fool out of him. The sword demon's hair came undone while he released his aura and gave it his all, and he declared that it was enough because he is the eternal magic sword and he would rather be killed than humiliated. He jumped over the phoenix and vowed that he would fight to the death even if it's a phoenix. The sword demon's veins popped out as he used all his force, and he shouted that the phoenix should drop dead while the phoenix began to gather its aura on its beak. The phoenix fired the aura it gathered towards the sword demon and hit him head on. A soft breeze blew against the flowers, and the jade pendant hanging in front of Lai Nianfen's door swayed with the wind. Everything was serene, and it was as if nothing happened in the area. On the other hand, Bai Luoswang and her family hid behind a tree trunk, and as Bai Luoswang called her father, she mentioned the sword demon. The 3 of them were astonished as they wondered if the sword demon was gone. Bai Wuchen was surprised that his eyes rolled back and tears welled up at the corners of his eyes as he exclaimed that there was a peerless expert. He added that the mighty sword demon slaughtered thousands of people, but he didn't even get a glimpse of the opponent's face and got killed by the jade pendant. Bai Wuchen cried as he remarked that there is always someone who is better than them, and people who do bad things get bad ends. His wife responded that it was good that the sword demon was gone. But they destroyed the photo scroll, so she inquired what they should do if Lai Nianfen gets upset. And Bai Wuchen replied that rather than the picture scroll, it was even worse if it attracts the sword demon. Bai Wuchen commented that fortunately, the sword demon is gone and they saved the 10,000 sword immortal sect, so if he has to make a sacrifice, he has no regrets, so they should let him bear those consequences by himself. Suddenly, Bai Luoswang bashfully called her mother and father and suggested that she had a daring idea. Bai Luoswang proposed that since Lai Nianfen was not back yet, they should run away, and that made Bai Wuchen and his wife speechless. Bai Wuchen and his wife were astonished when they finally processed what Bai Luoswang stated. He called his wife and Bai Luoswang and urged that they should go because they should go back first, and they will visit the expert again once they prepare the gratitude gift. Bai Luoswang suddenly asked that they should wait and let her take the demon sword with her. But she was surprised when Bai Wuchen stopped her and insisted no, that she couldn't touch the sword. Bai Wuchen explained that the fallen sword itself is a demon sword, and although it could significantly increase the user's strength, the price would be the mind's destruction and transformation into a monster who only knows how to kill. He continued that since the sword demon was killed by an expert, that equipment should also be picked up by the expert. As the 3 of them flew away, Bai Wuchen reminded that Bai Luoswang should avoid the habit of picking up everything she sees, to which she agreed. The sword demon was left there, stuck in the middle of the road, underneath the blossoming tree, when someone suddenly approached it. It was Lai Nianfen, and he got curious when he saw the sword. He immediately called around and asked if anyone dropped the sword. But no one answered, so he inquired if no one wanted it and grabbed the sword. The aura on the sword activated, and as Lai Nianfen took a closer look at it, he commented that it looked like something. He slashed the tree branch near him and observed that it looked very sharp, so in the future, he will use it to chop wood. As Lai Nianfen was about to enter his home, Blackie barked, and he reassured that nothing would happen. But Blackie kept barking at the sword, so Lai Nianfen explained that it was just a sword that nobody wanted, but if the owner comes to ask for it back, he will return it to him. Lai Nianfen sighed that Blackie really worries a lot, but he was cut off when the sword began releasing its aura. The dark aura shrouded the sword, and Lai Nianfen was surprised when he noticed it. Lai Nianfen looked excited as he raised the sword up and exclaimed that it became hot suddenly and he couldn't believe that it could self-heat, which was amazing. Suddenly, a skeletal figure, which seemed to be the sword demon, emerged from the dark aura, and it snickered while it stared at Lai Nianfen. The sword demon began seducing Lai Nianfen, and he tempted him if he craved strength, wanted to be invincible, as well as stand on top of the world. He held Lai Nianfen's hand and asked if he longed for endless wealth and if he wanted to sit on the world's beauties. The sword demon continued to enchant Lai Nianfen, and he queried if he wanted revenge on those who looked down on them and stepped on their feet. Lai Nianfen was alarmed, and he quickly looked behind him, but his expression turned back to being clueless again. And while he wondered if the sound he heard was mosquitoes, the sword demon remarked that it was such 3 deadly offers, but Lai Nianfen was not moved at all, so he wondered if Lai Nianfen was a lying flat salted fish. A few moments later, the sword demon was placed in a room along with the woods Lai Nianfen collected. The sword demon was speechless when Lai Nianfen walked away looking so content, and muttered that Xiao Bai mentioned that he would be lucky that day, and he couldn't believe that it was true. The room was filled with silence, and the sword demon called out for Lai Nianfen. He inquired if he was there, and he was met with silence. Tears began to well up at the corners of the sword demon's eyes, and he groaned that it was such a humiliation. But he came out of the sword once again, and with an evil grin on his face, he boasted that he was a majestic magic sword. The sword demon was proud as he proclaimed that there was no way that minor setback could affect him. His eyes glimmered as he smiled sinisterly, and he murmured that Lai Nianfen was an ignorant human being who dared to be so disrespectful to him, so he would make him feel the real beating. The sword demon looked at the other end of the room and noted that Lai Nianfen and Blackie just walked out of that door. He dug his feet for driving force as he agreed, and as he repeated, he charged forward and demanded that Lai Nianfen should repent for his ignorance. The sword demon moved at an extreme speed towards the door, but he was alarmed when he noticed something behind him, and before he could react, something hit him and his body shattered. The sword demon completely disappeared from the room. Meanwhile, the sword was just perfectly still, leaning on the wall beside the gathered woods. Suddenly, the sword demon appeared again, and he inquired what the situation was. He was nervous as he looked to his side and inquired what just hit him. The sword demon was surprised when he saw the brush hanging on the wall, but he denied it, saying no, that it was not right, because it was not an ordinary brush, as it was a brush to write the ending line. Staring intently at the brush, the sword demon asked how such a high-class magical item could be in a human being's house. The sword demon gave it some thought, but he decided to not mind it and commented that maybe it was just a coincidence and all he has to do is go over the brush. He planned a different route to walk by the wall opposite to the brush, and he calculated that he could still go to the door using that way. The sword demon quickly jumped over the cabinet and began to tiptoe, but he was hit by a powerful force again, and as he shattered, he exclaimed that even the cabinet was a magical item. The sword demon appeared again from where he started, and he was dejected. He began crawling forward and mumbled that he was a professional demon and a high-class treasure. The sword demon insisted that he wouldn't believe that he couldn't get out of that door, but he was alarmed when he noticed another powerful force coming at him again. But the sword demon managed to dodge the attack that time. He stuck out his tongue and proudly announced that he was a majestic magic sword, so there was no way he could fall down 3 times in the same spot. But he noticed something behind him. The sword demon was shattered by a powerful force again, and he questioned what it was that time. Tears began dripping out of the sword demon's eyes as he began to sob. The sword demon appeared once again from where he started, and he was worn out as he wondered what that place was because he was the lowest level in the entire field. The sword demon began to tiptoe again, and he was dejected as he asked if he would get the chance to escape from there. He charged forward and declared that it was still his world while laughing sinisterly with a horrifying look on his face. But suddenly, some sort of golden liquid emerged from the floor around his feet, and the sword demon was astonished when he noticed it. The liquid turned into a tentacle-like substance, and it quickly wrapped itself around the sword demon, and as it restrained and raised him up in the air, the sword demon couldn't help but ask what that situation was. Someone suddenly began sweeping the floor, which turned it into a grassland. It was a young monk, and as the entire area filled with grass and flowers, the sword demon was surprised when the young monk addressed him as his donor and requested that he wait. The sword demon inquired where the monk came from, but the monk ignored his question and replied that the sword demon's demon character was too heavy, so he suggested that he put down his grievances and convert to Buddhism. The sword demon looked uncomfortable as he inquired who he was, and with a bright smile on his face, the monk showed him a book and explained that he was Lankavatara Sutra. The sword demon exclaimed that he didn't know those 2 words, and the Lankavatara Sutra clarified that it was Lankai. The sword demon was enraged, and as he released his dark aura, he broke the restraints and roared that he was fine with brush and the cabinet, but even a shattered book wanted to make a fool out of him, so he would teach him. Lankai was startled when the sword demon suddenly charged towards him while he used his skill, Demon Blood Claw, and insisted that there was no point in studying for the little monk. But the sword demon was taken by surprise when he was suddenly met with a powerful force and was pushed away. Lankai got worried for the sword demon and urged him to take it easy, but the sword demon's eyes popped out of their sockets as he was surprised by what he saw. Lankai was surrounded by a lot of talismans, and he had an innocent smile on his face as he assured him that he had no bad intentions and repeatedly requested that the sword demon calm down. The sword demon was about to ask Lankai what he was, but he got hit by a powerful force across his face. He got hit by 6 more powerful forces, and some of them he managed to dodge while others he didn't. The sword demon was blown away, and he crashed onto the grassy plains when he was hit by the 7th strike. As the sword demon dramatically fell on his back, he complained that it was too much, and that Lankai claimed that he had no bad intentions, but was still beating him. Lankai explained that it was all to calm down the sword demon, and the sword demon lost his energy and was defeated. The sword demon was taken by surprise when Lankai's expression suddenly turned dark as Lankai asked him if he could think about converting properly, because if he converted immediately, many benefits awaited him. Lankai suggested that the sword demon think about it and pleaded, and the sword demon, who was filled with injuries, was taken aback. The sword demon yelled and inquired what on earth that dreadful place was, and his voice echoed through the entire house. On the other hand, Lai Nianfen was watering the flowers in his garden, and he was happy. He was humming while he watered his plants when suddenly there was a rustling sound behind him. Lai Nianfen noticed the sound, and when he turned to take a look at the direction where it was coming from, he saw a huge figure hiding in the bushes. As he took a closer look, he saw that it was the tortoise. While the tortoise moved slowly towards the pond, Lai Nianfen was amazed, and he observed that the tortoise had grown so strong in just 2 weeks that he, as the old father, was gratified. But Lai Nianfen noticed that something was not right because it was too fast, and as he thought about it, he recalled that the fish stall owner gave him a very precious species. While the tortoise swam in the pond, Lai Nianfen happily ran away and resolved to thank the fisherman properly. Meanwhile, in the depths of the pond, a huge golden fish was swimming underneath the tortoise. A few moments later, the fisherman was grunting and comfortably sleeping in his stall when someone suddenly called him. It was Lai Nianfen. The fisherman was surprised when he saw Lai Nianfen, and as he jerked up from his seat, Lai Nianfen greeted him good afternoon and informed him that he had come to buy some fish to eat. Lai Nianfen commented that the tortoise the fisherman gave him last time was good because it had only been 2 weeks and it was nearly as tall as he was, which made the fisherman laugh, and he remarked that Lai Nianfen was exaggerating because there was no way it could grow so big. But the fisherman excitedly boasted that his fish was better than the tortoise because, in order to eat his fish, the Celestial Dynasty's grandson would fight to get it, and it only happened the other day. The fisherman recalled that Luo Shiyu came shopping, and both the son of the Imperial Preceptor and the Grand Chancellor were fighting while they followed her. The son of the Grand Chancellor demanded that the son of the Imperial Preceptor stay away from his fiancée, but the son of the Imperial Preceptor retorted that Luo Shiyu does not like fat pigs like him. He mentioned that when Luo Shiyu passed by, she stated that she enjoys eating fish, and that she suddenly remembered that her father always grilled fish for her mother. A few moments later, Lai Nianfen was done with his business with the fishman, and as the fishman requested that he come again next time, he thanked the fishman. On the other hand, in a gloomy part of town, there were crows flying over a residence, and a lot of paper money was scattered in the air. The skies were dark, and as someone urged everyone to move away, Lai Nianfen got annoyed as the people crowded around him, and as he warned them to be careful of his fish, he inquired why there were so many people on the street that day. Suddenly, Lai Nianfen noticed the paper money floating in the air. He wondered if there was a funeral in town that day. Lai Nianfen noticed the girls carrying poles of paper strips walking through the streets in line. Paper that was carefully crafted and designed filled the street while the paper money continued to float in the air. Seeing the funeral ceremony taking place, Lai Nianfen murmured that Madame Tan was being carried in a coffin to the cemetery. Paper money was thrown in the air and a slightly open coffin lay on the ground. One of the bystanders remarked that Madame Chen is a very kind person. Another commented that she was a poor child because once they say it was gone, it was gone. They expressed that it was pitiful because instead of a wedding, they came home for a funeral. Lai Nianfen was surprised when he heard that the funeral was for Madame Chen. He inquired if everything wasn't fine when Madame Chen went into town a few days ago and why there was a funeral happening. One of them recognized Lai Nianfen, and as she questioned how he didn't know about it when it happened only a few moments ago, she explained that Madame Chen's labor was critical, and even the best midwife doctor couldn't save her, adding that a person who dies with a kid in her womb will transform into a malicious ghost. Lai Nianfen wondered how it happened, and he mentioned that Madame Chen was kind, and she was covered in a coffin before even her boy became cold, which was a pity. The bystanders suddenly warned that Madame Chen was out, so they should be careful to avoid her. The attendants announced that they were sending Madame Chen and their young master out of the house. Lai Nianfen noted that Madame Chen was gone, so he feared that those homeless children would go hungry again in the future, and alas, he believed that Madame Chen was the only one who could get everyone in town to come to see them off. Suddenly, Blackie started barking at Madame Chen. Lai Nianfen instructed Blackie to be quiet and questioned how he could bark loudly in that situation. But Blackie continued to bark, and Lai Nianfen was surprised as he asked Blackie if he was telling him something about Madame Chen. Lai Nianfen suddenly requested the attendants to stop and insisted they shouldn't cover the coffin yet. The butler recognized Lai Nianfen. Lai Nianfen explained that they shouldn't cover the coffin yet because Madame Chen was not dead yet. The butler was surprised when he heard what Lai Nianfen conveyed, and he inquired how Lai Nianfen knew. Lai Nianfen revealed that his dog told him that, and the butler asked if he was fooling him. The butler pointed out that the Chen residents had no grievances with Lai Nianfen, so he requested that he not make light of Madame Chen's funeral at that time. But before he could finish his sentence, Lai Nianfen disappeared, and he asked where Lai Nianfen went. Lai Nianfen urged the butler to let him check and see because Madame Chen may still be alive while the butler fainted. He explained that it was a feigning death phenomenon. Lai Nianfen clarified that it was also known as a fake death phenomenon in medical studies, and in most cases, it is difficult to detect the pulse and respiration of a fake death state, and one could only distinguish it by pressing the eyeball and observing the rebound state, and because of that, those people were not able to distinguish it and were covering the coffin. He summarized that Madame Chen is not dead yet. Lai Nianfen offered to save Madame Chen, but the people suggested they should beat him up. One of them demanded that Lai Nianfen shouldn't touch Madame Chen's corpse, and another instructed Lai Nianfen to stay away from her corpse. Suddenly, Chen Yuanhui intervened and requested that the butler wait, and he asked if his wife could really be saved. Lai Nianfen assured him and requested that Chen Yuanhui let him try. Chen Yuanhui paused for a moment, and he agreed. A few moments later, the people were surprised, and one of them questioned if Lai Nianfen wanted to save a dead person and stated they had never heard of something like that before. Another remarked that Lai Nianfen was acting rash. Another commented that Lai Nianfen was disrespectful to Madame Chen's corpse and questioned how Chen Yuanhui could forgive him. Another noted that Lai Nianfen was going to get into trouble. Meanwhile, Lai Nianfen prepared his medical tools and wore his gloves. Lai Nianfen had prepared himself for an operation. One of the people inquired where those things came from. One of the funeral participants asked the midwife if she had seen it before, and the midwife confirmed that if she was not mistaken, those things were taken out of Lai Nianfen's pocket. The funeral participant paid attention to Lai Nianfen's pocket. Lai Nianfen suddenly pulled out an operating light, and the people asked if something that big could fit in a pocket and what the hell that thing was. Lai Nianfen expressed gratitude, saying thank goodness he had learned something before the trashy system ran away. He acknowledged that the system had taught him modern medical studies for the past 5 years, so he will forgive the trashy system in the meantime. One of the attendants admired Lai Nianfen, and Chen Yuanhui speculated that maybe Lai Nianfen could really save Madame Chen and the young master, so they needed to believe in him. Meanwhile, Lai Nianfen reassured everyone that it was okay, so they shouldn't panic because it was nearly similar to the last time he assisted the mountain monkeys in giving birth. Lai Nianfen expressed confidence and began slicing Madame Chen. Chen Yuanhui was horrified by what he saw, and he questioned if he had made an irreversible decision. Suddenly, Lai Nianfen called the midwife and requested that she come and help him, which startled her. Lai Nianfen informed her that he was going to perform a cesarean section to extract the baby, and the midwife was horrified as she imagined an overly bloody scene in her head. He explained that the midwife could help him cut the umbilical cord and asked if she knew how to do it. The midwife stuttered and admitted she didn't know if she knew how to do it. Lai Nianfen assured her it was just like the cutting she usually does, so the midwife complied. The midwife declared that the child was truly still alive. She marveled at how the child could really be saved, and Lai Nianfen laughed as he affirmed and requested that she hold the child properly. The midwife asked about the needle Lai Nianfen was holding, and Lai Nianfen explained that the baby needed to be jolted away immediately. Lai Nianfen dramatically swung his arms while holding the needle. He poked the top of the baby's head. The baby began wailing. Chen Yuanhui was in tears, and he rejoiced that his son was alive. He thanked Lai Nianfen repeatedly. One of the people asked if the child could be alive in such a way. Another praised him as really amazing. Another remarked that he was indeed awesome, which flustered Lai Nianfen. Suddenly, Lai Nianfen asked the attendants what they were doing while he wasn't looking. One of the men explained that Madame Chen gave up her life to give birth to a newborn young master, and another said they couldn't stand having her body exposed in that way. Lai Nianfen pointed out that she was not dead, and as one of the men asked if she was still alive even with her belly open like that, Lai Nianfen reiterated that she was not dead. A few moments later, Lai Nianfen stitched the cut on Madame Chen's belly, and she began breathing. The attendants exclaimed that Madame Chen really came to life. Lai Nianfen stated that everything is already good, so they should take their madam back and give her a good rest. And as he remarked that Madame Chen almost died in the hands of the attendants repeatedly acknowledged that Lai Nianfen's lesson was right. Lai Nianfen pointed out that they mentioned something ominous and that their superstition almost killed their madam. He added, however, that it is good the matter has been resolved, so they shouldn't be so dumb in the future. One of the people remarked that Lai Nianfen was amazing, and as another agreed, Lai Nianfen responded that they were exaggerating because it was nothing. One of the people noted that Lai Nianfen was too humble, and another one agreed. Meanwhile, the Saintess of Lingyan Immortal Pavilion, Lin Qingyan, was observing the scene from a distance. Lin Qingyan was amused and commented that it was interesting. She explained that when Lin Qingyan first started lifting the coffin, she accused Lai Nianfen of being a liar. Lin Qingyan remarked that she didn't think Lai Nianfen would be able to save the dead and asked how he did it. She mentioned that although there is an exception for the 9 transformations of the soul and rejuvenation, however, the immortal level elixir is required for the cultivation of the transcendence era. And even if the 2 conditions are met, a 10% likelihood is unlikely as it all comes down to fate in the end. Lin Qingyan commented that it was very interesting and that she knew that it was the reason why Liu Shiyu refused the help of the Lingyan Immortal Pavilion. She remarked that the Qianlong Immortal Dynasty is hiding a big treasure. Liu Shiyu denied knowing Lai Nianfen, but Lin Qingyan stated that it was enough and she shouldn't pretend because she had a tender look in her eyes when she looked at Lai Nianfen. Lin Qingyan urged Liu Shiyu to tell her the truth about who exactly is Lai Nianfen. Lin Qingyan stated 1 month ago, Liu Shiyu claimed the Prime Minister and the national teacher threatened more and requested assistance from the Lingyan Immortal Pavilion. She mentioned after she arrived, she discovered that it was not those people threatening Liu Shiyu. Lin Qingyan observed that Liu Shiyu was clearly messing with the sons of the national teacher and the Prime Minister. She remarked that Liu Shiyu and her father had never schemed and couldn't hide anything, and earlier, with the way she looked at Lai Nianfen, she could guess that he was the expert who assisted Liu Shiyu. Liu Shiyu repeatedly denied it. Lin Qingyan inquired if Lai Nianfen was not the expert that the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty wanted to monopolize and remarked that she shouldn't pretend because he already knew. However, Liu Shiyu suddenly insisted she didn't like Lai Nianfen. Liu Shiyu swiftly ran away. Lin Qingyan was left astonished when she heard what Liu Shiyu stated. but she understood that they were discussing the hidden expert. Lin Qingyan became intrigued, and she commented that it was interesting, so she needed to know what kind of person Lai Nianfen was. On the other hand, Lai Nianfen sneezed. Lai Nianfen mentioned they were talking about him rescuing Madame Chen again, and Chen Yuanwei was too polite and insisted on giving him all those foods. He noted that he did not save Madame Chen for everyone's adoration and gratitude, so it was embarrassing. But Blackie observed that Lai Nianfen was clearly happy. Suddenly, Auntie Zhang called Lai Nianfen. Lai Nianfen immediately recognized Auntie Zhang and Nanan. Auntie Zhang unexpectedly requested that Lai Nianfen save Nanan, and Lai Nianfen was surprised. She explained that Nanan had been kidnapped by the monster last time, and her body returned, but her soul had not. Auntie Zhang remarked that Lai Nianfen could even save the dead, so she pleaded for him to save Nanan as well. Lai Nianfen asked to confirm if Nanan's soul had not returned. He waved his hands in front of Nanan and immediately understood what it was. Lai Nianfen concluded that it was post-traumatic stress disorder, and Auntie Zhang was left speechless. He apologized to Auntie Zhang. Lai Nianfen admitted he couldn't save Nanan, and Auntie Zhang questioned why. He explained that it was because he had not studied clinical psychology. Auntie Zhang asked Lai Nianfen what it was. Lai Nianfen stated that if he had a solution, he would tell Auntie Zhang immediately, and Auntie Zhang apologized for the trouble. Auntie Zhang ushered Nanan and remarked that they should go home. Lai Nianfen apologized to Auntie Zhang in his mind and admitted he couldn't help them. He reflected that in the end, he was still a useless human being, as he couldn't help everyone. Lai Nianfen acknowledged it would have been great if he were an immortal cultivator like Bai Luoswang and the others. He mentioned that if he had the chance, he would ask Bai Luoswang and the others if they had a solution because they were immortal cultivators and must have a better solution than he did. Meanwhile, Lin Qingyan was spying on Lai Nianfen. She remarked that she had tracked him well, and in the meantime, she would discover Lai Nianfen's secret. As Lai Nianfen ran through the forest, Lin Qingyan followed him. Lin Qingyan continued to spy on Lai Nianfen from a distance while Lai Nianfen called Blackie and informed him that he was back. She was speechless when she saw Lai Nianfen's home. Lin Qingyan noted that the base camp had been detected. She commented that the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty had hidden Lai Nianfen well, deep in the mountain within an old forest. Lin Qingyan admitted that if it weren't for her sharp eyes and insight, she couldn't have found Lai Nianfen, and it was very good, so she would try to see what kind of amazing person Lai Nianfen was. But she was startled when Bai Luoswang, Bai Wuchen, and Luo Xiang arrived and recognized her. Lin Qingyan also recognized the three of them and acknowledged their presence. She asked them why they were there, and Bai Luoswang noted that it had been a long time since they last saw each other. Lin Qingyan properly greeted Bai Wuchen and Luo Xiang, and Bai Wuchen commented that she was really modest. Lin Qingyan observed that although the 10,000 Swords Immortal sect was not as good as their Lingyan Immortal Pavilion, Bai Wuchen was still a suzerain of a sect, and she wondered why an old boss from the nascent period had come to that deep mountain. She recalled that her master had mentioned the sword demon confronting the 10,000 Sword Immortal sect, so they should have been finished. Lin Qingyan wondered why they were still in good condition. Bai Wuchen recalled the last time he and Lin Qingyan met was when she was still a child, and as he asked her if old boss Yun was still in good health after so long. Lin Qingyan was surprised when she heard Bai Wuchen address her master as old boss Yun, as he used to call her master senior. Bai Wuchen laughed and admitted he had received help from the expert, so he had broken through to the Ob state. Lin Qingyan questioned how that was possible, and Bai Wuchen explained that the expert had even helped them survive the sword demon, so the 10,000 Sword Immortal sect was truly blessed and lucky. She wondered if it could be Lai Nianfen. Lin Qingyan stated that Lai Nianfen had offered a plan to the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty to help them get out of trouble, save the 10,000 Swords Immortal sect from miseries, help Bai Wuchen break through to Ob, and save Madame Chen from death. She questioned if all those things were done by one person. Lin Qingyan wondered what kind of person Lai Nianfen was. She questioned if there was truly such a person in the world. Lin Qingyan suddenly slapped herself and told herself to calm down. She remarked that there was such a magical person who had crossed paths with the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty and also the 10,000 Swords Immortal sect, and she wondered how the Lingyan Immortal Pavilion could fall behind them. Lin Qingyan stated that they, the Lingyan Immortal Pavilion, couldn't lose, and as Bai Luoswang asked Bai Wuchen what Lin Qingyan was doing, Bai Wuchen remarked that Bai Luoswang shouldn't mind Lin Qingyan because she was as crazy as her master, so they should visit the expert first as they couldn't miss the auspicious time. Bai Wuchen noted that when treating her benefactor, Bai Luoswang shouldn't be rude because he didn't know if the demon sword from last time had caused trouble to Lai Nianfen. He added that if Lai Nianfen was angry, they must sincerely apologize to him, and Bai Luoswang agreed. Bai Luoswang called Lai Nianfen and asked if he was home, and Lai Nianfen quickly opened the door and greeted her. Bai Luoswang greeted Lai Nianfen and introduced her father and mother. Lin Qingyan suddenly interjected and stated that she was there too. Lai Nianfen asked Lin Qingyan who she was. Lin Qingyan introduced herself and claimed she was a good friend of Luo Xiang. Bai Luoswang and her family were all surprised, and they cursed in their minds, wondering how Lin Qingyan ended up following them there. Lai Nianfen requested everyone to come in. Lin Qingyan was surprised and remarked that Xiao Bai was a magical item. She was also surprised about the spiritual water. Lin Qingyan also got surprised when she sat on the sofa and inquired which monster grabbed her butt. Lin Yanfen laughed and noted that Lin Qingyan is indeed lively and humorous. He mentioned he just made porridge, and it is very delicious, so they should let him bring some for them to eat. Lin Qingyan observed that she just discovered that there is spiritual energy in the air when Bai Luoswang suddenly grabbed her arm. Bai Luoswang remarked that it was common to see anything in Lin Yanfen's house. She stated that Lin Yanfen travels in the mortal world, so Lin Qingyan should not bring up the subject of cultivating immortals since it will pique his interest. And as Lin Qingyan asked her if it was her real personality, she agreed and acknowledged that she got it. A few moments later, Lin Yanfen came back with the porridge and appeared surprised. Lin Yanfen inquired why Lin Qingyan suddenly became quiet. Lin Qingyan explained she was a little weary, so she will sit down and rest. But she was thinking that she was too careless, was too surprised, and acted rudely. She acknowledged that Lin Yanfen is absolutely extraordinary, so she must make acquaintances and create a good impression. Lin Yanfen urged them to come and try the porridge. Bai Wuchen noted that a sudden visit is already troubling, so he won't drink the porridge and expressed gratitude to Lin Yanfen for his kindness. And Lin Yanfen asked Lin Qingyan, but Lin Qingyan politely declined as well and thanked Lin Yanfen for his kindness. Lin Yanfen observed that they were too polite and left. Suddenly, Bai Luoswang called Bai Wuchen and questioned him if he was sure that he didn't want to drink. The porridge was radiating and filled with spiritual kai. Bai Wuchen was surprised when he saw it. He acknowledged that it was a porridge that contains kai, so he miscalculated, and he expressed interest in trying the porridge. But Lin Yanfen had already fed the porridge to Blackie, and he inquired what Bai Wuchen remarked. Bai Wuchen stated it was nothing. On the other hand, Bai Luoswang requested Lin Yanfen to pardon her rudeness as she drank the porridge. Suddenly, she floated in the air, and a golden light shone brightly around her. Bai Luoswang was rejuvenated and her feet touched the ground. She had broken through to the building base mid-stage. Bai Luoswang called Bai Wuchen and Luo Xiang and informed them that she was in building base mid-stage already, and as Luo Xiang noted it was great. Bai Wuchen remarked that after so many years, Bai Luoswang finally advanced. Meanwhile, Lin Qingyan was completely speechless. She couldn't believe that Bai Luoswang broke through just like that. Lin Qingyan expressed relief that she found out about it today because if not, according to that breakthrough speed, the status of the Lingyan Immortal Pavilion will be jeopardized by the 10,000 Swords Immortal Sect. She concluded that she had to win Lin Yanfen over and couldn't let the 10,000 Sword Sect gain the advantage. Suddenly, Bai Wuchen called Lin Yanfen and recalled that Bai Luoswang brought back a painting from him last time, and they had greatly benefited from it, and he also gave them some precious white porridge that day. He stated that in order to express their gratitude, he had brought a little gift. Lin Qingyan wondered what it could be. Bai Wuchen requested that Lin Yanfen not be ashamed of it. Lin Qingyan mentioned it was a sect protection treasure of the 10,000 Sword Sect, the Sword Flaw Fairy Jade. On the other hand, Lin Yanfen remarked that it was a shining stone. Lin Qingyan was taken aback when she heard what Lin Yanfen noted. She explained that the reason Bai Wuchen could have a Yuan-Yin cultivation basis is that he depended solely on the Sword Flaw Fairy Jade to cultivate. And not only him, but the high-level disciples of the 10,000 Sword Sect would also rely on the annual visit to the Sword Flaw Fairy Jade to improve their cultivation. Lin Qingyan laughed and said it was a joke because it was just a shining stone in the eyes of Lin Yanfen. She observed that the 10,000 Sword Sect gave up their supreme treasure in order to gain the favor of Lin Yanfen, but it ended up with such a low review. But Lin Qingyan was surprised when Lin Yanfen remarked that he could use it as a light bulb at night, and that he liked it and thanked Bai Wuchen. Bai Luoswang stated they would give anything Lin Yanfen liked. She turned to Lin Qingyan and commented that she came for a visit, yet she came without a gift. Lin Qingyan was annoyed with what Bai Luoswang remarked. She replied, "Of course not, because the number of treasures in the Lingyan Immortal Pavilion is a lot." But Lin Qingyan explained that she went out and forgot to bring the treasure pocket. Lin Yanfen laughed and invited Lin Qingyan to make herself at home because he was already very happy that she came to his humble home. Lin Qingyan acknowledged that Lin Yanfen helped her despite her embarrassment, so he was kind-hearted. Lin Yanfen remembered something and requested their help with something because there is a little girl who was frightened and became mentally ill, and he inquired if they have any solution for it. Bai Luoswang asked if it was the little girl from last time, but Lin Qingyan suddenly chimed in and suggested they should let her answer that. Lin Qingyan remarked that she needed to do well to make up for the rudeness she showed earlier. She explained that if Nanan was frightened, maybe the soul is damaged, and the Lingyan Immortal Pavilion has a lot of medicine that could treat the soul. Lin Yanfen inquired if it was real, but Bai Luoswang remarked that Nanan is still young and her soul strength is weak, so they can't use those medicines. Lin Qingyan suggested they could let Nanan wear a soul-nourishing jade because long-term use could help people mend their souls. Lin Yanfen noted it was not bad. However, Bai Luoswang mentioned that in order for the soul-nourishing jade to be effective, Nanan must wear it for at least 10 or maybe 20 years. Bai Luoswang called Lin Qingyan, and as she remarked the Lingyan Immortal Pavilion is the strongest of all, she inquired if she had any other solution. Lin Yanfen asked Lin Qingyan if she had any other solution. Lin Qingyan was about to say something more, but she hesitated. She explained she was frightened and fell into a coma when she was young, and her master used to tell her stories by her bedside. But if Lai Nianfen was looking for a solution, her master was too distraught at that time and couldn't help out either. Bai Wuchen asked Lin Qingyan if even her master doesn't have a solution, and Bai Luoshuang noted it was all from the Lingyan Immortal Pavilion. Lin Qingyan looked troubled and worried as she ran out of ideas. But Lai Nianfen thanked Lin Qingyan for her reminder and remarked that he figured out a way. Lin Qingyan stated there are 3 spiritual and 7 physical souls, and the god soul is the most difficult to cure, so she asked Lai Nianfen if he really had a solution. Lai Nianfen responded he only knows some silly method they, humans, will use, so they should just try it anyway. Everyone agreed it was as expected of an expert because the god soul is damaged, but he could use the human method to solve it. Bai Wuchen remarked it is a huge blessing to be able to observe that moment. On the other hand, Lai Nianfen insisted they should not delay any longer, so he would enter the city and save Nanan immediately. And as he called Xiao Bai and requested for him to watch after the house, Bai Luoshuang and her family immediately mentioned Lai Nianfen was already going out. Bai Luoshuang and her family requested for Lai Nianfen to wait and asked if they could go with him, so they requested that he let them know if there was anything they could do to help. A few moments later, they arrived in the city, and Lai Nianfen called Auntie Zhang and explained he was there to look at Nanan's illness. Auntie Zhang acknowledged Lai Nianfen's presence. She also recognized the other 4 immortal cultivator experts. Auntie Zhang requested if they have a solution, they save Nanan. She commented after that much time, Nanan's condition has worsened. Bai Luoshuang remarked Nanan was the girl from last time and it was bad, while Lin Qingyan expressed disbelief that the condition was severe. Bai Luoshuang assured Auntie Zhang not to worry because Lai Nianfen would help Nanan regain her appearance, and Auntie Zhang agreed with her and thanked Lai Nianfen. Lai Nianfen approached Nanan. He suggested Nanan let him tell her a story, and after listening to that story, he hoped that she would not be afraid of monsters. Lai Nianfen announced the name of the story as Journey to the West. Blackie immediately mentioned he saw that book on the bookshelf at home. Lai Nianfen explained confusion is indistinguishable from the chaos of heaven and earth, and it is indistinct and unseen, so Pangu has been breaking the primal monarchy and emerging from the turbid argument ever since. Blackie observed Lai Nianfen was telling the story from the beginning. He suggested he could sleep first, but he noticed the cultivators. The 4 of them remarked it was the famous dictum of heaven and earth. Everyone listened as Lai Nianfen explained the beginning integration number of heaven and earth is 129,600 years old, and it is divided into 12 groups. Bai Luoshuang and Lin Qingyan remarked it was the famous dictum of great truth, while Luo Xiang and Bai Wuchen noted it was the universal law of development. On the other hand, Blackie stated it was not that bad. But he realized the large group of people behind him, and he wondered when so many people began to gather. Meanwhile, Lai Nianfen suggested if he could persuade Nanan that the Demon King Sun Wukong is a mischievous and adorable being, maybe she wouldn't be afraid of monsters anymore. Suddenly, he noticed a large group of people in front of him. Lai Nianfen expressed surprise that there were many people. He commented everyone enjoys listening to stories. Lai Nianfen declared he would get right to the point then. He described how stone monkeys lead a community of monkeys on the Mount of Flower and fruits, where they live joyfully and happily. Lai Nianfen continued, later, in pursuit of longevity, Sun Wukong crossed the sea on a bamboo raft and studied art with a master. He recounted after finally becoming a disciple of Patriarch Bodhai, Sun Wukong asked if he could obtain longevity after learning those things. A kid in the audience listening to the story called her mother and remarked the monkey was interesting, and the mother commented she was a silly girl because she listened to the story and noticed the monkey, but for the immortal cultivator experts, it was the sound of great truth. The 4 cultivators were thinking that Lai Nianfen was talking about his own personal experience. A few moments later, Lai Nianfen mentioned it was all for that day. Lai Nianfen requested for the next story, they listened to the next explaining section. He explained he was going to debut as a Mr. Storyteller and he was going to be famous. Lai Nianfen was thinking that he didn't know if the method worked on Nanan when Nanan suddenly recognized him. He expressed, thank goodness, it worked. Meanwhile, one of the audience members expressed their surprise and remarked 2 hours had passed, so his mother was going to scold him to death, but he requested that they inform him for the next storytelling section. On the other hand, Bai Wuchen inquired if Lai Nianfen would continue the next day. He noted it was detailed and a true story, and if it weren't for Lai Nianfen's personal experience, it would have to be the story of specific higher authorities of the immortal world, so he was not sure if they, small cultivators, were qualified to hear such a secret. Lai Nianfen suggested they could bring a stool the next day because when they sit on the ground, it is easier to catch a cold. Bai Wuchen remarked Lai Nianfen was selfless and he loved him so much. As Bai Luoshuang and her family left, Lin Qingyan suddenly called Lai Nianfen. When Lai Nianfen acknowledged her, Lin Qingyan admitted she didn't contribute anything that day and asked him to pardon Lingyan Immortal Pavilion's rudeness. But Lai Nianfen responded it was not the case, and as he thanked her for reminding him that he is able to sort things out, he explained using stories to correct children's cognition is an excellent solution to treat mental illness. He suggested Lin Qingyan could come over to his home frequently while thinking that he had heard that Lingyan Immortal Pavilion is a really powerful immortal immortal sect, therefore it is a good idea to make friends. Lin Qingyan was speechless for a moment when she heard what Lai Nianfen remarked, and she was moved to tears. She immediately agreed with Lai Nianfen and stated his concubine would definitely come back the next day to listen to his lecture, and Lai Nianfen was taken aback when he heard her mention herself as a concubine and about his lecture. A few moments later, Lai Nianfen called Auntie Zhang and informed her he was leaving. But Mingling suddenly greeted him as a master. Mingling requested for Lai Nianfen to stay. Mingling introduced himself, and he stated that he had seen Lai Nianfen before, and his story was like a distant rumbling of thunder. Lai Nianfen declared that Mingling flattered him while he considered that no one could resist the charm of Journey to the West. But Mingling remarked that he was curious about something and he wanted Lai Nianfen to enlighten him. Lai Nianfen got curious about what it was. Mingling politely inquired Lai Nianfen if there was really a way for longevity. Lai Nianfen was surprised by Mingling's question. Mingling expressed that he has been seeking longevity for a long time, and he looked through all of the books but couldn't find anything up until he heard Lai Nianfen's story, so he must have known how to live a long life. Lai Nianfen queried Mingling if he had gone crazy from reading books. Mingling questioned Lai Nianfen if he could see that, and he uttered that he was not really smart and he had always been immersed in the realm of books, but even though he read a lot, he still knew nothing. Lai Nianfen pondered that Mingling was really dumb. He related that since ancient times, no one who sought longevity has died happily. Lai Nianfen commented that in 10 years' time, when springs go and autumn come, centuries could show birth, old age, sickness, and even death, and for thousands of years, the replacement of dynasties could be lamented, and for 10,000 years, the shifting of stars could be observed. So if mortals tried to use their momentaneous vision to look into the world of millions of years, it was the same as trying to catch the moon in the reflection of a well. He conveyed that Mingling should focus on the present and act on his own will. Lai Nianfen indicated that was all he could say. Mingling watched as Lai Nianfen walked towards the sunset, away from him. He was in awe. Mingling tried to comprehend what Lai Nianfen mentioned. He contemplated that it was great wisdom. On the other hand, Lai Nianfen reflected that he couldn't afford to offend an idealist, so he should escape. Meanwhile, a kid probed his master Zhao when they would arrive, and the master observed that they were almost there. The kid noted that the 10,000 sword sect was confronted with the sword demon's challenge, and it must have been annihilated, so he pressed Zhao why they rushed over there. Zhao exclaimed that he and Bai Wuchen were sword cultivators and they have fought openly and secretly for more than a century, and currently, he died brutally at the hands of the sword demon. He demanded who else was going to collect Bai Wuchen's corpse besides him, and he surmised that although Bai Wuchen's strength wasn't great, he would not try to escape and live aimlessly, so he was afraid that his body had gone cold by that time. Suddenly, Zhao noticed Bai Wuchen and his family. Bai Wuchen announced that having an opportunity to listen to Lai Nianfen was such a great blessing, and Bai Luoswang affirmed that he was right. Zhao screamed and informed that it was a deceptive corpse. Bai Wuchen heard Zhao, and he prompted what brought him there. As Zhao petitioned Bai Wuchen how he was not dead, he explained that he planned to come over and retrieve his corpse, and when Bai Wuchen heard that, he specified that he owed Zhao a heartfelt thank you. Zhao requested Bai Wuchen if it could be that he ran away when the demon sword confronted him. When Bai Wuchen heard that, he requested for Zhao to have a look at his aura. Zhao implored Bai Wuchen if he had already made it to the Ob stage. Bai Wuchen recounted that the 10,000 sword sect was most likely blessed and beloved by God because the sword demon was barely a blip on his radar, and Zhao didn't have to be overly jealous because everyone has their own destiny. Zhao chuckled. He pointed out that it doesn't matter when one starts learning. The one who discovers the truth should be the teacher, and he addressed Bai Wuchen as his senior as he congratulated him. Zhao reported that immortal cultivators strive for longevity, but as he examined how many immortals could persist, he insisted that it seems that Bai Wuchen will outlive him. Bai Wuchen interrogated Zhao if it could be that his lifespan was ending. Zhao pronounced that he didn't have more than 50 years to live, and he mused that he could collect Bai Wuchen's corpse, but he couldn't believe that he was already going alone. Bai Wuchen felt sorry for Zhao. He disclosed that, to be honest with Zhao, the one who helped him in the breakthrough was not the one who destroyed the sword demon, but someone else. Bai Wuchen professed that since they were in the same misfortune, he can't bear to see Zhao disappear. Zhao solicited Bai Wuchen if it could be that he had an idea, and Bai Wuchen testified that he would take him to hear a story the next day. The next day, the townspeople clarified that Lai Nianfen had entered the town. One of them added that he went to secure a set and listen to the story. Lai Nianfen was startled when he saw Mingling. Mingling called Lai Nianfen and articulated that he waited a long time for him. He responded that he finally realized and thanked Lai Nianfen. Mingling reiterated that Lai Nianfen meant that everything has its own rules, and to truly comprehend them, he must feel the reality of each situation, and only he could break all those laws. Lai Nianfen vocalized that Mingling was still thinking about longevity. Mingling spelled out yes and that Lai Nianfen's truth was significantly more complicated than that, and he could only realize a fraction of it. Lai Nianfen mused that he should leave, while Mingling accounted that he will carefully observe everything in the world to understand their rules and grasp the true meaning of Lai Nianfen's statements as soon as possible. He was surprised, and he reckoned that Mingling realized the way to study deep into the root and heart of phenomena in order to gain knowledge. Lai Nianfen inferred that Mingling was more of an idealist than he assumed and quickly ran away. Mingling called Lai Nianfen and averred that he should wait for him. A few moments later, Lai Nianfen was back at Nanan's house, and he held a fan, which says that it was the continuation of the previous story. Lai Nianfen recognized Bai Luoswang and Lin Qingyan. and he imparted that everyone was there again. He also noticed Zhao and his disciple. The two of them trembled and sweated. Lin Qingyan signaled that Zhao was sweating a lot, and he inquired him if his body was not feeling well. He handed a handkerchief to Zhao. Zhao stuttered as he thanked Lin Qingyan and acknowledged that he was alright. But in his mind, he and his disciple understood that it was not alright because Lingyan, Immortal Pavilion's saintess, has become Lai Nianfan's fangirl, and they wondered where the hell the idiotic-looking boy came from. Lai Nianfan stated that it was the continuation of the previous story. He declared that the patriarch remarked he was happy that the kid was destined to learn. The patriarch noted that he shall pass on the wonderful way of longevity to the kid. Bai Luoshuang's eyes twinkled when she heard about destiny. Lin Qingyan's eyes twinkled when she heard about happiness, while Bai Wuchen was completely in awe when he heard about the wonderful way of longevity. Lai Nianfan commented that the patriarch mentioned that the true key to prolonging life was to cherish it, always come with a strong spirit, and be careful to retain leaking energy. He observed that to stop the leaking energy that stays hidden in the body, the kid shall heed his advice and flourish as a result. Bai Wuchen, Lin Qingyan, and Bai Luoshuang expressed that it was the great truth of longevity, and Lai Nianfan pronounced it succinctly. But the three of them considered that they couldn't understand a single word. Suddenly, dark clouds covered the sky above their heads. Lai Nianfan articulated that they should return to the original by traversing a surname and wait for the Immortals' name to be relocated. He conveyed that after all, if they don't know how to generate results, there is no way they could survive in that world, and he requested that they come listen to the continuation at the next session. Raindrops started falling down, and the ground started getting wet. The people uttered that it rained so they should go home and that they would come again to listen to the story. Bai Wuchen announced that the resin really poured down. Zhao pondered that once an order is issued, it will be followed, so he wondered if it could be that Lai Nianfan's orders caused changes in heaven and earth, while Bai Wuchen contemplated that there was no other possible way. Meanwhile, Lai Nianfan reported that he didn't bring his umbrella. He affirmed that it was pouring so hard all of a sudden, which was troublesome, so he called out to the sky and acknowledged that it should stop the rain immediately. Both Zhao and Bai Wuchen wondered if Lai Nianfan tried to convince the heavens to stop raining. On the other hand, at Lai Nianfan's forfeit yard 10 miles away, Xiao Bai and Blackie were left. The two of them were alarmed when they noticed the pond. The huge dragonfish came out of the pond and flew towards the sky. Xiao Bai inquired what they should do. Both Xiao Bai and Blackie reflected that Lai Nianfan's carp flew away, and they wondered if he would be mad about that. The dragonfish dispersed the dark clouds, and light started to peek out through the clouds. Lai Nianfan saw the ray of light that's shining down in front of him. He queried if it was a sunny day. Lai Nianfan indicated that the rain really stopped, and he questioned if he did any good deeds that even the gods couldn't bear to see him get wet in the rain while going home. Meanwhile, Bai Wuchen and Bai Luoshuang surmised that Lai Nianfan specified that he was not an immortal, but even a pig wouldn't believe his words at that moment. Suddenly, Mingliang called Lai Nianfan, and Lai Nianfan interrogated if it was him again. Mingliang maintained that he has noted down everything Lai Nianfan claimed, so if he doesn't mind, he would like that story to go viral, and Lai Nianfan asserted that Mingliang's idea was not bad, but he demanded if he could not come so near. Mingliang probed Lai Nianfan if he, the author, could give him his name. But Lai Nianfan reiterated that he wouldn't. Lai Nianfan explained that the book was not written by him, so Mingliang should write Wu Chenjin as the author's name and pressed if he understood. Mingliang suddenly recounted that he realized it once again. He recited that Lai Nianfan was a great genius, and he will go back and edit right away. Meanwhile, Zhao proclaimed that he understood that it was Wu Chenjin, and as Bai Wuchen vocalized yes, Bai Luoshuang intimated that Lai Nianfan was really amazing. Lin Qingyan suddenly signaled that it was not bad and Lai Nianfan's name was really good, so the journey to the west will undoubtedly raise a stir in the world of Immortals. She elucidated that Lai Nianfan was not only willing to offer his vast knowledge but also named himself Wu Chenjin. The four of them simultaneously clarified that it meant that Lai Nianfan was not taking favors from people and won't need to do so, which is as expected of him. On the other hand, Lai Nianfan wondered what the four of them talked about. Lai Nianfan responded that time got late, so he had to return already, and he apologized to them because for the past 2 days, he took care of Nonan only and didn't treat them all particularly well. He requested they come to his house and be his guests next time. Lai Nianfan replied that they should hunt some game and eat together. When Bai Wuchen heard about the game, he inquired what that meant and if Bai Luoshuang could understand what the hind from Lai Nianfan was, and Bai Luoshuang answered that she was the one who first knew Lai Nianfan, so of course she understood what he meant. Bai Wuchen mentioned that previously, the leopard severely harmed Nonan and was turned into a game by Lai Nianfan, so it must be due to the fact that the rage has not subsided that Lai Nianfan harbors a deep aversion to monsters. Bai Luoshuang suggested that Lai Nianfan wanted them to come over with some monsters, and it also conveyed to them that the story's wisdom of the great truth should not be overlooked, so they must do something. Lin Qingyan examined if that wasn't easy, and she opined that she would kill a few big demons and send them to Lai Nianfan. Bai Luoshuang testified that she knew of a place where a tiger demon king with Yuan Ying stage resides, and as she implored Lin Qingyan if they should start with him, Lin Qingyan professed that Tiger Demon King is a good tonic. Bai Wuchen broadcasted that the Demon King was youthful. Lin Qingyan avowed that if she could make Lai Nianfan happy, that was just a mere Demon King. She imparted that she will send them all neatly, no matter how many, and as Zhao requested if it was Lin Qingyan's real personality, Bai Luoshuang divulged yes, and she wondered Zhao if he didn't know about it. On the other hand, at Mount Tiger, 100 miles away, tiger demons lounged around their territory. The tiger demon king sat leisurely on his throne. Suddenly, he noticed something. One of the tiger demons investigated the king what was on his head. Lion Ianfen gleefully hung the laundry. Suddenly, he wondered if someone knocked at the door and stated that he came. Bai Wuchen and Zhao greeted Lion Ianfen with a smile, and they offered a two-headed wolf, a three-tailed lion, and a huge type tiger. Bai Wuchen declared that the little gift was a token to show his respect to Lion Ianfen, while Zhao remarked that he didn't hunt much but everything he got was fresh from the woods. Lion Ianfen considered that if that happened in his previous life, he would have to spend the rest of his life in jail. He pondered that traversing to that realm was good. Lion Ianfen requested for all of them to have a seat first, and he uttered that he would go and prepare some ingredients. He inquired himself what he should do as he hopped towards the kitchen. Lion Ianfen pronounced that the cultivators paid him a visit and brought him so many wonderful gifts, so he must keep them entertained as well. He mentioned that they should eat hot pot shabu shabu. A few moments later, rolls of meat were neatly prepared. The vegetables were also neatly lined up on the plate. The pot was also prepared. Lion Ianfen observed that Xiao Bai was very good, but Xiao Bai commented that he was just so-so. He called the cultivators and noted that they should eat immediately. Lion Ianfen was worried when he saw the cultivators' reactions. The four of them all reflected that they couldn't understand at all. Bai Luoswang queried why the meat was shaped like that, while Lin Qingyan questioned what the cake was and asserted that it was cute. Meanwhile, Bai Wuchen was astonished when he saw the pot. Bai Wuchen contemplated that it was an image of Tai Chi. He surmised that it was certainly the path of yin and yang. Zhao conveyed that he couldn't believe that pot, as it has the intention of reconciling yin and yang as well as Tai Chi chaos. He mused that it was the so-called pot that produces one, and from one it becomes two, and it further divides into soup and mala and is prepared with some meat and vegetables, as the ingredients do enjoy the essence of taste. Zhao reckoned that they would refine it in the belly, soften it in the stomach, and use the buttocks to eliminate the waste. He perceived that it shall nourish the earth repeatedly and endlessly. Bai Wuchen and Zhao reported that they have learned something amazing. Lion Ianfen deemed that it was just a pot and that those cultivators were interesting. He affirmed that they should eat. Bai Luoswang proclaimed that she had never seen such dishes before, and Lin Qingyan probed how they should eat it. Lion Ianfen announced that he will show them and that they should follow him. He responded that they should pick a piece of meat. Lion Ianfen answered that they should put it into the pot. He indicated that when it was cooked, they should dip in the sauce. Lion Ianfen expressed that they should eat it. Bai Luoswang and Lin Qingyan were stunned after they ate the meat. The two of them were in awe at the burst of flavors that was like a volcano. They felt very vulnerable and naked after tasting the meat. The two of them concluded that it was delicious. Watching them, Bai Wuchen voiced that the ladies aren't holding back at all. Bai Wuchen specified that elderly people can't digest well if they consume too much meat, so he would try some vegetables. He was extremely surprised after he ate the vegetable. Bai Wuchen assumed that he could sense the Taoist flavor in those vegetables. Lion Ianfen acknowledged that all of those vegetables are fresh and were grown by him. Bai Wuchen admitted that he understood and that if Lion Ianfen was the one who grew it, it was not strange that it has a Taoist flavor in it. He related that Zhao should eat more because the vegetables are good for the body, and he believes that it will extend his life by a few years. Zhao was astonished when he heard what Bai Wuchen articulated. He averred that he understood, and he realized that with Taoist flavor existing in those vegetables, he might be able to break through by eating a few more bites. The cultivators inferred that Lion Ianfen was a superhuman indeed. Everyone peacefully ate as the sun slowly started to set. On the other hand, a really tall mountain was shrouded by clouds, and birds flew around it. In the forest, a fox moved swiftly from one tree to another. It landed on the grassy plains. There were two foxes, and they looked ominous. But upon closer look, they were two fox demons that rested peacefully on the grass. The smaller fox demon inquired her older sister if she could not transform and if she realized how dangerous it is to transform. She stated that transformation must go through calamity and a few claps of thunder, and if her sister doesn't pay attention, her soul will fly away and be scattered around. The older sister was speechless, and she was in deep reflection. The younger sister questioned her older sister if she pondered that she was lucky and if she could survive that. The two of them continued to walk side by side in the forest. The younger sister remarked that even if her older sister survives, her previous year of cultivation will also be lost, and she will have to start from scratch. She inquired what would happen if her older sister was picked up by a wretched uncle at that time. The older sister queried the younger sister if she couldn't say something positive, and the younger sister added that it was because if the older sister succeeded in transformation, she would be at her weakest, and cultivators from miles around would know about it and gather to grab her demon pill. The older sister inquired the younger sister if she didn't still have her around if she succeeded in transformation, and was on the verge of dying, and she noted that the younger sister had to protect her. She stated that the time was up. The older sister quickly ran away while the younger sister called her. She considered that, of course, she was aware that transformation is risky, but that transformation must be completed. The older sister believed that half human is different, and only by transforming into human form could she only stay by her master's side and serve him. She resolved that she would repay him for saving her life. Suddenly, a powerful lightning bolt struck from the sky. Lion Ianfen inquired why it was raining again. He quickly ran to find shelter from the rain. Lion Ianfen screamed in panic when another lightning bolt struck right behind him. A few moments later, Lion Ianfen found a cave and took shelter. Lion Ianfen questioned himself how there could be such thunder in that world and if the end was approaching. But he noticed something. Lionyanfen inquired why the thunder seems to be converging in only one spot. The thunder continued to strike. At the distance, a cultivator stated that with 9 claps of thunder, there is a 1,000-year-old fox demon transforming, and the other cultivator with him inquired what kind of silly demon that was, taking her life with her own hands. The cultivator stated that money doesn't grow on trees, and as he queried if he wouldn't be able to break through easily if he got the demon pill, the other cultivator commented that first come, first served. A few moments later, the rain stopped. A magical aura floated around the trees and converged towards an area. The fox demon finished her transformation, and she slowly started waking up. The aura converged around her, and she was surprised when she saw her body. But she was alarmed when she heard a noise coming from behind her. The bushes behind her rustled as Lionyanfen walked through them. Lionyanfen remarked that the firewood was wet, so that day was a busy walk for nothing. Suddenly, he noticed the fox demon. The fox demon and Lionyanfen were both surprised when they saw each other. Lionyanfen considered that it was a beautiful girl. He stated that the revival of Sudaji would wreck the country and bring ruin to the people. On the other hand, the fox demon hesitated as she tried to call Lionyanfen her master. She believed that she was fortunate that she transformed and ran into her savior again. The fox demon recalled that 3 years ago, she was a 7-tailed fox. She recalled that she was gravely hurt after a bad encounter with cultivators. The fox demon considered that she was blessed that her savior came to her aid. She recalled that her body healed. The fox demon realized that not only that, it also only took 3 years for her 9th tail to grow. She reflected that she would thank the Lord for letting her transform successfully and meet her savior again. The fox demon was surprised when Lionyanfen began removing his clothes. She queried Lionyanfen what he was going to do. Lionyanfen bashfully wrapped his coat over the fox demon. The fox demon was puzzled by Lionyanfen's gesture. Lionyanfen assured that the fox demon shouldn't worry because he is not a bad guy, so she will be fine. The fox demon was speechless. Lionyanfen declared that the fox demon was weak at the moment, so he would take her for treatment. He carried the fox demon on his back as they walked out of the forest. Meanwhile, the bushes in the area started rustling. It was the younger fox demon. She considered that Lionyanfen was a horrid mortal. The younger fox demon believed that although her sister survived the catastrophe, her lifeline was severed. She reckoned that her sister hung on her last breath and wouldn't be able to live more than a month. The younger fox demon surmised that if it hadn't been for Lionyanfen, her sister would not have chosen to transform and wouldn't have to die. She concluded that before her sister passes away, she must personally send Lionyanfen to the graveyard. The immortal cultivators present in a radius of hundreds of miles were already aware that someone had undergone a demonic transformation, and they all went in a rush. Luo Shi watched as the immortal cultivators converged into one area. She stated that it was where Lionyanfen was. Zhang Zhu inquired Luo Shiyu if she saw the thunder earlier. Luo Shiyu mentioned yes and that the monster gave up her 1,000-year-old practice and transformed, and she queried what it was up to. She remarked that the demon pill is extremely precious, and it will definitely entice a large number of people to grab it. Luo Shiyu questioned what would happen if it disrupted Lionyanfen's resting time if the situation got too violent. She probed if it wouldn't be bad if it harmed Lionyanfen's health if he gets disrupted to the point where he is unable to sleep, and Zhang Zhu considered that Luo Shiyu was worried about that. Luo Shiyu's father, the king, uttered that he can't let that happen. He declared that since Luo Shiyu told him about Lionyanfen's deeds, he felt that when Lionyanfen chooses the Qianlong dynasty, it will be their celestial dynasty's greatest blessing. The king noted that if Lionyanfen is offended by others, it was their fault that they didn't take good care of him. He voiced that if Lionyanfen leaves because he is bothered by other people, it will be a great loss to them, and both Luo Shiyu and Zhang Zhu articulated that it was right. The king asserted that he and Luo Shiyu should go, to which Luo Shiyu agreed. He pronounced that they would take care of whoever disrupted Lionyanfen's leisure time. Luo Shiyu pondered that they would settle it on the spot on behalf of Lionyanfen. On the other hand, Bai Wuchen congratulated Zhao on his breakthrough to the Ob stage and announced that he will be an immortal again, to which Zhao observed that it was all thanks to the vegetables served by Lionyanfen. Zhao proclaimed that he and Bai Wuchen were in the same position. Bai Wuchen commented that Zhao had only recently broken through, but he had come to Lionyanfen to be his doorman, so he seemed so laid back. Zhao conveyed that, of course, he did not attempt to dominate the opportunity, and he was only concerned that the flies would disrupt Lionyanfen's quiet time. Bai Wuchen affirmed that great minds think alike because it is indeed noisy. He interrogated if they should compete and see who could chase away the most flies. Huge explosions simultaneously occurred on the mountain ranges. The cultivators implored for help as they got blown away by the explosion, and they petitioned where the attack came from. Meanwhile, Lionyanfen carefully placed the fox demon into the bed. He acknowledged that she shouldn't worry because his place is secluded and safe. Suddenly, they heard the loud rumbling noise the explosions had caused. Lionyanfen confessed that it was nothing and perhaps the thunder earlier wasn't over yet. He repeated and disclosed that his place is secluded and safe. The fox demon emphasized that she would listen to her master. Lionyanfen revealed that the fox demon has been gravely hurt and her life's in jeopardy, and as he beseeched her if he could help her heal, she responded that she would listen to her master. Lionyanfen informed that the fox demon should take a rest, and he suggested that she stay with him for a while if she has nowhere else to go. The fox demon expressed that she would listen to her master. Lion Ianfen requested the fox demon what her name was, but she just indicated that she would listen to her master. He examined the fox demon if she was going to listen to him in that matter too and if she didn't have a name. The fox demon solicited Lion Ianfen if she couldn't. Lion Ianfen speculated what it could be. He wondered if the fox demon was the maid of a rich family. Lion Ianfen reflected that she was born without human rights, suffered a lot, and didn't even have a name. He surmised that she worked so hard to escape. Lion Ianfen contemplated that the fox demon had no home to return to and was robbed as well as badly wounded by others. He presumed that it was pitiful. Lion Ianfen wondered if he was right that it makes him her savior because he saved her that day, and he reckoned that according to the plot's progression, if he treats her better, she may repay him with her body and they will be able to live together lawfully. He placed his hand on the fox demon's shoulder. Lion Ianfen reiterated that the fox demon shouldn't be scared because no matter what she has suffered in the past, it was in the past, and from that point onward, he will take care of her. He specified that if the fox demon didn't have a name, he would call her Dai, and he solicited her if that was okay. Dai deduced that it was the name given by her master. She recounted that she would listen to her master. Dai looked up and was about to confess something to Lion Ianfen, but Lion Ianfen was already by the door, and he testified that he would go get the meds ready. Lion Ianfen closed the door behind him. Outside, Lion Ianfen detailed that he had never been alone in a room with a girl and chatted so close before, and he wondered if Dai would think that he was a frivolous man. Lion Ianfen concluded that he was nervous. He gauged that his friendliness must have come across clearly to Dai. Lion Ianfen apprised that he should never mind it and that he should get the meds ready. Inside, Dai was speechless. She smiled brightly. Dai was happy as she narrated her name. On the other hand, Bai Wuchen and Zhao stood side by side. Zhao communicated that if it weren't for Lin Qingyun's help, they, two old men, couldn't have kept so many immortal cultivators from rushing there, and it was a difficult matter. Lin Qingyun imparted that the seniors were too polite because, in that matter, their interests were the same. She clarified that if the three of them joined hands, wild fishes below the Ob stage were unable to approach Lion Ianfen. Suddenly, Luo Shiyu appealed Lin Qingyun, who she referred to by wild fishes. The three of them were all astonished when they saw that the king was with Luo Shiyu. They whispered that the Holy King has come in person. Bai Wuchen, Zhao, and Lin Qingyun greeted Luo Jinghong. Luo Jinghong acknowledged their greetings. He considered that although each of the sects has its own formation, they are all subject to the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty. Meanwhile, Bai Wuchen, Zhao, and Lin Qingyun were reflecting that although Luo Jinghong is sparse in talent and knowledge, he is still pure blood royalty and is a top existence in the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty, so they couldn't believe that he actually left the palace and came over there in person. Luo Jinghong suddenly wondered since when those two old men had broken through to the Ob stage. He pondered since when the Ob stage was easy to break through. Luo Shiyu noticed the troubled expression of Luo Jinghong. She mentioned that she believed Lion Ianfen helped them. Bai Wuchen immediately responded that Luo Shiyu was right and that Lion Ianfen helped the 10,000 sword sect in destroying the sword demon. Zhao interjected and stated that Lion Ianfen served him a hot pot, assisted him in breaking through, and extended his life. Lin Qingyun also added that Lion Ianfen taught her the wisdom of the great truth journey to the west, and she was fortunate enough to hear it and greatly benefited from it. Luo Jinghong considered that he was envious, but he thought that he can't say that he is envious. Luo Jinghong noted that although they drove away some of the cultivators, there must still be more people rushing there. He suggested that they should go visit Lion Ianfen and see if there is anything else they could do. Lion Ianfen's residence was still peaceful, just like before. A few moments later, Luo Jinghong stood in front of Lion Ianfen's door. Suddenly, Luo Jinghong noticed the jade pendant on the door. He remarked that it was the jade pendant that he gave to Luo Shiyu. Bai Wuchen stated that it was Luo Jinghong's phoenix pendant, and it seemed like Lion Ianfen carved it again, while Zhao commented that it was no wonder the phoenix flew out of it previously, as it was a rotten stone that had been transformed into a treasure. Luo Jinghong inferred that the jade pendant must be considered too low end by Lion Ianfen, and that is why Lion Ianfen didn't invite them when anything good happened. He considered that he was despised by Lion Ianfen, so he would have to make up for it. Suddenly, Lion Ianfen inquired what had brought them all there, and as he observed that it was lively, Bai Wuchen explained that they happened to meet at the foot of the mountain and came there together. Luo Jinghong was surprised, and he immediately turned to face Lion Ianfen. Luo Shiyu introduced Luo Jinghong to Lion Ianfen and stated that he is her father, and Luo Jinghong greeted Lion Ianfen. Lion Ianfen was horrified when he realized that it was the national leader. He quickly bowed respectfully to greet Luo Jinghong, and Luo Jinghong did the same. Lion Ianfen expressed that he happened to have something there and would like to ask them all for advice, and as Luo Jinghong noted that Lion Ianfen was too polite, he requested that Lion Ianfen let them know if there is anything else they could do for him and mentioned that they are willing to die the most heinous death for principles. Lin Qingyun remarked that Luo Jinghong was right because whether it is a cultivator or monster that attacks for fun, they will kill anyone who dares to disturb Lion Ianfen with no mercy, and they will make sure that his house stays peaceful. Lion Ianfen laughed and stated that with their protection, he already felt extremely safe. He explained that regarding what he mentioned, it was a different story because there was thunder earlier, and it struck a lady. Lion Ianfen expressed that he would like to ask them to help him in deciding how the girl could be saved in a more effective manner. He pointed out Dai for everyone to see. Everyone immediately thought that Dai was the transformed monster. Dai was alarmed when she saw everyone. Lin Yanfen questioned Dai what happened to her, and Dai responded that they were there to capture her. Lin Yanfen asked everyone if they were there to capture Dai. Everyone was stunned and horrified when they heard Lin Yanfen's inquiry. Bai Wuchen and Zhao considered that if Lin Yanfen misinterprets it and thinks that they were there to capture the transformed monster, that means that they are messed up. Bai Wuchen immediately clarified that it was a misunderstanding because they are Lin Yanfen's friends, and he requested that Dai not panic. Zhao stated that Bai Wuchen was right and that they are not selfish or malicious and they will not cause Dai harm. Everyone mentioned that they are good people. Lin Yanfen observed that he thinks Dai is a maid of a rich family and has suffered a lot, and she barely escaped and mistook the others for the bad guys who had come to take her back, to which Bai Wuchen responded and stated that it was whatever Lin Yanfen says. Lin Yanfen proudly gave Dai a thumbs up. Dai expressed that since Lin Yanfen says that they are good people, she will listen to Lin Yanfen. Lin Yanfen stated that regrettably, Dai was struck by thunder and is currently severely injured. He mentioned that they should check to see if they were able to help with a cure because that will be a big help for him. Lin Qingyan considered that as a result of being struck by thunder, Dai's vitality has been snuffed out, much like a dead tree, so it's an unrecoverable situation. She apologized to Lin Yanfen and was about to explain the situation, but she was cut off. Lin Yanfen explained that if he does it himself, it will require some handwork, footwork, and time. Lin Qingyan was surprised when she heard what Lin Yanfen mentioned. Meanwhile, Lin Yanfen stated that Dai was a good girl and that the medicine was a little bitter, so she had to endure it. Dai started to emit a glowing aura after she drank the medicine. Everyone was astonished when they saw the effect of the medicine. Lin Qingyan considered that the fox demon was clearly destined to die, but with just a bowl of medicine, it has turned the world upside down. She thought that it was thunder, and it was equivalent to taking people's hands off the great truth, so she wondered what kind of existence Lin Yanfen was. Meanwhile, Lin Yanfen was in awe as he looked at the glowing Dai. He was thinking that it turned out that when beautiful women take medicine, they glow. Lin Qingyan called Lin Yanfen and stated that they have a lot of elixirs in Lingyan Immortal Pavilion, and that should help Dai's injury. Bai Wuchen interjected and mentioned that his 10,000 sword sect has been passed down through generations, and they also have some rare elixirs, so perhaps Lin Yanfen could make use of them, while Zhao stated that he will go get his exquisite elixir right away. Liu Jinghong called Lin Yanfen and mentioned that he would return to the palace to get him some medicine. However, he requested that Lin Yanfen accept his gift first. He expressed gratitude to Lin Yanfen for his help and advice on the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty's troubles. Liu Jinghong considered that the jade pendant went wrong last time, so at that time, he will present their national treasure because he needs to restore his image. Lin Yanfen remarked that they were too polite and that he feels embarrassed. He opened the box Liu Jinghong gave him. Lin Yanfen was puzzled when a powerful golden dragon suddenly came out of the box. The dragon inquired Liu Jinghong why he had summoned him. Lin Qingyan was lost for words when she saw the golden dragon. On the other hand, Zhao wondered if it was the Dragon Ball, and Bai Wuchen explained that it was the national treasure of the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty. Meanwhile, Lin Yanfen remained puzzled, but he was in awe as he looked up at the golden dragon. The golden dragon was alarmed when he saw Lin Yanfen. It quickly returned to the Dragon Ball in Lin Yanfen's hand. Liu Jinghong was stunned that his Qianlong Dynasty Dragon Ball, a national treasure, was hiding. Lin Qingyan mentioned that the spirit of an ancient fire dragon was used to refine the Dragon Ball, and it was the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty's greatest treasure, and it has always been an uptight character, so rather than saying the Holy King owned the Dragon Ball, it was better to say that it was the opposite. Liu Jinghong noted that the dragon only glanced at Lin Yanfen for a split second, and he acted like a coward while Lin Yanfen queried Liu Jinghong if the dragon just breathed fire, and stated that it was too fast that he couldn't see it properly. Liu Jinghong confirmed that Lin Yanfen was right that the dragon could breathe fire, and Lin Yanfen remarked that it was awesome. Lin Yanfen mentioned that the Dragon Ball should come on, and as he inquired if it could breathe fire again, he was amazed and he added that it could give out little fireworks. He explained that last time they gave him a light bulb, and that time they gave him a lighter, so they, cultivators, have so many fun little things, and Liu Jinghong responded that it was whatever he likes. Lin Yanfen stated that he can't always accept their generosity without reciprocating in some ways, so he promised to do his best to make it up to them all next time. Everyone was startled when they heard what Lin Yanfen mentioned. Everyone thanked Lin Yanfen for his kindness. Lin Yanfen declared that in that case, he would apologize for bothering them all about Dai's medicine, and as he thanked them, Liu Jinghong remarked that he was too polite. Liu Jinghong announced that they will prepare the meds right away. Lin Yanfen watched as everyone quickly left. A few moments later, Lin Qingyan was back at the Lingyan Immortal Pavilion. The members of the pavilion immediately stated that their saintess was back. Lin Qingyan suggested that they should bring all the elixirs of the pavilion right away, but the elder mentioned that they have too many elixirs, and if she wanted all of them there, it would take up to a few months to transfer. The elder inquired Lin Qingyan what difficulties she was facing and mentioned that he, an old man, would listen to her talk because those are far too many medications for the average person to handle, to which Lin Qingyan agreed that he was right. Lin Qingyan acknowledged that the elder's advice was correct and she wasn't clearly thinking at the time, so she would request him to bring only the very best, and that was it. The elder was taken aback that he excessively teared up when Lim Qingyan mentioned that that was it. At that same time, in Lai Nianfan's home, he stated that Dai should look because it was his meticulously maintained garden. He explained that although it was not big, for the living of 2 people, it was more than enough. Lai Nianfan introduced Blackie and mentioned that although Blackie doesn't belong to a specific species and has an average appearance, he is obedient. He also introduced Xiao Bai, and as he explained that he is in charge of handling their yard and Dai was free to ask a favor from him whenever she needed, Xiao Bai greeted and paid his respect while addressing Dai as the mistress. When Lai Nianfan heard how Xiao Bai addressed Dai, he questioned Xiao Bai what nonsense he was spouting. Meanwhile, Dai was extremely overwhelmed as she wondered if it was the god dog and magical artifact. She considered that there were herbs everywhere in that yard, and she wondered if it was normal. Dai reflected that she initially anticipated repaying Lai Nianfan's kindness by accomplishing her transformation and having children for him as well as blessing him forever. However, in light of the current circumstances, she was left wondering how it was repaying Lai Nianfan's generosity when she was obviously riding on his coattails. While Lai Nianfan reprimanded Xiao Bai and stated that he can't call Dai mistress, Dai wondered how it was that such a magically wonderful big shot likes her. Dai inquired Lai Nianfan if she could really stay there, and Lai Nianfan questioned Dai what she was talking about. Lai Nianfan assured that, of course, Dai could stay there, and if she doesn't mind, that will be her house forever. Dai loudly declared that she will serve Lai Nianfan nicely, but Lai Nianfan bent down in front of Dai and gently called her name. He conveyed that Dai doesn't have to serve anyone anymore and that they are equal. Dai was moved when she heard what Lai Nianfan mentioned about being equal, but she expressed that she doesn't know. Lai Nianfan was stunned when he heard what Dai expressed. He felt how pitiful Dai was and that it was the sacrifice for building society. Lai Nianfan assured that Dai shouldn't worry because if she didn't know, he could teach her. A few moments later, Lai Nianfan set up a chessboard on the table. Lai Nianfan suggested that they should start with chess. Dai was completely clueless about what was happening. She inquired Lai Nianfan what it was. Lai Nianfan explained that it was chess and Dai thought that she knew it was chess, but she was wondering why they were playing suddenly. Lai Nianfan stated that the chessboard is an equal system for everyone, regardless of who sits on either side, whether it is the king playing with the homeless person or a teacher with a student. He mentioned that on the side of the board, there will be no more hierarchy, and it was the charm of that game. But Dai responded that she still doesn't know. Lai Nianfan asserted that playing games is the best way to improve relationships, so Dai should look and let him teach her. He placed a black piece on the board. At that moment, Dai's consciousness was brought to the board. Lai Nianfan explained that those were the rules. He mentioned that they should begin with the simplest one. Dai was startled when she heard that. Lai Nianfan placed a white piece on the board where Dai was, and she was minuscule compared to his hand and the white piece. Dai was horrified when she saw what was coming towards her. As Lai Nianfan placed the white piece on the board, Dai's form disappeared. Dai wondered if it was the truth of black and white yin-yang. She admitted that she was too stupid and failed to avoid the calamity during transformation, and it was for that reason that Lai Nianfan used chess to teach her the truth. Dai remarked that Lai Nianfan's generosity towards her continues to grow. Meanwhile, Lai Nianfan stated that as Dai could see, a straight line had been formed by the 5 black pieces, so the black had won the game. He asked Dai if she wanted to try the game, but he was surprised when he saw her and inquired why she was crying. Dai thanked Lai Nianfan and stated that she understood, so she will listen to his advice and try it again, cultivating. Dai expressed her gratitude to Lai Nianfan for his kindness. Lai Nianfan pondered what Dai was doing again, and as he inquired if she didn't believe that everyone should receive equal treatment, he responded that she shouldn't try to shock him all the time, and that she didn't have to bow down to him. Dai mentioned that it is impossible to repay Lai Nianfan's generosity, so she is prepared to serve him for the rest of her life, and she is willing to live in incessant slavery as she could do anything. Something snapped in Lai Nianfan when he heard what Dai stated. Dai's words about serving the master, living in incessant slavery, and doing anything filled Lai Nianfan's mind. Lai Nianfan reflected that he should hold on, as it was a trial from God. He remarked that even though he believes that equality is better if Dai insists, he would be happy to go along with her. On the other hand, Blackie and Xiao Bai observed Lai Nianfan from the sidelines. The two of them wondered if what Lai Nianfan expressed sounded like something a human would say. The next morning, the sun shone brightly in the sky. The forest was at peace and birds were resting by the tree branch. Lai Nianfan mentioned that he should go for a walk and gather some wild vegetables to make dumplings for Dai. Suddenly, he noticed Mingling. Mingling was quietly sitting on the rock outside his house. Lai Nianfan questioned why the scholar was in front of his door. Suddenly, he realized something. Lai Nianfan sensed that Mingling didn't seem to notice him. Suddenly, Mingling acknowledged Lai Nianfan. He quickly greeted Lai Nianfan with a good morning. Lai Nianfan inquired why Mingling was in a daze, and Mingling explained that the couplet outside Lai Nianfan's door had piqued his interest, and he didn't think that he would bother Lai Nianfan. The couplet reads, "I'm here to seek longevity and I've come to the mortal world." Lai Nianfan recalled that when he wrote that sentence, he believed he was experiencing brain fade. He mentioned that Mingling shouldn't take it too seriously because he was just scribbling. But Mingling disagreed and stated that he came there to seek guidance because he was stumped on something. Mingling noted that before they even met, Lai Nianfan had the answer scrawled on the door, and he had learned something. He added that he has gained substantial benefits from that encounter despite its triviality. Mingling stated that as advised by Lai Nianfen, he will diligently observe everything around him, whether it is the ants or the stars. Lai Nianfen quickly went back inside and mentioned that he should stay far from the eye to be far from the heart. Meanwhile, Mingling just noticed that Lai Nianfen went back inside. He smiled and let out a sigh. Mingling went to sit back on the rock. He continued to sit there and stare at Lai Nianfen's door. Mingling sat there as the sun continued to rise up to the sky. A few moments later, the sun began to set. Luo Jinghong announced that he has finally collected all the elixirs in the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty, and that they must be the first ones to give to Lai Nianfen. Suddenly, Luo Shiyu inquired what it was, and Luo Jinghong explained that there was a demon Kai in front. Luo Shiyu indicated that it was the direction in which Lai Nianfen is. Luo Jinghong revealed that the demon Kai was a pair of demon king level monsters, so he was afraid that they were there to find the demon fox's inner pill, and it would be bad if it caused Lai Nianfen any distress. And when Luo Shiyu heard that they were two demon king level monsters, she questioned if it was possible to stop them with their own power. Luo Jinghong stated that they have to try their very best. On the other hand, the wolf demon remarked that he could smell the scent of the nine-tailed fox. He added that she was in Lai Nianfen's yard. The bull demon expressed disbelief that Dai dared to transform, and it was a piece of cake to find it. The wolf demon mentioned that when Dai had 7 tails, she escaped. But at that time, she would not be so fortunate. The bull demon suggested that since Dai was sick, they should take her life at that moment. The two demons began to approach Lai Nianfen's residence. The two of them continued to walk, and they went past Mingliang. Suddenly, the two demons noticed Mingliang and looked back. The two demons stared at Mingliang. Mingliang stared right back at them. The bull demon questioned where the stranger, Mingliang, came from. The wolf demon suggested that the bull demon should never mind because seizing Dai is more important at the moment. Suddenly, Mingliang stated that they should stop. He explained that it was not a place the demons should come to and it was never too late to mend, so they should leave immediately. The two demons were taken aback by what Mingliang mentioned. They thought that a mere mortal that has an ant-like existence was really courting death. Mingliang continued to sit on the rock even when he saw that the demon's attack was coming at him. He remained unfazed as the powerful attack barely missed him and went past him. Mingling just stared back at the demons and remained silent. The bull demon scoffed and stated that Mingling got scared, while the wolf demon remarked that Mingling was really crazy. The two of them turned around to continue approaching Lai Nianfen's residence. Mingling let out a sigh of disappointment. He mentioned that they were stubborn monsters. Mingling stated that it was the holy land of Lai Nianfen. He added that the two filthy monsters have no right to defile it. The fox demon revealed that he was thinking of sparing Mingling's life, but he kept on babbling like a fly. He asked Mingling if he wanted to die and stated that he should tell it straight to his face. Mingling just walked gracefully to avoid the fox demon's attack without even looking at it. He stared straight at the two demons. On the other hand, the two demons wondered how it was possible. Mingling stood in front of the demons and faced them. He declared that ashes to ashes and dust to dust. Suddenly, dark clouds began to gather and a powerful lightning bolt struck the area. The bull demon protested, while the fox demon admitted that he was wrong and requested that Mingling spare his life. But Mingling created a powerful tornado of aura and struck the two demons. A few moments later, smoke wafted out of the demons' bodies as they got flattened on the ground. The two demons were trembling in pain on the ground, and they reverted to their original animal forms. Mingling remarked that it was not easy for an animal to cultivate into an excellent monster, and it was too bad that they went the wrong way. He stated that they shall start over again. Mingling looked up with pensive eyes. He glanced at Lai Nianfen's door one more time. Mingling bowed in front of Lai Nianfen's door. He walked away and left the animals behind. Luo Shiyu and Luo Jinghong arrived at Lai Nianfen's residence. Luo Jinghong inquired Luo Shiyu if she saw what happened, and Luo Shiyu stated that she saw it. Luo Shiyu mentioned that Mingling took down the Demon King level monsters in just 2 seconds. The two of them were startled when Mingling continued to walk towards them. Mingling inquired if they were both Lai Nianfen's guests. Luo Shiyu and Luo Jinghong both respectfully greeted Mingling. Mingling expressed that he was envious of all of them for being able to be Lai Nianfen's honored guests, because he was never invited in, and perhaps it was because he was dim-witted. He stated that each of them should appreciate it, and Luo Jinghong noted that they will keep that in mind. Suddenly, Luo Shiyu noticed that Mingling was barefoot. She inquired where Mingling was going, and Luo Jinghong remarked that she shouldn't be rude. Mingling declared that he intends to follow the journey to the west story all the way to the west, and while gaining a better understanding of heaven and earth, he will spread the truth behind it. Luo Shiyu questioned why Mingling was not wearing shoes if he intended to go so far. Mingling explained that by bringing both feet into contact with the earth, he could improve his integration between heaven and earth. In an instant, Mingling disappeared. Luo Shiyu mentioned that Mingling is a weird person, but Luo Jinghong remarked that perhaps, unlike them, Mingling was not practicing cultivation. Luo Jinghong suggested that Mingling could be practicing the truth. A few moments later, Lai Nianfen was surprised when he heard what Luo Jinghong and Luo Shiyu mentioned. He inquired if they met Mingling at the door. Lai Nianfen questioned if Mingling really spent the entire day sitting in front of the door, and Luo Jinghong stated that he believed that Mingling was responsible for revising Journey to the West for Lai Nianfen, so he was truly gifted. But Lai Nianfen declared that Mingling was just a nerd. Lai Nianfen remarked that Mingling continues to ask about longevity every time he opens his mouth, and he has explained it very clearly. but he wonders why Mingling is unable to understand it. Holding the elixir storage, he noted that he still hasn't expressed his gratitude for the herbs they sent him, but he noticed Luo Jinghong and Luo Shiyu's reactions. Lai Nianfen inquired what happened to them all. Luo Jinghong and Luo Shiyu were both astonished when they heard Lai Nianfen mention the truth of longevity. They believed that what Mingling learned from Lai Nianfen was the truth of longevity, so it was no wonder it was great while Lai Nianfen questioned them if it was their immortal cultivation world space storage device and stated that it was incredible. Suddenly, Lin Qingyun called Lai Nianfen, and as she inquired if he was at home, she remarked that she noticed that the door wasn't shut, so she walked right in. Lin Qingyun was surprised when she saw Lai Nianfen was holding a storage bracelet. She looked at the storage bracelet intently to confirm what it was. Lin Qingyun was surprised when she recognized the space jade bracelet. She considered that the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty even brought out their underwear there, and fortunately, she also had the most precious elixir from the Lingyan Immortal Pavilion with her when she left. Lai Nianfen mentioned that Lin Qingyun was there, and Lin Qingyun explained that she was there to give him the elixirs she promised. She proudly brought her hand close to her chest. Tiny twinkling items started to surround Lin Qingyun's hand. Lin Qingyun extended her hand, and the items expanded and floated around her. Both Luo Jinghong and Luo Shi were blinded by the light the items created. Lin Qingyun stated that it was not bad and that it was the top-level elixir. She explained that the elixirs of the immortal cultivation world are divided into primal level, mid-level, advanced level, and top level, and the top-level grade is the congenital elixirs. Further up is the innate spiritual root, which is only found in heaven. Lin Qingyun added that people who could take out the strength of those 16 elixirs at once could be counted on the fingers. Meanwhile, Luo Jinghong and Luo Shiyu believed that Lin Qingyun was in pain until she vomited blood. Lai Nianfen was amazed, and he remarked that it was like those props in RPG games, and they were pretty. Suddenly, Bai Wuchen and Zhao arrived and mentioned that they had brought some too. Zhao stated that the heritage of their sword sect is not comparable to the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty and Lingyan Immortal Pavilion, and the elixir they have is insignificant in comparison. He explained that he brought a seed and that his patriarch went to an ancient secret realm and got it by luck. Luo Jinghong inquired Zhao if he was right that the generation of Zhao's patriarch was at least 1,000 years old, while Luo Shiyu questioned what kind of seed could survive that long. Zhao replied that he didn't know. He noted that when he was young, he was very naughty, and he noticed that the seed is impervious to swords as well as the elements of water and fire. Lai Nianfen remarked that it was interesting because although it appears to be in a state of fake death, it was in fact alive and well. He inquired Zhao if he was really giving him that and stated that he really wanted to try to revive it, to which Zhao replied that he could do whatever he liked. Lai Nianfen believed that it was a seed that had lived for hundreds of years and was neither scared of fire nor of water, and he is a person who has been assigned the title of ultimate farmer by the system, so he should sow the seed and watch it grow. He suddenly recalled something. Lai Nianfen mentioned that they have brought so many treasures, and he has prepared some insignificant gifts for them all. Everyone was immediately moved when they heard about the gifts. A few moments later, Lai Nianfen came back. He stated that the tea tree in his backyard has grown to maturity, and although it wasn't much, he planted it himself, so it's fresh and healthy. Lai Nianfen handed the packs of teas to the cultivators. Luo Jinghong and the others thanked Lai Nianfen for the tea and mentioned that they were leaving. Suddenly, all their smiling faces turned dark. Each of them assumed that the tea was a valuable thing, and it would be a tragedy to have it coveted. The 5 cultivators quickly left Lai Nianfen's house. Lai Nianfen remarked that immortal cultivators could fly so fast like an airplane, which is amazing. Dai believed she heard Lai Nianfen mention Fei chicken, and she wondered if it was a chicken. Lai Nianfen laughed and teased that Dai's dad joke is cold. He added that Dai arrived just in time because Lin Qingyun and the others had brought a lot of elixirs. Lai Nianfen explained that he has picked the ones that could help with Dai's injury and will plant the remainder in his backyard because those medicines are gleaming and must look fantastic when used as a decoration. Dai was confused when she heard what Lai Nianfen mentioned about planting the elixirs and using them as a decoration. Lai Nianfen urged Dai to look at how beautiful they were. Dai seemed to have recognized the elixirs Lai Nianfen was showing to her. She pointed out that those are the top-level elixirs, and the rise and fall of such elixirs is entirely dependent on God's will. She warned that those elixirs will be damaged if the planting method is wrong. But Lai Nianfen just laughed and teased that she was underestimating him. Lai Nianfen reminded Dai not to judge a book by its cover because he has lived there for 5 years and grows all his own food, such as white cabbage and potatoes. Dai wondered how Lai Nianfen could compare the cabbage and potato with the elixir. Lai Nianfen invited Dai to come because he will let her see his vegetable farm. Dai speculated that although Lai Nianfen is not immortal, she doesn't know if he is a simple person or a silly person for comparing those elixirs with a cabbage. She stepped into Lai Nianfen's garden. Dai was caught off guard by the overwhelming pressure of the air that greeted her. The pressure was so strong that Dai had to steady herself against the wall. Dai questioned herself if it was the Taoist flow. She realized that it was just the remnants of a Taoist flow. But she recalled that according to legend, when one fully comprehended the truth and achieved an otherworldly state of mind, the traces of his Taoist flow would be left behind in the world and would be referred to as the remnants of Taoist flow. Dai reflected that the Taoist flow in the backyard was slightly different from the one on Lai Nianfen, so she pondered what was there and how come such strong traces of Taoist flow were there. While Dai was contemplating what the level of the person who left that Taoist flow trace was, Lai Nianfen called her. Not getting any response from Dai, Lai Nianfen called her again. He wondered why she stopped talking and if she was not feeling well again, To which Dai replied no. Dai apologized and explained that she was too shocked. Lai Nianfen laughed and remarked that despite his lack of proficiency in other aspects, he is confident in his abilities in that backyard. He noted that there have been a lot of guests recently, but he has never taken them to the backyard, so after the dogshit system, Dai was the first one to enter there. Lai Nianfen instructed Dai to look because it was where he was going to plant the 16 elixirs, and he inquired about what she thought about it. He queried if she liked it. Meanwhile, Dai pondered if system was the Immortal's name, and as Lai Nianfen repeated his query if she liked it, Dai concluded that it wasn't the level of an immortal at all and that it is a level far above immortal. Lai Nianfen told Dai not to daydream. He encouraged Dai to come on. Dai was surprised when she saw the vegetables Lai Nianfen was growing. She was stunned when she saw the elixir level cabbages. Dai also saw the elixir level potatoes. She also saw the elixir level watermelons. Dai realized that it was no wonder that even the most ordinary of objects could take on a divine quality in that environment, which is filled with Taoist flow. Suddenly, Dai noticed the pond. Her attention was caught by the ripples at the surface of the pond. Dai speculated if there were fish in the pond. Suddenly, a tortoise jumped out of the water. Dai wondered aloud if that was a tortoise. Lai Nianfen confirmed that it was a tortoise, and the fishmonger gave it to him. He explained that it was called the Old Tortoise, and when he brought it there, it was only the size of his palm, and it grew so big in less than 1 month. Dai was astonished when she heard that it grew in 1 month. Lai Nianfen admitted that he was concerned that there might be monsters in the pond, so he took the tortoise and put it in to see if there were any, but he was so foolish because there was no way there could be monsters in his yard. But on the other hand, Dai acknowledged that she was the one who was foolish because she was actually worried that such an immortal entity would be unable to properly plant the elixirs. Dai recognized that her vision was lacking, and she questioned how she was qualified to doubt Lai Nianfen. She reminded herself that she must always remember that Lai Nianfen's idea is always right in the future. A few moments later, Lai Nianfen successfully planted the seed in the ground. Lai Nianfen excitedly watered it. Dai inquired what it was, and Lai Nianfen explained that it was the seed given by Zhao, which is said to be thousands of years old, and he didn't know if it could still germinate, so they should try it. Lai Nianfen expressed that he is looking forward to it and what it will grow into. Lai Nianfen's courtyard was abundant and peaceful. Suddenly, a colorful cloud hovered over the area. Riding on it was the Lin Immortal Palace Saintess, Qin Manhwa. Qin Manhwa's disciple wondered if they were going to catch the nine-tailed demon fox too. Qin Manhwa denied. She explained that unlike the blood of other mortal creatures, the celestial fox's blood is ancient and unique, and a small amount of the nine-tailed fox's blood is said to cleanse and sharpen the marrow, as well as give nutrition to the mortals. She continued that it is more difficult for a fox to have 9 tails than it is for a mortal to become immortal, and many people believe that the rare, nine-tailed fox was extinct after thousands of years of not seeing one in the wild. Qin Manhwa added that out of nowhere, the nine-tailed demon fox reappeared and even transformed so it would continually be coveted by greedy people. She emphasized who would do it if the Lin Immortal Palace didn't take the initiative to protect it, and her disciple understood that they were there to protect the nine-tailed demon fox, so she will try her best. Qin Manhwa agreed that the disciple was right, and only if the nine-tailed demon fox stays in Lin Immortal Palace will she be protected. She reiterated that only they, the Lin Immortal Palace, have the ability to keep the nine-tailed demon fox safe. Qin Manhwa's disciple noticed the gate of the Qianlong city. She identified that it was the palace of the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty, so they have arrived. Qin Manhwa declared that since they have arrived on the territory of the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty, they should inform the landlord first, so they must first visit Luo Jinghong. She decided they would consult Luo Jinghong about the appearance of the nine-tailed celestial fox on Earth and its whereabouts. Luo Jinghong contemplated what he should do at the moment. He remarked that if the situation persists, those immortal cultivators will eventually find their way to Lai Nianfen's courtyard. Zhang Ziyu inquired how long the array created by the Lingyan Immortal Pavilion in the 10,000 sword sect could last. Luo Jinghong replied that it was almost reaching its limit, and not only will the immortal cultivators rush there, but the small and big groups of monsters like wolves and tigers will also hurry there. He added that they don't even know if it was a male or female, and everyone was adamant about devouring the nine-tailed celestial fox alive. Luo Jinghong wondered what they should do about it if it bothered Lai Nianfen. Suddenly, Luo Jinghong's attendant called him and informed him that the Yuanying cultivator from the Lin Immortal Palace was there. Both Zhang Ziyu and Luo Jinghong were surprised when they heard about the Yuanying cultivator. Luo Jinghong commented that even the people from the Lin Immortal Palace came. He queried what he was waiting for and urged that he should hurry up and welcome the cultivator. Luo Jinghong apologized to Zhang Ziyu for making her brew the tea on her own and suggested that the southern borders offer the best black tea, so they should use that. Zhang Ziyu replied that she understands, but she wondered where Luo Jinghong put that tea. On the other hand, Qin Manhwa landed on the rooftop. She looked so graceful as she landed. One of Luo Jinghong's attendants wondered if Qin Manhwa was a fairy, and another attendant chided that he is an idiot because she was the saintess of Lin Immortal Palace, Qin Manhwa. When the attendant heard that Qin Manhwa was a saintess too, he pondered who was better compared to the saintess of Lingyan Immortal Pavilion, and the other attendant explained that Lin Immortal Palace people are entitled to refer to themselves as Lin Immortal, and it was not a sign of egotism. The attendant added that they are only one step away from being immortal, and it is one of the most powerful forces in the world of cultivation. Luo Jinghong remained silent as he anticipated Qin Manhwa's next action. Qin Manhwa expressed her hope that Luo Jinghong is in good health. Luo Jinghong inquired what the purpose of her visit was. Qin Manhwa replied that Luo Jinghong clearly knows why she was there and that she came for the nine-tailed celestial fox. Luo Jinghong was stunned when he heard what Qin Manhwa stated. He remarked that in 1,000 years, the nine-tailed celestial fox has not appeared, and that piece of news is unusual, so he is afraid that it is a rumor and it is untrustworthy. Qin Mannion narrowed her eyes at Luo Jinghong. She insisted no and explained that the Silver Moon Demon King broke the news at that time and he has been pursuing the Fox clan for an extended period, and is familiar with them, so it should be reliable. Qin Mannion suspected if he hid it on purpose and if it was possible that he already knew the location of the nine-tailed celestial fox and chose not to tell her. Luo Jinghong realized that he was too careless and wondered if everyone in the Lin Immortal Palace was so outspoken. He quickly changed the subject and suggested that they have a cup of tea while conversing. Meanwhile, Zhang Zhu was at the treasure pavilion. She relayed that Luo Jinghong instructed to serve Qin Mannion with the finest tea. Zhang Zhu saw a tea on display. She confirmed that it was the right one, the Southern Frontier's tribute. Zhang Zhu declared that she will send it right away. But suddenly, she noticed the bag of tea that Lai Nianfen gifted to Luo Jinghong. Zhang Zhu wondered what it was. She was surprised when a bright light escaped from the bag as soon as she opened it. The tea leaves in the bag looked so vibrant and were sparkling. Zhang Zhu pondered what kind of tea it was and admitted that she had never seen it before. She looked so excited as she looked at the bag of tea that was from Lai Nianfen. Zhang Zhu looked glum when she looked at the Southern Frontier's tribute. She concluded that she knew it. On the other hand, Luo Jinghong queried what the purpose of the Lin Immortal Palace in pursuing the nine-tailed celestial fox was, and Qin Mannion explained that the nine-tailed celestial fox is the world's closest creature to the immortal sand. It also has the best chance of becoming one. Qin Mannion mentioned that they would like to ask the nine-tailed celestial fox to join the Lin Immortal Palace, and they will do their best to cultivate her and help her become immortal. Luo Jinghong responded that he understood. Qin Mannion reassured that Luo Jinghong shouldn't worry because they don't have any bad intentions towards the nine-tailed celestial fox, but there are just some situations to which Luo Jinghong interjected if she was talking about the road. Qin Mannion confirmed yes and clarified that they don't know when the road to immortality has been cut off, and no one, not even Lin Immortal Palace, has been able to attain immortality for a long time. She emphasized that the appearance of the nine-tailed fox is very important to them because if the road to immortality could be restored, it would be a blessing to thousands of immortal cultivators in their world. Luo Jinghong acknowledged that he assumed so too, that the road to immortality had been cut off. But he reflected that 2 days ago, he met an entity who was more extraordinary than the Immortals, so if the road to immortality was already cut off, he pondered where Lai Nianfen came from. Luo Jinghong wondered if Qin Mannion would still dare to approach if he told her that the nine-tailed celestial fox is by Lai Nianfen's side. But he reasoned that Lin Immortal Palace is still incomparable to Lai Nianfen. Noticing Luo Jinghong's expression, Qin Mannion urged that he be serious, and she mentioned that the 2 Demon King level subordinates of the Silver Moon Demon King disappeared while searching for the nine-tailed celestial fox, so he was now sending more people to look for her. Qin Mannion warned that if the Silver Moon Demon King found the nine-tailed celestial fox first and swallowed her demon pill, not only would there be no nine-tailed celestial foxes left in the world at that time, but they would even be incapable of dealing with the Silver Moon Demon King. She insisted that Luo Jinghong take the matter seriously, and Luo Jinghong assured that he understood what she was saying. As Luo Jinghong was about to continue, he was cut off when Zhang Zhu invited Qin Mannion to have some tea. Qin Mannion thanked Zhang Zhu. Luo Jinghong explained that it was a rare variety of tea, and given the opportunity that day, he would like to invite Qin Mannion to taste it as well. Qin Mannion suggested that they should let her have a sip then. She was surprised when she took a closer look at the tea. The tea was vibrant and sparkling. Qin Mannion complimented that it was indeed a good tea. Luo Jinghong laughed as he concluded that his tea collection is indeed extraordinary because even Qin Mannion admires it. But when he looked at the tea, he realized that it was not the tea in his collection. Luo Jinghong wondered if it could be the tea given by Lai Nianfen. Qin Mannion wondered what is the most important point in the process of cultivation. She was suddenly transported into a garden. Qin Mannion concluded that the most important point was not about spiritual strength and not about whether one is gifted or not. She noticed the falling leaves and glanced over her shoulder. Qin Mannion looked up at the sky. Her eyes went wide when she saw what was in the sky. Qin Mannion realized that the most important point was about understanding the truth. She remarked that only by understanding the truth could one break through the bottleneck. Qin Mannion mentioned that what represents a bottleneck for most of the immortal cultivators is their lifetime. She woke back up in reality. Qin Mannion wondered what kind of tea it was and observed that it only required a cup of tea to get a glimpse of the truth, and the best tea of Lin Immortal Palace pales in comparison to that one. She called Luo Jinghong and indicated that she wanted to inquire about the tea. Qin Mannion pondered why Luo Jinghong had such a scowling expression. Luo Jinghong demanded where she found the tea. Zhang Zhu stated that she found it in the corner of the treasure trove, and she was worried that Luo Jinghong tucked it so deep that he forgot he even had it. But Luo Jinghong explained that he hid it there on purpose. Luo Jinghong complained that Zhang Zhu was the black sheep of their family. He explained that the tea was a gift from Lai Nianfen, and he was reluctant to drink it because it is a priceless tea. Luo Jinghong emphasized that it was his lifeline. Qin Mannion just calmly watched Luo Jinghong while he had a breakdown. She reassured Luo Jinghong that there was no need for him to be frantic because it was indeed a good tea, and Lin Immortal Palace will always remember his kind deed. But Luo Jinghong inwardly grumbled that no one cares and Qin Mannion should get lost. Qin Mannion commented that several immortal dynasties have been hoping for years to establish a partnership with Lin Immortal Palace, but only Luo Jinghong had the ability to exchange those kinds of valuables. She suggested that Luo Jinghong give her more of that tea for the elders of the Lin Immortal Palace to taste it, and added that she is sure that the entire Lin Immortal Palace will be impressed by the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty. Qin Mannion assured Luo Jinghong that Lin Immortal Palace will not steal his belongings and that they are willing to trade something else in exchange, but Luo Jinghong simply snapped at what she implied in a fit of rage. Luo Jinghong exploded if she still wanted to trade when she drank his lifeline. He kicked Qin Mannion out of the room. Qin Mannion's disciple inquired what happened and how the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty could act so rudely to her. Qin Mannion emphasized that, like she mentioned, those celestial dynasties who sought to gain the favors of Lin Immortal Palace lined up from the south to north, and she wondered about the whereabouts of the nine-tailed demon fox, but the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty decided to intentionally keep it a secret. She speculated that there must be a big secret hidden there. Qin Mannion's disciple queried about the big secret, and Qin Mannion recalled that Luo Jinghong mentioned a master lie earlier, and added that the precious tea was given by him. Qin Mannion ordered that they should send all the informants of Lin Immortal Palace out to find Master Lai immediately. She scoffed at what kind of secret the mere Qianlong Celestial Dynasty could hide in front of her. Suddenly, Luo Shiyu advised Qin Mannion to think twice. Qin Mannion immediately recognized Luo Shiyu. Luo Shiyu explained that she knew that once Qin Mannion began to do something, she would continue to do so until she achieved the desired result, and since she was aware of Lai Nianfin's presence, it was only a matter of time before she discovered his identity. Qin Mannion conceded that indeed Luo Shiyu knows her well, but Luo Shiyu countered that it was just that since Qin Mannion tasted the tea, as she might guess, Lai Nianfin is not her average person. Qin Mannion fell silent, and she listened intently to Luo Shiyu. Luo Shiyu warned that if Qin Mannion acts rashly, not only will the Qianlong Celestial Dynasty be destroyed, but Lin Immortal Palace won't escape it either. Qin Mannion doubted if that bluff wasn't a little extreme, but Luo Shiyu confessed that, to be honest, the nine-tailed celestial fox has also been rescued from the catastrophe by Lai Nianfin, so Qin Mannion doesn't need to worry anymore. When Qin Mannion heard that Lai Nianfin saved a person from the catastrophe, she questioned how that was possible, what the level of that big shot was, and if Lai Nianfin was an immortal. Luo Shiyu clarified that Lai Nianfin is not an immortal but an entity beyond immortal. A few moments later, Luo Shiyu and Qin Mannion went to the bustling town. One of the men walking down the street was stunned and was not looking where he was walking. He was so distracted that he bumped into the chest of a lady. The lady snapped if he was blind and if he had lost his mind. The man admitted yes and that he had lost his mind. Distracted by the beauty of Qin Mannion and Luo Shiyu, the man exclaimed what person would remain unscathed if they encountered a fairy. Qin Mannion remarked that those were all ignorant and vulgar people, and she questioned why she brought her there. Luo Shiyu comforted Qin Mannion shouldn't be mad because Lai Nianfin despises being disturbed. Hence, it is inappropriate to bring her to visit. She promised that Qin Mannion will be able to understand when she sees it. Qin Mannion reflected that for more than 1,000 years, the path to immortality has been shut, yet Luo Shiyu asserted that there is a person beyond immortals, and if that was true, it will have a profound effect on the world of immortals. She speculated if there was another person and what kind of person he is. Luo Shiyu informed her that he is a book boy of Lai Nianfin. A few moments later, they arrived at the tea house. The tea house was filled with customers. At the center of the stage, there was an empty seat. Qin Mannion wondered if they were listening to storytelling. She questioned why Luo Shiyu didn't go to the private room on the second floor when she is a princess. Luo Shiyu stated that when listening to that gentleman's storytelling, the socioeconomic status of the listener is irrelevant, and Qin Mannion will understand after listening. Qin Mannion noticed Minglang walking past them. Minglang was barefoot, and his feet were filled with bruises. Qin Mannion was surprised when she realized where Minglang was heading. Minglang calmly walked up the stage. He declared that they will continue the story from the previous chapter. Minglang introduced that they will talk about Sun Wukong. He revealed that it would be about how Sun Wukong wreaked havoc in heaven. Minglang stated that Sun Wukong ate all the peaches in the peach forest. He explained that the Jade Emperor was enraged, so he sent the 4 Heavenly Kings, along with Heavenly King Lai and Prince Nesha, to raise a force of 100,000 heavenly soldiers and instructed that they should go to Mount Huiguo and surround Sun Wukong, catch him, and dispose of him. Luo Shiyu listened calmly to Minglang's story while Qin Mannion's eyes were wide in surprise. Qin Mannion was too stunned and focused on the story. Slowly, the lights hanging on the ceiling scattered its spark. 2 sparks collided with each other for a moment and proceeded to separate ways. Those sparks materialized into the images of the fight between Prince Nesha and Sun Wukong. Prince Nesha, along with the Heavenly Kings, charged towards Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong swung his staff at his enemies. His staff extended and grew, and it eliminated the group of enemies in one hit. Bodies of the Heavenly Kings were thrown in the air along with the concrete debris. Qin Mannion speculated if it was the immortal world. She contemplated that with 100,000 heavenly soldiers and 100,000 immortals, their ancestors who became immortals and seniors may be one of the 100,000 heavenly soldiers. Qin Mannion reflected that they spent their entire lives only trying to become immortals, but in the end, they exhausted their lives and got nothing, and in the Heaven Palace, someone turned into an immortal by eating peaches. She realized that although she considered herself superior, in the eyes of the immortals, she was just an ant. Qin Mannion recognized that she hadn't given much consideration to how vast the earth is, and if she continues to be aloof and haughty, she is scared that she will blow the opportunity to become immortal in that lifetime. She remarked that even a book boy has such insights and wondered what sort of existence Lai Nianfin is. A few moments later, Minglang's performance at the tea house ended. Minglang was packing his scroll so he could leave. Noticing Qin Manyan, Minglang inquired what the matter was. Qin Manyan explained that she is a little girl who had doubts in her heart and hoped that Minglang could enlighten her. Minglang replied that he is an ordinary person, a poor scholar, and Qin Manyan is a cultivator, so calling him a senior doesn't make sense, but if she has questions, they should discuss it. Qin Manyan politely inquired if she could know why the path to immortals was cut off. She wondered if it was still possible for them to become immortals through cultivation in that lifetime. Minglang fell silent for a moment as he studied Qin Manyan. He suggested that Qin Manyan should take a look. Mingling probed if she imagined that those mortals who get up to work at sunrise and retire at sunset have a chance to become immortal. Qin Manyan explained that there are 3 elements of immortality. One is spirituality, the other is talent, and the third is understanding of truth. And ordinary mortals tend to become caught up in the rat race of daily life, losing their spirituality and so losing their qualifications. She realized when she uttered the word qualifications. Mingling confirmed yes, that it was qualifications. He explained that heaven and earth have their own rules, and only those who make the rules decide who is immortal and who is mortal, so there was no way mortals could understand. But Mingling remarked that there is a story that records the wisdom of all those avenues, so if Qin Manyan listens to Lai Nianfan's story Journey to the West, she will definitely have some insights. All Qin Manyan could say in response was to address Lai Nianfan as Master Lai. She confirmed that it was exactly that, Master Lai. Evening came, and Lai Nianfan's courtyard was peaceful as always. Dai was walking alone in the forest. Suddenly, her sister jumped at her. Dai was surprised when she saw her sister. Dai's sister exclaimed that she missed her so much. She queried if the mortal didn't bully her, if she was feeling better, if it was more difficult to sleep in a human bed than a cave, and if she was used to it. Dai repeatedly assured that her sister shouldn't worry. Addressing Lai Nianfan as her master, Dai affirmed that Lai Nianfan is very nice to her, so her sister shouldn't have to worry. But Dai's sister was enraged when she heard how Dai addressed Lai Nianfan. She interrogated if she didn't marry Lai Nianfan to repay her kindness, and if being a concubine is preferable to being a pet if she cannot be a wife. The sister protested that Dai is a noble 9-tailed fox, but Dai explained that as an immortal, Lai Nianfan treats her with utmost courtesy, so recognizing him as her master is the greatest blessing she has ever had in her life. The sister lamented that it was over and that her sister had been trained. Dai revealed that she brought her sister something good. The sister queried what it was. Dai clarified that it was an apple. The sister pondered what kind of fox likes to eat apples. Noticing her sister's reaction, Dai insisted that the apples grown by Lai Nianfan are not ordinary apples, and she will know after one bite. The sister looked at the apple and was reluctant. She started to take a bite. Meanwhile, Lai Nianfan noticed a light in the forest. The light was so powerful that it illuminated the mountains. The light was coming from Dai's sister. The sister wondered if it was a magical fruit and why there was such a strong spiritual power in it. Without answering her sister's query, she requested that she leave after eating, and she explained that she gave Lai Nianfan's apple to her sister without his consent, so it will be awful if he discovers it. Dai promised that she will see her sister next time. Suddenly, Lai Nianfan appeared behind and called Dai. Dai was startled, and she quickly turned to look behind her. Lai Nianfan inquired what she was doing there. Lai Nianfan inquired whom she was addressing. She stuttered as she attempted to respond. She apologized and admitted that she handed the apple he gave her to her younger sister. He mentioned her younger sister. She explained that her sister was a 6-tailed little fox, and although she looks stupid, she is very obedient and kind, so she would never bite. And she came there because she was worried about her. He questioned whether it was a fox. He wondered why she fed the fox an apple and mentioned that a fox is a carnivorous animal, so it cannot satisfy physiological needs without eating meat. She should remember next time to bring her some meat. They still have the tiger and leopard given by Bai Wuchen and the others. She wondered if he was not angry with her. He clarified why he would be angry and remarked that he thinks girls who like cute animals are also cute. He also rescued a little fox with several tails a few years ago. He questioned whether it was the same fox as her sister. She appeared surprised. He remarked that it is said that foxes understand human nature, so maybe she came to him to repay his kindness, perhaps wanting to become a beautiful girl to serve him or something. He laughed and clarified that he was just joking, but they, girls, are really interesting, always liking to treat small animals as siblings. Dai was speechless. She realized that he must have seen through her true self, and he must be giving her hints by making those remarks, to let her sister also transform into human form and come to serve him with her. She pondered if that would be the case. Her sister would receive the greatest blessing. On the other hand, Qin Manyan was at the palace. Luo Shiyu summoned her. She declared that since she already knows that Lai Nianfan is invincible, they should put the 9-tailed celestial fox investigation on hold. Qin Manyan questioned what was the reason they cultivated to become immortals. Luo Shiyu explained that of course it was to become immortal, and she wondered why she raised such a question. Qin Manyan realized that, until that moment, the path to immortality had been cut off, therefore it was a dream. But at that time, Master Lai appeared. There is divine will in the dark. Jin Chanzi has been ranked above the immortal class, but for the transcendence of the world, he reincarnated as a Tang monk, ascetic all the way to the west. That Master Lai must be a Tang monk in that world, and he came there to save them, sentient beings. Luo Shiyu questioned if that was the case. She suggested that Journey to the West is the oracle he conveyed to the world as he tells the world that he has come. and Luo Shiyu remarked that it seemed to make sense. Qin Mannion wondered why she didn't take her to him, and questioned if she was still going to see him after everything she revealed and if she didn't mention that he likes quietness. Qin Mannion declared that she knows everything will come to an end if he isn't pleased, but in the end, it was what she had been working towards throughout her life, immortality. Luo Shiyu reminded that she shouldn't involve them when the world is coming to an end. Half an hour later, Luo Shiyu brought Qin Mannion to Lai Nianfen's house. Qin Mannion remarked that it was an unpretentious and ordinary little yard. Luo Shiyu informed her to let her make something clear: she is only allowed to meet him once, and if he is displeased, she has to leave right away. Qin Mannion assured her that she shouldn't worry because she has a sense of propriety. Their footsteps could be heard from the front yard as they walked towards the door. At that time, in the backyard, Dai appeared troubled. They were playing chess. Lai Nianfen looked at her with anticipation. She wondered if she could put it there. He questioned if she wouldn't lose right away if she put it to the left. She apologized. He urged her to think again. She questioned if she could put it there. He responded that she can't put it there either. She immediately apologized. He wondered how come she has practiced for so many days but still has made no progress at all. He emphasized that she has to think about it. As she apologized profusely, Blackie concluded that he deserved to be single. Suddenly, he heard footsteps. He and Xiao Bai wondered if it was a guest. Luo Shiyu greeted Lai Nianfen and introduced Qin Mannion as her friend. He was speechless. He speculated if it was cosplay. He remarked that Qin Mannion's attire is quite interesting, while Luo Shiyu apologized that they were bothering him again and hoped that he would not mind them. He questioned why she mentioned that she was a bother and explained that he always welcomes her there because he is addicted to chess at the moment, so he wanted to find a playmate. Luo Shiyu and Qin Mannion immediately urged that he inform them if he has any orders. He repeatedly clarified that it was not that extreme. There was no way he could give orders, but he has had a little trouble recently, and he wondered if they have any solution to it. They reassured him that he is free to give them any order. He advised that they should stop teasing him. Monsters and cultivators actually seemed to be flying around there frequently lately, making noises. It was so scary that he didn't even dare to go out. They are in a prominent position, and he asked if they could help him find out what was going on. Luo Shiyu guessed that it was those who were looking for the nine-tailed celestial fox, and with the power of the 10,000 sword sects in Lingyan Immortal Pavilion, they could only block the fox hunters with low cultivation. It is indeed difficult to drive away all the cultivators with their strength. Qin Mannion concluded that she thinks Lin Immortal Palace needs to stand out and solve that problem, to which Luo Shiyu agreed. Qin Mannion realized that he remarked that he was looking forward to their visit, and it turned out that he had long expected that Lin Immortal Palace would come to visit, and was waiting for her. She assured him that he should rest assured. She guaranteed that when he goes out the next day, he will never see them again. He thanked her but mentioned that the way she phrased it sounds a little scary. Suddenly, Dai came out of the backyard. She questioned if he had a guest. He acknowledged her presence. Qin Mannion speculated if she could be the nine-tailed celestial fox. Dai was sparkling in her eyes. Qin Mannion pondered if Luo Shiyu had not seen Dai and why she was more surprised than she was. Luo Shiyu explained that the nine-tailed celestial fox has suffered a catastrophe and lost all her cultivation base, and she questioned how she got to the savor stage in such a short period of time. Qin Mannion was surprised that Dai went from death to savor in a matter of days, and she contemplated if cultivating immortality wasn't just around the corner. She decided that she didn't want to be a saintess anymore, and she is fine with being a foot-washing girl at the master's house. Suddenly, Lai Nianfen remarked that he was just playing chess with Dai earlier, and wondered if they were both interested in a round. They were taken aback by his invitation. He explained that Dai is new to chess, so they should play and demonstrate to her. Qin Mannion agreed okay while reflecting that she had been a smart girl since she was a child, and she could play zither, chess, write calligraphy, and read well. There are only a few people who could beat her in the Lin Immortal Palace. She speculated if it would make him unhappy if she accidentally defeated him and resolved that she should just fake some mistakes and let him be. A few moments later, she saw that the words heaven and earth were engraved in the chessboard. She questioned if it was a chess game or a debate on the truth. Lai Nianfen invited her to move first. She gracefully agreed. She picked up a white chess piece. She placed it on the board. She was startled when she was transported to a different space. She wondered where it was. She saw Lai Nianfen's gigantic hand placing his black piece towards her. She was too stunned to move. He slammed the piece against the board. She was squashed by the piece. The game progressed, and he was contemplating deeply about his next move. He placed his black piece on the board again, but the way he placed it doesn't seem ordinary, as a powerful aura surged out of the piece. Meanwhile, in the other space, Qin Mannion was dodging each of his moves. She realized that it wasn't a chess game but a learning to understand heaven and earth. He demonstrated the truth of heaven and earth in front of her eyes, and it was a great opportunity. She murmured that she didn't know how much of her weak body could carry that knowledge. But she is the saintess of Lin Immortal Palace, so she must persevere. More black pieces were thrown at her. She made her move and put her white piece on the board. Suddenly, blood spurted out of her mouth. Lai Nianfen inquired inquired if she was alright. She admitted that he is very good at chess, and she is amazed by his skills. She was a little girl who was always proud of her own skills and assumed she was good at chess, but after seeing his skills, she realized that she had only seen a part of the world and knew nothing about it. She determined no one in that world could become an opponent for him, and she can't hold it anymore, so she thanked him for his advice. Both Lai Nianfen and Luo Shiyu got worried for her. Luo Shiyu considered if her acting was far too excessive in order to impress Lai Nianfen. On the other hand, Lai Nianfen reflected that she only made 11 moves, and she admitted defeat, which he couldn't understand. Dai exclaimed that she was able to make 11 moves. As expected of the Saintess of Lin Immortal Palace, she really is great, and she is amazed. But Lai Nianfen retorted how that was great and questioned if even the formation of zygotes could do better. Luo Shiyu concluded that Qin Manyan misjudged the situation at that time because he was only concerned with having fun while playing chess. It is disrespectful to fake the play deliberately, and she flattered the wrong side of him so she would seize the opportunity. She proposed that they play around, and he accepted okay. She remarked that playing chess is a compulsory course for the royal family, and she has practiced it since she was a child, so she believes that she is able to make him satisfied. Lai Nianfen doubted if she was that great and asserted that he had to take her seriously then. He made his move and placed his piece on the board. Luo Shiyu was puzzled and horrified when she was transported to a different space. She saw the gigantic piece falling towards her. She realized that she misjudged. Dai was worried, while Qin Manyan remarked that it was a bad loss. Lai Nianfen considered what was wrong with the people in that realm and where they got so much self-confidence. He realized that Luo Shiyu was a princess, so he assumed no one dared to beat her since she was a child, so she presumed she was excellent at chess. He added that it was quite pitiful too. Luo Shiyu tried to explain, but he assured her that she didn't need to explain, as he understood, and it was not too late to realize the truth, so she should practice hard in the future and not be ashamed. Dai and Qin Manyan agreed and affirmed that they understood it well. Luo Shiyu thanked him and mentioned that she would go back and think about it. He observed that both of them don't look good and asked if they wanted to rest in the house for a while. Qin Manyan remarked that she didn't want to bother him, but it was true that playing chess made her mind and body tired, so she would be leaving. He questioned if she got tired after playing chess for only 5 minutes, and he remarked that if that was the case, he would not say much more. He suggested that she rest well. He walked them towards the door. Suddenly, Luo Shiyu tripped on a piece of bamboo. She lost her balance, and she tried to regain it. Qin Manyan questioned what happened, and she replied that something tripped her up. They looked back to see what it was. The bamboo was overflowing with aura. They were astonished when they recognized the Enlightenment Bamboo. Luo Shiyu explained what the Enlightenment Bamboo was. Qin Manyan responded that if she didn't know, it was normal because most people in the world have never heard the word Enlightenment Bamboo. But when it comes to it, Lin Immortal Palace couldn't be more familiar. It is a rare opportunity, so she will give her an explanation. But as she was about to explain, Lai Nianfen interrupted, questioning why the firewood fell there and if it tripped them up. They were surprised when they heard him claim that it was firewood. He clarified that he is going to use it for cooking. It was good stuff, as the firewood rice cooked from that is much more delicious than from the rice cooker, and they shouldn't look at him like that because he is very resolute about the quality of life. Luo Shiyu wondered if the Enlightenment Bamboo was used like that normally. Qin Manyan refuted that it was impossible. There was a legend saying that someone attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree and ascended to heaven. The Bodhi tree becomes Taoism and soon, a holy tree. Although the Enlightenment Bamboo isn't as good as the Bodhi, it is still a rare item. If there isn't a master who repeatedly enlightens the Tao by the bamboo side, the Taoist flow will go haywire. One would question how bamboo could gain consciousness and cultivate into Taoism. Qin Manyan continued that for thousands of years, no one has become immortal, and the enlightened bamboo has become a legend. If Lin Immortal Palace didn't have at least one on hand, she wouldn't have known that such magical wood existed in the world. And it actually became firewood, which was a sin. She mused that that day she had a predetermined fate, and it must be her intrinsic mission to allow her to preserve the Enlightenment Bamboo from being burned while Lai Nianfen inquired if she was alright. She requested that he pardon her rudeness and questioned whether he could give her that firewood. She explained that the material is rare, and it fits well with her master's tools, so it is important for her. He queried if her master liked handicrafts as well and mentioned that it was also the leftover from his bow making, and it was nothing important, so if she liked it, she could take it. But he doubted if that was enough for her, and she assured that she couldn't thank him enough for that present and there was nothing else she could ask for as it was more than enough. He decided that he will just use the rest as firewood then. Souls came out of the bamboo as they got burned at the fireplace. Qin Manyan's face turned dark. She apologized in her mind as she realized that she could only save one of them. Meanwhile, Luo Shiyu contemplated that although she still doesn't know what Enlightenment Bamboo is, she feels that Qin Manyan is a little pitiful. A few moments later, Qin Manyan came back to the Lin Immortal Palace. It was up in the mountains, and everything was serene. She landed in their courtyard. She was so graceful. Some of the disciples remarked that their senior sister was back and greeted her. She proceeded to walk towards the altar. She looked up at the carved-out statue of Yao Mengji in the mountain. She greeted it as her master. He questioned if she brought back the nine-tailed celestial fox. She replied that she didn't. He queried why she came back. She responded that she already knows where the nine-tailed celestial fox is at the moment, and she also met a person who is comparable to heaven. He demanded what kind of big shot is comparable to heaven, and she explained that he was an expert who rescued the nine-tailed celestial fox from the catastrophe. He remarked that to be able to save people from the thunder is really amazing, and he probed if he was a virtuous person or an evil one. She replied that he took in the nine-tailed celestial fox, but there is no intention of using it or harming it. He inquired if she believed they could bring it back from him and if that was possible, and she confessed that, to be honest, she thinks they have no chance at all to take the fox from him. Yao Mengji was silent for a moment. He concluded that since he has no bad intentions, they should leave it that way. She must be tired from her trip too, so he requested that she take a good rest. She thanked him and questioned if it was true that the celestial heart zither is broken as he stated before. He affirmed that it was right and it is made of the enlightenment bamboo, so since it was broken, he is afraid that it would be impossible to repair it. She queried if there was any possibility of repairing it if she found the enlightenment bamboo. He emphasized that he knows she is loyal, but there is only one enlightenment bamboo in that world, and it was owned by their ancestor by luck, but it was also badly damaged when it was brought back. If not, it wasn't something that would be broken after only a few thousand years, so she better put some thought into it. She wondered aloud if that bamboo was the enlightenment bamboo. He paused for a moment. He repeatedly confirmed that it was the enlightenment bamboo. He noted that it was short, wondered why it was a little burnt there and if it was also struck by thunder, and observed that the cross-section seemed to have been chopped with a hatchet. But it was indeed an enlightenment bamboo, and it was much better than their ancestors' one. God bless Lin Immortal Palace because for thousands of years, they have been admired by people, and no one dared to upset them thanks to their cultivation base leading and the blessing of the celestial heart zither. It is one of the treasures that is closest to immortals in the world, and with it in hand, the battle power of the owner will increase dramatically. It doesn't matter if it's a big or small sect, the celestial dynasties, or the demon king, all of them respect them. Since the road to the immortal world is cut off and it was broken, they were facing some serious crisis. But with that bamboo, he is certain that no one will dare to be their enemy in the future. He queried where she got it, and she answered that she got it from an expert. That expert wanted to use it as firewood. He confirmed whether he was using it as firewood. She affirmed yes, and he has many enlightenment bamboos. He reconfirmed if there were many. She confirmed yes, and he uses them as firewood. He looked so menacing as he summoned her, and she awaited his instructions. He commanded that she must be courteous and not neglect that expert. Qin Manian briefed Yao Mengji on how things happened, and she conveyed that Lai Nianfen also had some orders for her. He prompted her to explain quickly what it was. She relayed that the first order was because of the appearance of the nine-tailed celestial fox. Several immortal cultivators have been appearing near the place where he is staying, and it has annoyed him a lot. So she wanted them to think of a way to solve the issue. He wondered if the expert wanted them to kill them all. She replied that he is a good man, so she assumes he just wanted them to drive them away and not to hurt them. He acknowledged that it is not easy, but they will get it done anyway. He inquired about the second order, and she relayed that he mentioned that he loves the 1,000-year-old Shu and Ice liquid, so she promised to give him the entirety of it. Yao Mengji was so surprised that he coughed up blood. She wondered if he was angry as he snickered menacingly. He questioned how much he needed and why she didn't mention that she could carry the entire 1,000-year-old Shu and Ice there, and she responded that she wouldn't dare to do that. He affirmed and instructed her to carry it there, and she asked if it was real. He reflected that he had lived for 1,000 years, and it is a blessing to meet such a person and to see the 1,000-year-old Shu and Ice, so he is going to be rich. He instructed that without further ado, they should carry out the master's orders, and she praised that he is so wise. On the other hand, the immortal cultivators were camping and littering in the forests. One of them complained that it was weird and wondered why they couldn't find even the fur of the nine-tailed celestial fox after so many days, to which another one agreed. He speculated that she must be dead or crippled after experiencing the tribulation and wondered where else she could hide. Suddenly, someone exclaimed that he had found it. The immortal cultivators moved so quickly that they disappeared before their food hit the ground. They all ran in the same direction. One of them questioned if they were sure about it at that time. The other confirmed that it was true, and a group of people who were looking for foxes in the area had gathered. A few moments later, they arrived at the area. One of them saw Bai Wuchen, remarked that he heard that he had found the whereabouts of the celestial fox, and queried if that was true. Bai Wuchen affirmed that it was there. The immortal cultivators looked up. They saw the fox charging at an incredible speed. They wondered if it was the celestial fox and cursed as they exclaimed that it escaped. They warned that it shouldn't even think about it. A powerful aura surged from the bushes and quickly surrounded it. It abruptly stopped running and faced the other way. It startled when the powerful aura got closer. It quickly became surrounded and trapped. One of the cultivators wondered aloud who it was and whether he bound the nine-tailed celestial fox in an instant. They seemed to be a step behind, which was a pity. The auras were coming from the golden spears surrounding the fox. The cultivators presumed that it must be an expert who sees the opportunity. The fox glared behind it. It startled when it saw Qin Manhwa and Yao Mengji. Yao Mengji stated that it has nowhere else to run. He used his skill, Bind. The powerful aura quickly wrapped itself around the fox's body. It screamed in pain. The immortal cultivators wondered if he wasn't the palace master of the Lin Immortal Palace, Yao Mengji. They were alarmed when he hopped off the clouds and came to the ground to approach the fox. One of the cultivators questioned whether Yao Mengji came in person, and another suggested that he didn't think they should be involved. Yao Mengji instructed that the fox should stop struggling. He retreated. The powerful aura became gentle as it wafted with the wind. It disappeared along with the fox. Bai Wuchen was speechless as he watched Qin Manhwa and Yao Mengji fly away. He sighed and lamented that they don't have enough strength, and it makes no difference how big the opportunity is. One of the cultivators remarked that after all, they can't afford to offend the Lin Immortal Palace. Another remarked that since the nine-tailed celestial fox was taken away by them, they have no choice but to give up. And another comforted that it was okay and Bai Wuchen shouldn't be angry because when he is angry, his body suffers. He has been keeping everyone up to date on the latest news on the Celestial Fox for the past few days, and he hopes everyone will remember that in their hearts. Bai Wuchen concluded that the opportunity has passed, and it was pointless to dwell on it in the future, so it was fine. He will return. He flew away. One of the cultivators observed that he seemed angry, and the other agreed since the appearance of the nine-tailed celestial fox. The old man has never slept once. He must have really wanted to catch the fox. 4 hours later, Qin Manhwa questioned if everyone had left, and one of the disciples confirmed yes, all of them had left. Qin Manhwa instructed that it was the back garden of the expert. As she requested that they clean it up, they acknowledged that they understood. She complained that all those unethical immortal cultivators caused such a mess for just a fox and wondered how the expert will hunt and have fun there. Yao Mengji encouraged everyone to work hard and clean up more thoroughly for the sake of the expert, while Qin Manhwa announced that he has arrived. Bai Wuchen greeted him as his senior. Yao Mengji responded that he was too polite and he is an honored guest of Reincarnated, so he would encourage him to be comfortable with him. Bai Wuchen hesitated if he could ask him something and inquired about the nine-tailed celestial fox from that morning. Yao Mengji questioned if he was referring to that. He clarified that it was just a trick to send those cultivators away. Bai Wuchen complimented that he really was so powerful because even though he knew it was a ruse, he almost believed it, but he humbly replied that he was nothing. Bai Wuchen remarked that the world will soon know that the nine-tailed celestial fox was taken away by the Lin Immortal Palace and there won't be any delusions anymore, and Yao Mengji acknowledged that they could make it go smoothly because of his cooperation. Bai Wuchen excused that it was getting late, so he would take his leave first. A few moments later, Qin Manhwa confirmed that the immortal cultivators have all dispersed and no one is wild enough to come and find it at Lin Immortal Palace. Yao Mengji questioned what the matter was. She informed that there is another person who has been pursuing the Fox clan for hundreds of years as it swallows foxes to increase its cultivation, and its strength is unfathomable. If it weren't for the celestial heart zither's intimidation, she fears that it wouldn't even care about the Lin Immortal Palace at all, and she doubts it will let the fox go easily. Yao Mengji seemed to have realized who she meant it was. She confirmed that he guessed it right. It was the Silver Moon Demon King.
In a nameless little village, the people darted like panicked birds through the crooked lanes, hollering for help because monsters had stormed in. A hulking pig-like beast thundered after them, juggling a corroded cage in one hand as if it were a trophy. His cultivation had climbed a saver stage and he bragged loudly that the humans ought to submit themselves and let him chew them up as a tasty side dish. He carried the rank of head chef in the Silver Moon Demon King's army, and with his 18 flamboyant cooking techniques on display, he declared their deaths would not be squandered. Out of nowhere, Squirrel stomped on his skull with offhand savagery. The blow landed so viciously it burst into a roaring blast, rubble and dust hammering the sky. The pig demanded to know if she was really the Demon Guard Captain Squirrel under Lord Silvermoon. She snapped that he was a dim-witted pig and lashed him for barging in while everyone was preoccupied. She warned him not to sob later when Lord Silvermoon diced him into pitiful scraps. He scoffed that although the hunt for the nine-tailed celestial fox consumed everyone's time, the army still had to eat. So, as chef to Lord Silvermoon Demon King, he strutted into the town hunting ingredients, insisting on confirming if the nine-tailed celestial fox might be tucked away there, and he wondered aloud if that was his assigned duty. Squirrel froze silent, chewing on the ridiculous claim. An old man suddenly pleaded with her to spare him, his voice rattling like brittle twigs in the wind. She brushed him off, as too ancient with a sharp tilt of her chin. The old man shuddered when she grabbed him without hesitation. She yanked him from the cage with one cruel pull. He crumpled onto the dirt, hacking and wheezing from the drop. The pig suggested Squirrel snag some meaty humans for the king's hearty dish, and she snapped back that the humans were sly, tossing out worthless old men while hiding the women and children. Out of nowhere, a chilling aura crawled across the air and bit at their skin. The pig warned that a gaze had been fixed on them for quite some time. The kid's complexion drained pale in fright. Squirrel noted there was indeed one there, a tender bit of flesh, just waiting. On the other hand, powerful lightning hammered relentlessly from the sky, the kind that made the whole world feel like it was being zapped awake. An entire village drowned under sudden floods, and people were swept away in frantic waves. Nothing graceful about any of it. There was also a fierce tornado twisting through the outskirts, ripping roofs like paper and shredding whatever pride those houses still had. The Silver Moon Demon King was the architect of those disasters, shaping chaos from above with the casual cruelty of a god auditioning for terror. Squirrel abruptly turned to him while presenting his meal with a flat, casual gesture, like offering leftovers to a picky guest. She urged that he eat something light first so he would not get a stomachache, delivering the line with the brisk efficiency of someone who cooks and judges in equal measure. And she added that he shouldn't starve himself, as if offering parental advice while the world fell apart. But he only pushed back, demanding whether she had found the nine-tailed celestial fox, voice edged and thin like a blade. She replied no, not yet, shrugging off expectation with a small economy-sized indifference. He pressed whether it was real with an edge to his voice, hunting for fact or bluff with equal appetite. He threatened that if she hid in the mountain, he would destroy it. If she hid in the sea, he would evaporate it, laying out options with lethal clarity. If they couldn't find her, he vowed he would find her personally, tone folding into absolute certainty. But when the time came, he promised they all would become her side dishes, promising a grotesque, inevitable dinner course. Squirrel's body shivered with a thin thread of fear, the motion small but honest. He checked whether she understood, and she affirmed that she did, the confirmation flat and automatic. Suddenly, a crow dove toward the Silver Moon Demon King, wings cutting the storm air like a black blade through wet silk. He announced that he had come to report, carrying news like a bullet. Silver Moon demanded if he had found it, and the crow blurted that yes, they had found it, but the people from Lin Immortal Palace took it away, spilling the complication in one breath. Silver Moon flared with rage, the whole sky answering him for a second. He demanded why the Lin Immortal Palace could find it when he could not, and the crow pleaded for mercy, begging to be spared, voice thin with panic. Silver Moon sneered that Lin Immortal Palace had been hollowed since the Heart Zither broke thousands of years ago, reduced to a band of cripples. And since he had lost to them, there was no reason for him to live, and he pressed the crow for his opinion, piling history and humiliation together. The crow then reported they had discovered the nine-tailed celestial fox's sister, the six-tailed one, delivering the bait like a business deal. Silver Moon's interest sharpened, attention snapping to the new angle. He remarked that the crow still seemed useful, and the crow thanked him over and over, gratitude sounding very close to relief. Silver Moon declared he would catch the small one first, and then the big one would follow, mapping the hunt like a strategist marking prey. He launched himself into the storm and flew away without hesitation, motion-hungry and immediate. He vowed that none of them could escape his claws, promise sealed with a predator's certainty. The disaster sparked by the lightning and tornadoes spread scars across the mountain range for all to see. Qin Manyun remarked that the Silver Moon Demon King had already stepped out. He grew more and more feral, chasing after the nine-tailed celestial fox, while the ordinary sex of the Zhan dynasty wouldn't dare confront him, giving him the bold freedom to unleash cruelty. Yao Mengji declared that he was a demon who had cultivated all the way to God's test stage, and unless forced, no one would gamble with opposing him. He spread word about the nine-tailed celestial fox to push the rest of the world into the hunt, while he would stay lurking in the shadows until someone dragged her out. Qin Manyun pressed if he was truly a god's test stage, and pointed out that since everyone knew they had taken away the nine-tailed celestial fox, he would inevitably come looking. Yao Mengji responded that with the Heaven Heart Zither restored, he had been waiting for him to show up so he could finally hammer some painful lessons into him. But after they had painstakingly cleaned up the back garden for Li Nianfan, he asked how they could possibly let him wreck it again. Li Nianfan reminded them to handle matters carefully, for if that villain stirred up more chaos, and Li Nianfan turned the blame on him, wouldn't that squander the greatest opportunity he had been waiting 3,000 years for? And Qin Manyun pressed him if that was the reason. He snapped back if it wasn't obvious, and stressed that as their master's most critical chess piece, even if he crawled through hellfire, he would never back down. Qin Manyun replied that she understood and voiced her admiration for his clarity, and he, in turn, affirmed she was truly worthy of being his disciple. Meanwhile, Dai Yi's sister cried in fear. She fretted over whether she had offended someone. One of the monsters jeered that it had found her, calling her a little cutie, and she flinched with fright. She managed to slip past the monster's strike, but she landed hard, her body rolling helplessly across the ground. She puzzled over what was happening, and desperately wished someone would come to her aid. A monster mocked that though her legs were short, she ran surprisingly fast, and another snarled that he had rushed too quickly. Silver Moon barked at them to chase her immediately, and they replied in unison that they understood. The two monsters launched right after her. Silver Moon muttered that it was the six-tailed fox, but then stopped and corrected himself with suspicion. He questioned aloud if she had already evolved into seven tails. He sneered that it was amusing and wondered how that could be possible. He broke into sinister laughter. He cursed that the two foxes were clearly concealing some shocking secret. One leapt from 7 tails to 9 in 3 years, while the other was now pushing towards 7. If he captured them and tore out the secrets locked in their bodies, then his ascension to immortal would be just around the corner. His chilling laughter rattled through the forest as he streaked away in pursuit. Meanwhile, Da Yi's sister sobbed, calling for her sister and confessing how scared she was. She wailed if the Silver Moon Demon King had come to catch her and drag her sister out. A monster's hand suddenly tore into the bushes where she cowered. He crowed that he had caught her. She reacted in a flash, leaping over his shoulder. She bolted before he even realized what happened. But the monster only repeated his taunt, daring her to run. He reveled in hide and seek with furry prey. She resolved to flee in the opposite direction, for even if she were seized, she must never lead them to her sister's place. But Silver Moon abruptly appeared, blocking her escape. He snarled that she was just a brat, and that was enough. She froze, paralyzed by terror. He swung his claws, unleashing a devastating strike. She was so powerless that she simply shut her eyes and braced for death. But the attack was diverted at the last instant. She opened her eyes to see the ground torn apart beside her, while her body remained untouched. She wondered in shock who Qin Manyun was. Qin Manyun barked at her, demanding what she was waiting for and urging her to run. Startled, she sprinted away without hesitation. Yao Mengji suddenly declared that the Silver Moon Demon King's hour of reckoning had arrived. He and Qin Manyun together barred Silver Moon's path. Silver Moon clicked his tongue with a snap and complained that it was a real pain in the ass, since the fox that rushed straight to his claws managed to escape again, and now he had to waste effort chasing it down once more. They knew full well that he was a lazy and hot-tempered eagle, and he grilled them for daring to screw up his hunt. He pressed them with a sharp edge in his voice, demanding if they were ready to die. Qin Manyun and Yao Mengji stood steady, unfazed by his furious scream. Yao Mengji fixed him with an unblinking glare, sharp and unwavering. He suddenly swung his arms in irritation. He cursed and barked that his head was already throbbing, so why the hell did he have to scream so loud? He added bluntly that he should keep it down since the expert might be trying to nap. Silver Moon cut in and demanded to know exactly who the hell he was. Yao Mengji introduced himself as someone hailing from the Lin Immortal Palace and declared that he would cut down demons for the sake of humanity. Silver Moon shot back that he had been holed up behind closed doors in that palace for hundreds of years, and while he pressed him on why he bothered showing up now, he sneered that Lin Immortal Palace might fool outsiders, but it sure as hell couldn't fool him. He mocked that the day the Heaven Heart Zither shattered, the sect lost all hope for immortal cultivation, and from then on, he never dared step outside, acting like he'd been severed from the rest of the world for a century. The world might believe he was some pure-hearted hermit obsessed with cultivation, but monsters knew the truth of his bullshit. He was nothing more than a coward. Qin Manyun remarked bluntly that she hadn't expected him to nail that point. Yao Mengji cleared his throat with purpose. He declared that they should cut the nonsense short and start fighting, because if he didn't finish him off today, there was no reason to keep on living. He was throwing himself onto the board like a chess piece. Silver Moon cracked a smile and answered that it was good, since he would stake his life to seize the 9-tailed celestial fox. But in truth, even if he won, he'd walk away empty-handed. The two braced themselves and prepared to lunge straight at each other. They instantly clashed, trading blows at a blistering, unbelievable speed. Silver Moon halted briefly. He funneled his energy straight into his beak. He sneered that demons only feared the Lin Immortal Palace because of the blessing of that fake Heaven Heart Zither, but since it was broken, there was no way he, the Silver Moon Demon King, would be afraid of them. He thrust his claws forward to snatch Yao Mengji, but Yao Mengji instantly summoned the Heaven Heart Zither. He plucked a single string. A torrent of energy burst forth, blocking Silver Moon's assault outright. Silver Moon froze in shock. The overwhelming force then hurled him across the mountains, smashing him from peak to peak and leaving gaping holes behind. Qin Manyun suddenly turned toward Yao Mengji. She reminded him sharply not to be so loud, or he might disturb the expert, and he admitted with a start that he nearly forgot. Meanwhile, Silver Moon dragged himself upright again. He declared that the Heaven Heart Zither had been crafted from enlightenment bamboo, the one and only in all of heaven and earth. He demanded to know how it could possibly have been repaired without it. Yao Mengji mulled over the question. He suddenly realized the truth at the same moment as Qin Manyun. He exclaimed that everything had been within their master's calculations, that he had been given the enlightenment bamboo precisely to strike down that evil monster. It was a God-sent opportunity, proof that he had already been made into a chess piece of their master, and Qin Manyun affirmed it with certainty. Silver Moon suddenly dangled an offer, declaring that if Yao Mengji swore not to oppose him, he would reveal a secret. Yao Mengji's curiosity was piqued. Silver Moon pressed him, asking if he knew that the 9-tailed fox they had taken away had only been a 7-tailed 3 years ago. He explained that it had taken her just 3 years to grow 9 tails and even survive tribulation, meaning she must have stumbled on some extraordinary stroke of fortune. Yao Mengji challenged him, demanding what difference that made. And Silver Moon replied that if they dug up the secret together, the path to becoming an immortal would be within their claws. Yao Mengji gave the idea some serious weight. Qin Manyun leaned close and whispered that she believed the so-called big opportunity he spoke of was actually Lin Yanfan, and he confirmed sharply that she was right. Silver Moon then pushed for an answer, urging him to cooperate since he knew how desperately he craved immortality. But fury overtook him the instant he caught sight of their sympathetic expressions. He snapped at them, demanding to know why the hell they were staring at him with pity. Yao Mengji cut in bluntly, pressing what was so damn great about that secret. Silver Moon barked out that it was enough already and Yao Mengji should just keep his nose out of it. First, he snatched his goods, and then he slammed him around and threw out insults. He figured he wasn't worthy of the Demon King's title at all if he didn't strike back. Yao Mengji then caught on to what he was trying to pull. Silver Moon tossed in that he would definitely return. Qin Manyun pressed if he ran off, and Yao Mengji muttered that he had expected him to fight to the end, but he slipped away instead. She remarked that the Silver Moon Demon King's chi was overwhelming, and if he pushed further, even he wouldn't be able to get away from him, to which he admitted she was right. But since the expert had handed him a mission, he had no choice but to carry it through. He then called out to her, and she answered yes. The two of them bolted off in pursuit of Silver Moon. On the other side, Silver Moon was flapping his wings in wild panic to flee. He cursed that the old man Yao Mengji was out of his mind, utterly insane. For 4,000 years, he, the Eagle Demon, had been unbreakable. So there was no way that old fool could even compare. He vowed he would bide his time and destroy Lin Immortal Palace. Then he jerked in shock when Blackie suddenly popped up and blocked his flight path. Silver Moon fixed him with a fierce glare, trying to cow him, but Blackie stood there, entirely unmoved. Silver Moon barked where that mutt came from and snapped that he almost got knocked aside, so he better move out of the way. Blackie coolly declared that he was just a little demon and should smash his own demon pill, as he wouldn't bother to make a move if he did that. Silver Moon was so floored that he froze without words. He then growled that as the saying went, even hares might yank eagles by the beard, and he couldn't believe a dog dared to provoke him while he was running. He sneered that it was lucky the Demon King had no time to waste on him that day, but his sneer died when pain flared across his back. Blackie had ripped a handful of feathers off his tail. Silver Moon shouted that the mutt was unbearably rude, yet confusion clouded him as he stared at Blackie. Then shock overtook him when he saw a mighty light burst across the dark sky. He demanded to know who Blackie really was. Blackie rose up straight. He announced that he was nothing but an ordinary guard dog. Silver Moon trembled in terror. A thunderous lightning bolt smashed down on the mountaintop. Meanwhile, Lin Yanfan's mind flashed to Blackie. He frowned, wondering why lightning suddenly struck in such clear and lovely weather. He rushed off, worried for him. On the other side, Qin Manyun pressed Yao Mengji if he had seen that, and as he questioned where that demon dog had come from, he muttered that it was utterly terrifying. The Silver Moon Demon King looked like a baby crushed under the dog's paw, and she urged that they should escape before the demon dog noticed them, to which he agreed she was right. But to their shock, Blackie turned to address them both. He asked if they had seen everything. Yao Mengji instantly begged him to spare his life and blurted that he was a dog lover, while Qin Manyun declared that one could die but not be humiliated and demanded why he was doing this. He coldly told her she knew nothing, so she should come kneel. Blackie explained that he was aware they were his master's guests and pressed if they understood his rules. Yao Mengji's face showed his puzzlement when he brought up his master. Qin Manyun then murmured that she felt a sense of familiarity. She suddenly realized that he was the dog raised by Lin Yanfan. She blurted yes and confirmed they understood the rules. Blackie then reminded them firmly that they should keep in mind he was just a mutt who loved hunting, and that the eagle was just a normal mountain eagle he had happened to catch. Yao Mengji quickly declared that he understood, and gushed that he was simply the finest hound in the world with unmatched skills. So, he was amazed by him. Blackie chuckled that he caught on pretty quick. Suddenly, Lin Yanfan pushed his way through the bushes. The three of them jumped in shock when he emerged out of the greenery. Lin Yanfan kept calling out to Blackie, throwing in a half-scolding tone as he checked if he was fine, grumbling that he told him not to climb to high places when thunder rolled. He suddenly caught sight of Qin Manyun. He noticed she and Yao Mengji were standing beside Blackie. He guessed at what kind of situation he had walked into. He wondered aloud if they had shielded Blackie from the lightning, and while he thanked them profusely, Yao Mengji waved it off, claiming he was being far too polite over nothing. Qin Manyun casually introduced Yao Mengji as her master. Lin Yanfan greeted him warmly, calling him uncle, and mentioning it was great to meet him, and Yao Mengji returned the pleasantry with equal courtesy. Lin Yanfan's attention drifted back to Blackie. He checked if he caught that prey. He remarked with genuine awe that it was a massive eagle, and that he did an incredible job. Normally, some pesky kid would always show up around that hour, but that day, the mountains had gone oddly silent, letting him hunt in peace. Out of nowhere, lightning slammed down on his dog's head, and his heart almost jumped out of his chest at the sight. He expressed his gratitude for their help with Blackie and invited them to come rest at his house, if they didn't mind. Yao Mengji figured that he already knew about the Silver Moon Demon King's demise, so this was the perfect opening. He apologized for the intrusion, but Lin Yanfan brushed it off, insisting it was no trouble at all. Soon after, calm settled over the mountain, and the group was laughing together. Yao Mengji mentioned that Qin Manyun had talked about Lin Yanfan days ago, and ever since he had been eager to meet him in person. He finally got his wish that day. Lin Yanfan modestly told him he was exaggerating, claiming he was just a plain man without anything remarkable. Yao Mengji privately concluded that, as he expected, he preferred hiding under immortal guise in this world, so he had to tread carefully not to expose him or waste such a rare encounter. He then praised Journey to the West as a genuine masterpiece, urging him not to be overly humble when his insight shone so brightly. And he mentioned hearing about the legendary couplet that left everyone stunned, confessing that as an old man he couldn't wait to see it himself. Lin Yanfan figured the man was clearly cultured, admitting that he was just a jack of all trades who could use his advice. Yao Mengji questioned what kind of advice he meant, insisting they should simply exchange ideas as equals. His gaze then caught on the arrows nearby. He realized they were made of enlightenment bamboo. He marveled that someone actually crafted arrows from such material, knowing one shot could erase its mark. Even the bow came from enlightenment bamboo. Qin Manyun quickly checked if he was fine. She recalled telling him once that the enlightenment bamboo she brought back had been discarded trash from Lin Yanfan. When he first heard it, disbelief filled him, but seeing it firsthand that day left him no room to doubt. He now desperately wished he could scavenge the things thrown away by him. Lin Yanfan asked if he felt all right, and Qin Manyun quietly explained that her master was just overwhelmed from meeting him, so he shouldn't worry. Yao Mengji shifted his gaze toward the Demon King's corpse. He reflected that it was almost an honor to perish by the hands of such a being. A short while later, they reached Lin Yanfan's home. He greeted Da Yi cheerfully, announcing their return. She inquired about his hunt. She swore under her breath and demanded to know if he really caught the Silver Moon Demon King. He credited it all to Blackie's effort, teasing that she should praise him too. She agreed easily. She gave Blackie a firm pat on the head. Then she sent him a telepathic message, asking what exactly happened. He replied that it was his doing, but playfully added that she wouldn't believe him if he said he just passed by and accidentally killed it. Either way, she shouldn't make their master suspect anything. Lin Yanfan looked at her curiously, wondering what it was and why she seemed uneasy. She answered that it was her first time seeing such a giant mountain eagle, that she was just startled, but its meat looked tender enough to make a fine meal. He chuckled, saying they should roast it that night. Qin Manyun and Yao Mengji were stunned into silence as they listened. They could hardly believe he intended to eat the Silver Moon Demon King. Yao Mengji mentioned to Lin Yanfan that he heard from Qin Manyun about his fondness for a treat called jelly, so he went out of his way to bring him some that day. And Lin Yanfan, half intrigued, wondered aloud if that was for real. But Yao Mengji explained that the thing wasn't exactly small, so he needed a bit of space to set it down properly. Lin Yanfan waved it off, saying it was no big deal, just a simple matter to handle. A short while later, he went and dug up a patch of his yard without hesitation. Then he turned to Yao Mengji and asked casually if that spot would do for placing it. Both Qin Manyun and Yao Mengji traded uncertain looks, wondering if he had really just chopped through all those elixirs growing there. Yao Mengji remarked that it would be sufficient. He lifted his hands and let his aura surge outward in a steady flow. A massive block of ice appeared before them, gleaming under the light. Lin Yanfan's eyes widened, genuinely impressed. He commented that he thought it would be some kind of jelly-making machine, and while he questioned what it actually was, Yao Mengji explained that jelly was formed from that very ice block. It originated from the mountain called the 1,000 Years Zhuan Ice Mountain, but the process of creating even a single piece of jelly took a full decade. Yet Lin Yanfan, confused, asked him to repeat what he'd just said. Yao Mengji brushed it off, mumbling that it was nothing worth noting. He internally grumbled that the 1,000 Years Zhuan ice had been stingy since he had been licking it for thousands of years and managed to get only one drop of jelly. Now that it had met the expert, though, it willingly offered all of itself to him. Lin Yanfan mentioned that he saved Blackie and was even given such a rare treasure, so he asked sincerely how he could repay that generosity. He added that he was merely a mortal who grew crops and didn't own anything valuable, so if they didn't mind, they could tell him directly what they wanted. Yao Mengji and Qin Manyun froze, momentarily dazed. They both suspected it was some kind of hidden test. Yao Mengji debated silently, figuring that if he lied and said he wanted nothing, the expert would instantly catch on and scold them for false modesty. But if he asked for something straight away, he'd look greedy. Qin Manyun reasoned that if she slipped up here, she might blow a golden opportunity. Yao Mengji's mind whirled as he tried to craft the right response. He eventually admitted that, to be truthful, he owned an old zither long damaged. But thanks to the Enlightenment bamboo gifted to Qin Manyun, it could finally be restored. He spoke humbly, saying he wouldn't forget the kindness shown to them, so the zither was merely a token of gratitude, something he was duty-bound to offer. Li Nianfan clarified if he meant the branch Qin Manyun had brought back. He mused privately that he basically got a jelly maker in exchange for a branch, and he wondered if this was how cultured people truly behaved. So calm, so detached. Yao Mengji declared that his heart was as clear as a mirror, so if that was the case, he would come straight to the point, and Li Nianfan told him to go ahead. Yao Mengji then stated that what he wished for was for him to show them the way. Qin Manyun caught her breath, realizing he was asking Li Nianfan to reveal the path to immortality. She knew he always avoided the topic of cultivation, so her master's move felt like a gamble, and she wondered how Li Nianfan would respond. Li Nianfan simply agreed and told them to follow. A little while later, Li Nianfan mentioned that it had been ages since he last played the zither with anyone. Both Qin Manyun and Yao Mengji stared at him, confused. Li Nianfan told them not to give him that look since he knew a bit about music himself. Qin Manyun inwardly sighed, assuming they were about to be turned away. But Yao Mengji's face lit up, thinking it fit perfectly. He had sensed from the start that the expert practiced the zither, and now he felt incredibly fortunate. He asked if they would be playing together, but Li Nianfan declined, saying not together. He figured that while he played with simple technique, cultivators channeled inner strength, which might knock him out cold by accident. He then asked Yao Mengji to take a seat and play a single piece while he listened first. Yao Mengji chuckled that the old man was ready to play, but as his fingers brushed the strings, he froze, stunned by the sudden golden glow radiating from the zither. Yao Mengji thought that the celestial heart zither sensed the presence of that zither. He wondered if it felt inferior. He thought that it was like a story of a beauty meeting another. One day, a self-proclaimed beauty, Dong Shi, entered a town, and she saw the true beauty of the town. Her confidence and pride were completely shattered. When the celestial heart zither is compared to Li Nianfan's zither, calling it firewood is not an exaggeration. He then asked Li Nianfan if he could really play that zither. Li Nianfan said that of course he could. Yao Mengji then sat in front of the zither. He said that he would do it with all due respect. He plucked one of the zither's strings and played it, but then he coughed up blood. He said that the level of that zither was too high. So it takes some effort for him to play it, but it was fine. Li Nianfan was worried that he was not feeling well, but then Yao Mengji played the zither and released golden inscriptions from it. Li Nianfan was in awe. They listened silently while he played. Two birds also came and hopped onto a tree branch to listen. More birds came. Yao Mengji thought that he was an old man who had been practicing to play the zither for a long time, and he finally got to play that magical item that day. He has no more regrets in that lifetime. Meanwhile, Qin Manyun was observing him. She said that she couldn't believe it, and even though her master's behavior is wretched, he still played that zither well, so she has learned something. On the other hand, Li Nianfan was thinking that it was not bad, and if the crappy system were to evaluate it, that should be rated as level 8. He stood still and listened to the music. He thought that the zither's sound reminded him of the days when he was forced by the system to practice it. He worked hard to get to the 10th level and thought he had reached the master level, but he was told by the system that it was only the entry requirement of a rookie. He had the zither 24/7 by his side. Those days were really unforgettable. Yao Mengji then stopped playing. He asked Li Nianfan about what he thinks. Li Nianfan clapped. He said that they should not judge by words, and they should communicate through the sounds of the zither. Yao Mengji then apologized for the trouble. Li Nianfan thought that he loved the zither so much, so he must do his best and he can't let him down. Meanwhile, Qin Manyun and Yao Mengji were looking forward to his performance. Li Nianfan then raised his hand. He closed his eyes and hovered his fingers over the strings. He then leaned forward and touched the strings. They were anticipating that he was going to play. He then plucked the string. They thought that the zither's sound was so strong. Its sound waves rippled through the grass, but then everything calmed down. Yao Mengji wondered if he had stopped, while Qin Manyun said that they should wait a minute and asked what was behind him. They wondered if it was the Taoist realm. Qin Manyun and Yao Mengji wondered if they had stumbled into a battleground. The air trembled with the screams of countless soldiers. Yao Mengji remarked that the Taoist realm itself was a battle, but he couldn't help wondering if such a fierce clash truly existed in that place. Out of nowhere, a soldier filled with killing intent locked eyes on them. He raised his spear and leveled it straight at their direction. Alarmed, Qin Manyun urged him to run, but Yao Mengji brushed it off, saying there was no point. That Taoist flow was far beyond their reach. Escaping wasn't even an option. The soldier's glare sharpened like steel. Then he thrust his spear straight through Yao Mengji's chest. Yao Mengji whispered that this was indeed the Taoist realm. An instant later, the illusion shattered, and they were back in reality. Qin Manyun gasped that they had returned. But before relief settled, a large shadow loomed behind them. Yao Mengji muttered, wondering if every living thing in that yard had been cultivated to such terrifying heights. He explained that each living being reverted to its former form after hearing the zither's tune of battle. He murmured that it wasn't that Lin Yanfan lacked an opinion. It was that his own zither skills weren't even worthy of being judged. And while he believed he'd played well, he realized he was leagues away from that. Qin Manyun remarked that even the demons in that yard could probably crush the Silver Moon Demon King, then asked if he was all right and if the shock got to him. Yao Mengji admitted that she was right. Lin Yanfan was an immortal. Then he corrected himself, declaring that Lin Yanfan stood beyond immortality, and that his own 3,000 years of cultivation had merely prepared him for this destined encounter. Lin Yanfan finally set his hands down. He mentioned he was done and casually asked what they thought of it. They both froze, unable to speak. Yao Mengji murmured that it was no wonder those beings had reached such mastery, constantly surrounded by such divine music. He and Qin Manyun muttered together that they couldn't help being jealous of them. The bushes and lilies glimmered softly in the pond. The trees looked lush and brimming with life. Yao Mengji's face lit up with joy. He offered deep thanks to Lin Yanfan, calling him a humble teacher who had granted him immense insight. Lin Yanfan replied that he hadn't touched the zither in a long while, so his skill might have dulled, and he hoped they wouldn't mind. Yao Mengji then carefully asked if he might know the name of that tune. Lin Yanfan told him it was Ambush from 10 sides. Qin Manyun and Yao Mengji exchanged stunned looks. Yao Mengji wondered aloud if the lurking demons around them hadn't just been an ambush from every direction. He murmured that he was lucky he hadn't acted rudely, or else his body and bones might have vanished entirely from existence. He went on to praise the melody as extraordinary, saying the word peerless barely captured Lin Yanfan's skill, though Lin Yanfan brushed it off as too much flattery. Feeling awkward about trading firewood for a jelly-making contraption, he offered to jot down the music for him. Yao Mengji froze. Tears welled up in his eyes. He said those 3,000 years of his life had finally found meaning. Later, the sky above the mountain range gleamed clear and bright. The town beneath lay calm and quiet. Meanwhile, at the Lingyan Immortal Pavilion, a disciple wondered if their master would finally emerge, while another doubted if the rumors were true. Someone else muttered that the pavilion master was breaking through, and Lin Qingyun had been keeping watch for 3 straight days. That blinding light flickering above was surely the sign of a breakthrough. Lin Qingyun told everyone to lend their mana and help her father ascend. They all agreed without hesitation. She joined them, channeling her own energy too. Their mana streamed toward the house in shimmering waves. The yin-yang mark on the creature's chest devoured it greedily. The monster exhaled, slow and heavy. Its form began to shrink. One disciple wondered aloud if Lin Qingyun had succeeded. She stood tense, worry written across her face for her father. Then, he stepped out of the house. She called out that he had made it, but he warned her not to come any closer. Both his eyes had turned pitch black. He explained that he'd reached the most dangerous point of his breakthrough. Failure now would bring unimaginable backlash. She must hurry and fetch the top-grade 9 notes spiritual ginseng from the treasure vault at once. Lin Mufeng, the pavilion master of Lingyun Immortal Pavilion, urged that she should hurry up and get the 9 notes spiritual ginseng, because that would decide whether or not he could break through. Lin Tingyun froze. She mentioned that she had given it away. He brushed it off and told her to fetch the neon grass, thinking to himself that thank goodness he had kept a backup for his breakthrough. But she replied that she had given that away too. He blinked in disbelief. He told her to bring him the chalcedony, yet she admitted she gave it away. So he asked about the dragon heart of 9 years, and she said she gave that away too. He muttered that she had given away all the top-grade elixirs. It kept looping in his mind as he whispered that she had given them all away. Then he kept repeating how unfortunate it was. He pressed her for a reason why she would hand out all those rare elixirs, and she explained that it was Lin Yanfan, and he was a peerless expert. She described him as a low-key man living quietly as a mortal, and even the immortals in heaven couldn't compare to him. He wondered if that meant the man was a master living in seclusion and truly beyond immortals. Then he muttered that she had been tricked by that damned bastard. He figured she got swindled out of all their treasures. And though he wasn't sure if she'd even given her body to him, it sure seemed that way. He grumbled that it was miserable, and even if he had no chance for a breakthrough, he couldn't bear that his daughter suffered like this. Then he sighed that it was fine, and they'd let it go. He muttered that once he steadied his breath, he would hunt that bastard down and cut him into pieces. Lin Qingyun quickly added that even though she gave away the elixirs, she got something in return that might help him. He demanded to know what it was. She told him it was tea. He scoffed that 16 top-grade elixirs had been traded for a bag of tea. He muttered that his clever daughter had always been sharp since childhood, and he couldn't understand how she turned so foolish after meeting that bastard. She told him not to assume she'd been duped because he'd know soon enough whether it was real or not. She opened the bag of tea, and a burst of dazzling light spilled out. The darkness in Lin Mufeng's body instantly vanished. He fixed his gaze on the tea. It gleamed like gold, radiating waves of golden energy. He murmured that all the evil chi in his body seemed to fade away in that instant. He wondered if it was just an illusion, or if the tea truly contained the essence of heaven and earth. Then he told her to make some tea for him. Moments later, the tea was ready. Lin Qingyun poured it into a cup. She did it right there, before Lin Mufeng and everyone from the pavilion. Lin Mufeng reflected that this might be the first time his daughter had ever brewed him tea. He murmured that even if he failed to break through that day, drinking his daughter's tea would make it worth it. He joked that others cultivated by consuming the essence of heaven and earth, but he cultivated by drinking tea, making him the first of his kind. He lifted the cup to his lips. Then he drank. Suddenly, droplets of water fell, spreading ripples across a vast expanse of water. In an instant, he found himself somewhere entirely different. Lin Mufeng wondered if it might be Taoist flow. But then he muttered that it wasn't just that. There was consciousness mixed in too. That tiny cup of tea could actually pull someone's mind away from reality. He jolted when Lin Jingyun called out to him. He was watching her younger self racing toward him. She opened her arms wide as she drew closer. He did the same, ready to catch her. He muttered that it was his own consciousness playing tricks. He looked thrilled while holding her in his arms. Back in the real world, a Buddha's figure shimmered into being behind him. Lin Qingyun wanted to know how it went. He was struggling to catch his breath. He commented that his daughter had been unbearably cute as a child. Golden energy poured from his body like sunlight. One disciple blurted that their pavilion master had broken through. Lin Qingyun then pressed him about how he was feeling. He mentioned that she had the sweetness of a child back then, and the grace of an adult now, and she demanded what nonsense he was spouting. He urged his dear daughter to hand over the tea right away so he could check how much remained. She replied that was all she had, and he grinned that it was more than enough, and she had traded well for the 16 elixirs. Such a treasure could keep the Lingyun Immortal Pavilion rich and unrivaled for 10,000 years, perfectly fitting for her. It was truly a rare chance to bring back something so remarkable. He then grumbled about where that prick was, quickly correcting himself and asking where that master might be, and when she'd take him there. Lin Qingyun sighed that things weren't as he imagined. Lin Yanfan was a detached soul who preferred quiet, loved the solitude of mountains, and seldom showed himself. She meant to explain everything, and asked that he just hear her out. In the forest, a female demon sneered that he was only a Saver Stage weakling. She scoffed at him, daring to call himself Demon King. The demon pig retorted that Lord Silvermoon was gone, and the demons lacked a ruler, so someone had to rise to command them. She snapped that a slave like him had no shot. He shot back that she'd find out soon enough once he proved it. Both froze when sharp clacking echoed from behind the bushes. The demon pig muttered that it was potent demon chi. The female demon narrowed her eyes and asked what that could be. She cursed him for being a dumb pig and promised to deal with him later, while he grumbled that she'd gotten lucky this time. Meanwhile, Seven-Tailed stepped out from the brush. She moved cautiously, eyes darting around. She wondered if she'd heard something earlier. Moments later, she was sprinting full force. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she ran. She called to her sister, claiming she'd finally found her, while Da Yi blinked and asked if that was Six-Tailed. Then she corrected herself, saying she should call her Seven-Tailed now. Seven-Tailed gasped if she knew how close she'd come to dying a few days ago and told her the Silver Moon Demon King had trapped her with a swarm of demons. She'd barely escaped and might never have seen her again. Da Yi guessed she'd been rescued, and as Seven-Tailed admitted she was right, she asked how she figured that out. Da Yi shrugged that she wasn't clever. She should just look over there. She pointed to where the Silver Demon King was skewered on a stick and roasted. Seven-Tailed froze in horror. She stammered if he was really dead, and Da Yi replied that he was absolutely gone. Not only was the body shaved clean, but it had been washed, salted for a day, and would be served tomorrow. It had to be Lin Yanfan who'd sent someone to save her, and clearly everything had unfolded under his quiet guidance. Da Yi mused that maybe she could snag a bowl of that soup, since anything from him boosted cultivation. A thought flickered across her mind, and Seven-Tailed asked what kind of muttering that was. Da Yi mentioned he'd once hinted she might take human form and serve him too, though she wasn't sure she caught his meaning and feared offending him by acting rashly. With the demons now leaderless and chaotic, she urged Seven-Tailed to become their new demon king, tame them, and secure a safe hunting ground for the master. After earning merit and confirming his intent, she'd take her back to serve him. Seven-Tailed murmured that she had no idea what to say about that. She didn't want the title of demon king, she just couldn't. But Da Yi argued she was nearly a seven-tailed spiritual fox and strong enough, only too timid. Those lesser demons, without Silvermoon's backing, should quake before her. Seven-Tailed asked why Da Yi herself wouldn't take the role. Da Yi said the master kept her confined, and it'd be rude to wander without his consent, and Seven-Tailed remarked she'd really changed. Da Yi smiled faintly and told her to come eat first. Seven-Tailed mulled it over. Then she nodded. Da Yi promised she'd devise a plan for the Demon King issue, so she shouldn't worry.